Chapter 76. Brother, you said that this year is almost over, but Professor Quirrell hasn't had any problems yet. Is the curse that the defense against the dark arts professor can only teach for 1 year at most going to be broken? Maybe. Although Professor Quirrell had an accident during the Christmas holiday, he is in good spirits, better than last semester. I guess he will break the curse and continue to teach next school year. Maybe Professor Quirrell will be the professor for the next 7 years. I heard from seniors that no defense against the dark arts professor has been able to hold on until the final exam for many years. This is a curse that has lasted for decades. I heard that it was cast by a mysterious person. I have to say that although Professor Quirrell is not good at teaching, he is really capable. Who says not? It's just that, brother, I really don't want to take Professor Quirrell's class next year, even if his exams are very simple. He has the ability to not teach us. Wouldn't our defense against the dark arts class be useless? In the future, we will suffer a great loss when facing dark wizards and magical creatures. What are you afraid of? We can just go home during the summer vacation and let our parents teach us. Only those Muggleborns from Gryffindor and Hufflepuff are really miserable. They want to learn but no one teaches them. After lunch, Harry, who felt the burning pain on his forehead scar, stopped to listen to the conversation between the two people when he was about to go to the school hospital, and became thoughtful. Don't listen to their nonsense, Harry, I just think Professor Joe Lowe's class is good. Ronald sneered at the words of Fisher Frey and Colby Frey. Professor Quirrell's class is so good, there is no need to review, and the homework can be done casually. Sometimes he will give me an encouraging smile. He can be said to be the best professor in Hogwarts. If you want to deal with dark wizards and magical animals, isn't it enough to have the spells taught by Professor Flitwick, the professor of the spell class? The Frey brothers on the side looked at each other, looked at Harry and Ronald who stopped, and left immediately without caring what they thought or said. No, maybe Ethan is right. Harry covered his forehead with a painful look on his face. Now he is really getting more and more uncomfortable. After listening to Ethan's words at first, Harry did have some doubts Quirrell, and also asked the seniors of Gryffindor, and found that the results were mixed. Quirrell might really be the one who wanted to take action against the Philosopher's Stone. But Ronald disagreed with this statement, and said that Professor Quirrell was a rare good professor in Hogwarts, and listed several examples. For example, every time he met with him, Quirrell would give an encouraging smile. Isn't this good, Will? Even if we were late for the defense against the dark arts class or forgot to do our homework, we never lost points from the house. Look at how Professor Snape did it. After a series of arguments, Harry was almost convinced. What does Ethan know? He is also a first-year student. How could he know all this? Ronald was a little unhappy. Why did Ethan have such good grades? Why was he so good at fighting? Why did the little witches like him? The professors praised him, and even Harry trusted him very much. Nothing else, just jealousy. Why all the good things were his, and he was like a clown. Ronald was so jealous that even Harry participated in the Triwizard Tournament and looked at him. Harry was very unhappy. He was so proud of being a prefect because he had missed out on it. The scar on my forehead hurts. This is a sign. Maybe you were too nervous about the exams recently. Now that you are relaxed after the exams, you may have a headache. You know. I know. Ronald couldn't hide the fear on his face. His mother's brothers died because of the mysterious man. He didn't even dare to mention the name of this person. You heard what I said just now. The position of the defense against the dark arts professor is cursed by the mysterious man. Do you think this curse is easy to remove? Harry continued to ask back. He couldn't let Ronald lead him this time. The pain on his forehead was like an invisible signpost, telling him that something big was going to happen and he had to go to solve it. Ronald didn't dare to say anything because of the fear of Voldemort, even though he told himself that Dumbledore was the strongest. But Dumbledore didn't solve the mysterious man, and he didn't remove the curse in the defense against the dark arts class for so many years. Professor Quirrell has not triggered the curse yet. There are only two possibilities. He is not going to teach the defense against the dark arts class next year and plans to run away. The second is that he is originally from the you-know-who side, so he is not afraid of the curse. No matter which possibility it is, Professor Quirrell will take action on the Philosopher's Stone, and my scar caused by the you-know-who tells me that something big is going to happen today. Also, why is Professor Quirrell unwilling to teach even though he has the ability? That's because he is a dark wizard. Is he going to teach us how to deal with him? The more Harry talked, the more possible it was. Only in this way could he explain all the suspicious points on Quirrell. Damn, I should have noticed it earlier. But Professor Quirrell was so badly injured during Christmas. Maybe it was caused by the curse, but he survived. Also, he used to teach Muggles. Muggles might just read from textbooks. Professor Quirrell only taught the defense against the dark arts class this school year and hasn't adapted to it yet. It will be fine next year. Ronald still felt that Professor Quirrell was not a bad person, so he could only find excuses for him as much as possible. Wait, where are you going? Ronald couldn't help asking Harry as he started to run out of Hogwarts. But Harry was only concerned with running across the grounds and heading towards the Forbidden Forest, and didn't answer Ronald's question at all. Inside the Forbidden Forest, Hagrid was happily watching the dragon, which was already much bigger than Fang, eating. Now the Ukrainian Iron Belly Norbert would eat a whole sheep for a meal, and drink a bucket of chicken blood brandy at a time. Actually he didn't have to drink it anymore, and his body was gradually getting stronger. Fortunately, Hagrid's family was rich, so he could afford it. Harry, is the exam over? Hagrid heard the noise from behind, turned around and saw that it was Harry, and greeted him. Well, it's over, I have something to ask you. Do you remember the day you won Norbert playing cards? Harry looked anxious. At the beginning, he only knew that Hagrid's winning Norbert might have been designed, but he didn't know the day he won the dragon and didn't think about paying attention to this plaque. Now if this time is the same as what I guessed, then I can be completely sure that Quirrell is the one who tricked Hagrid into telling me. It was January 27th, I still remember it. Hagrid said with certainty, how could he forget such an important date? January 27th, Ronald, Don't you remember that Snape should have been a substitute teacher for a month? Well, 4 weeks, almost a month. Ronald also remembered this, not because his memory was so good, but because those days were too hard to endure. 4 classes of Snape every week, can you dare to think about it? After the Christmas holiday, classes will start on January 4th. Professor Quirrell is the first time he has returned to Hogwarts to teach. What did he do during this time? He must have gone to get the dragon eggs to find Hagrid to get information about the 3-headed dog. You know how powerful dragons are. He must have been discovered when stealing eggs, and then his hand was bitten off by the dragon. It was not because of any dark wizard. After the injury healed, he got information about the 3-headed dog, and finally came to Hogwarts to attend classes. He is the hooded man who got information about the 3-headed dog. Yes, it's him. While running towards Hogwarts, Harry explained to Ronald. Then where are we going now? Ronald couldn't make any excuses. Go find Dumbledore. Only he can stop this. I hope he can believe us. My scar tells me that something big is going to happen. Right now, Joe Luo must have gone to the corridor on the 4th floor to get the Philosopher's Stone. But where is Dumbledore's office? Harry was at a loss when he returned to the hall. He had never been to the office of the headmaster, and no one had taken him there. Go find Professor McGonagall. She must know. Ronald suggested that the 2 people who had been reprimanded by their own dean more than once naturally knew where Professor McGonagall's office was. Quirrell was standing in front of the mirror of East, looking at everything in the mirror with fascination. Suddenly Quirrell's body shook, and his temperament changed, but it didn't take long before it returned to normal again. Master, let Adrian try. We can't get it, but he doesn't know what we are going to get here, maybe he can succeed. Voldemort's voice echoed in Quirrell's mind. It has come to this point, and the Philosopher's Stone has not been found. It is really unacceptable. Got it, Master. Then he came to Ethan, who was leaning against a stone pillar and daydreaming. Adrian, try standing in front of the mirror. Det. Ethan patted his butt and stood up, walking directly to the mirror of East. Anyway, he couldn't get the Philosopher's Stone. Only those who wanted it but didn't use it could get it. As for Ethan, if he got the Philosopher's Stone, he would definitely use it, turning stone into gold. There will definitely be achievement rewards for reaching a certain level of gold galleons. The next time will probably be 10,000 gold galleons. Although he made a lot of money during this period, he spent it quickly. Nagini spent 3,500 gold galleons, which was the lowest price Dennis and his team had pushed down. If they wanted to buy it for free, they would have to stop working there in the future. Ethan paid 1,500 galleons, and Bruno's magic potion alchemy shop paid 2,000 galleons. There is also the consumption of energy blocks on weekdays. These are all precious magical animal materials, which also cost a lot. He still needs more than 1,000 gold galleons to become a millionaire. Of course, if he had a unicorn horn, it would definitely be enough, but this kind of material that is hard to come by, Ethan didn't want to sell it. The white mist covered the mirror, and then Ethan's deep desire slowly emerged. What did you see? Quirrell's voice sounded from behind Ethan. I became the Minister of Magic. Ethan's tone contained a hint of excitement, and he said it in a serious manner. Am I going to tell you about the legs and children on the screen? Just now, Ethan seemed to be in a daze, but in fact, he was also paying attention to Quirrell's every move. When he looked at the mirror of East, Ethan couldn't see his desire at all. Similarly, Quirrell couldn't see what Ethan saw. I just don't know how the old BD hiding in the dark in the abandoned classroom that day saw it. If he couldn't see it, he couldn't hide in the dark to observe. Really? Quirrell's tone was full of doubt. The mirror of East can make people see the most urgent and strongest desires in their hearts. It doesn't matter who sits in the position of Minister of Magic. It's fudge who sits, why can't I, Ethan, do it? Ethan sneered, as if all his ambitions were aroused. Seeing this, Quirrell did not ask any more questions. How could a little wizard who didn't know what the Philosopher's Stone was possibly obtain the Philosopher's Stone? Master, you really think too much. The next moment, Quirrell felt a piercing pain coming over him, and he lowered his head to take charge of the stone pillar beside him. Ethan on the side was thinking, why hasn't Harry come yet? Damn, even a pig would know it if he was reminded to this extent. Chapter 77. Professor Quirrell, it's you got information about the 3-headed dog from Hagrid, and you want to seize the Philosopher's Stone. Ethan, why are you here? You want to seize the Philosopher's Stone too? When Harry saw Ethan, he couldn't hold it anymore and took 2 steps back involuntarily. Yes, Ethan also knew the information about the Philosopher's Stone. Who in this world can refuse to turn stones into gold and live forever? But Ethan should be on his side, and he told me all this. If he wants to seize the Philosopher's Stone, why did he tell me so much? Why? Thinking about the hardships along the way, I was tortured by the Devil Tang and finally came down, and experienced the double blow of the flying key and the wizard chess, and drank the potion at the risk of death, and then I got here, but all this is meaningless. Ethan is here, how can I beat him? I was brought here by Quirrell, you ask him. Ethan was a little helpless. Am I more f***ing scary than Quirrell? You were not afraid of Quirrell just now, but when you saw me, you actually backed away? And this Harry is so miserable. He dragged one leg. I don't know if it was broken or sprained. What on earth did he go through just now? Idiot, go and tie that boy in front of the mirror. He can find it. 820 go. A hoarse and crazy voice rushed to the back of Quirrell's head, instantly attracting the attention of Ethan and Harry. This Voldemort is not pretending. Potter, come here. Tell me what you saw. Harry had no choice but to do as he was told. Ethan was with Quirrell, so he had no chance to resist. He could only delay time, look in the mirror first, and then make up a lie to deceive them. When Dumbledore came back, he would win. Standing in front of the mirror, this time Harry did not see his parents as before, but a pale, frightened child. That was me. And what was even more weird was that the person in the mirror actually took out a red irregular gem from his pocket, smiled at him and blinked, and then put the gem back into his pocket. And Harry really felt that something heavy had entered his pocket. If nothing unexpected happened, it was the stone in the mirror, the Philosopher's Stone. He actually got the Philosopher's Stone like this? But Harry didn't want the Philosopher's Stone now. He had no confidence in keeping it. How is it? What did you see? Quirrell was a little impatient. Success or failure depended on this move. If Harry Potter also failed, it would be really troublesome. I saw me shaking hands with Dumbledore and for Gryffindor won the House Cup. Harry gathered up his courage and began his fabrication. He couldn't let Quirrell know that he had obtained the Philosopher's Stone, and he had to protect it well. He's lying. He's lying. Voldemort's voice sounded again from the back of Quirrell's head. Adrian, kill this boy, quickly. Just a moment ago, he had sensed the fluctuation of magic power. There was no doubt that Harry must have obtained something, and only the Philosopher's Stone could appear here. And as long as Ethan killed Harry, he would have no room to turn back, and could only follow him wholeheartedly. No matter Dumbledore or the Ministry of Magic, they would not let go of the person who killed the savior boy. Quickly show up. Ethan swung the wand in his hand, and a white light instantly hit Quirrell's body who was not prepared. The next moment, Quirrell's face began to swell and kept changing, and even the metal right arm fell off the ground. Sure enough, this guy is not Quirrell. The apparition spell is effective for both Animagus and Polyjuice Potion, and can reveal the original posture of an object. When the changes on Quirrell's body were over, Ethan realized that this was a middle-aged man in his 40s, about 1.8 meters tall, a little thin, and his hair was also bald due to Voldemort's possession. Adrian, you dare to attack me? The face on the back of the strange wizard's head stared at Ethan with a pair of scarlet pupils. He never thought that Ethan would turn against him here. God, you know who? Harry hadn't recovered from the doubts about Ethan's attack on Quirrell, and suddenly saw the scene, and was a little scared and at a loss. And this person is not Professor Quirrell, who is he? Why is the mysterious man on someone else's head again, and whether Ethan and the mysterious man have a conflict, Harry's mind feels that he can't turn around for a moment. Adrian, you are a smart child, I will give you another chance, kill the boy who lived, or die. The strange wizard's face changed as he spoke, and became the back of his head just now. Voldemort completely took over this body. He was willing to give Ethan a chance, for Ethan's talent. Of course, I know how to choose. Ethan smiled at Voldemort, then walked to Harry's side, helped him up, and put it into Harry's pocket. An irregular but crystal clear blood-red gem appeared in Ethan's hand. This is the Philosopher's Stone, which is really beautiful. And in the incredible eyes of Harry and Voldemort, he put it directly into his pocket. Ethan glanced at the panel, and there was a prompt for the achievement to be completed. It really is. I was just thinking about this. Adrian. Voldemort had never been so angry before. He was fooled by a little wizard who was only 1 year old. Ethan had never thought of following him. Maybe he did it to confuse him before, and his goal was also the Philosopher's Stone. Damn it. Avada Kedavra. Voldemort, in a rage, mercilessly threw a dark green light at Ethan. Harry, come here. Harry beside him was terrified. What was Ethan going to do? Soon, he knew, because he became a shield. Ethan, I trusted you wrongly. Alas. Am I okay? Harry watched the green light hit his body and then bounced away. And this mysterious man was dodging in a panic. Ethan laughed at this scene. Voldemort could not hurt Harry who was protected by Harry's mother's magic. At least it was like this before Harry became an adult or Voldemort used Harry's blood to revive. Ethan was sure of this. But it is not certain whether Harry can rebound or not. Or he did rebound the killing curse when he was a baby and killed Voldemort himself, but he did not have such convenient performance later. Now it seems that this Harry can really rebound Voldemort's magic. Of course, the premise is that Voldemort himself releases it, rather than Voldemort hanging up in the background and letting the people in front act as thugs. Now I can completely rely on Harry as a weapon to deal with Voldemort, and hide my strength, and then I can hit him unexpectedly. Harry, it's up to you next. As he said, Ethan controlled Harry to crash into Voldemort. Bang. With a muffled sound, Harry crashed into the stone steps, and Voldemort successfully dodged. What is going on? Voldemort roared in disbelief. If he hadn't reacted in time, he would have been killed by his own killing curse again. But Ethan did not give him an answer, but threw another Harry at him. Harry, who had not recovered yet, crashed straight into the stone pillar. Crucify. Shatter to pieces. Soul out of the body. Voldemort threw several spells at Ethan in succession, but Ethan was not afraid. Harry was the sharpest spear and the hardest shield against Voldemort. No matter what magic you use, I can block it with Harry. For a moment, Voldemort, who had dominated the British wizarding world for decades, was beaten and fled, and had no way to deal with 2 first-year wizards. All the spells were ineffective, and he couldn't even hit Harry, so what was the point of this? If he was resurrected, he would have had several ways to deal with it in his prime. But now, there was only a wisp of soul left, and even the movement was consuming vitality. How much strength could he expect to exert? He didn't dare to use large-scale spells, and the Philosopher's Stone was on Ethan. If the Philosopher's Stone was broken, the resurrection would be in vain, and it was the only one in the wizarding world. Bang. Tap bang. Put me down. Bang. Bang. In just one sentence, Harry was hit several times. If Ethan hadn't used magic to pull him every time he was hit, Harry would have died long ago. But even so, Harry's body was covered with bruises. Ethan ignored Harry's words. As a weapon, he must have the instinct of a weapon, and it's not me who is hurt. Cough. After Voldemort dodged Harry again, he staggered and almost fell down. This body is really not his own. It consumes vitality every moment, especially during strenuous exercise. The body is weakening at a speed visible to the naked eye. There are so many obstacles. Before Voldemort could stand firmly, Ethan tripped him with an obstacle spell. With a bang, Voldemort fell flat on his face. But it doesn't matter, he has no nose. Hurry, Harry, if you don't want to keep hitting him, grab him quickly. Harry, who was originally dizzy and aching all over, immediately woke up and hugged Voldemort's waist and refused to let go. He really couldn't bump into him anymore. Just now, he saw his parents waving at him in a trance. Voldemort's shrill screams echoed in the empty room. Thick white smoke came out of his body, and his skin was turning black and grey. At the same time, the scar on Harry's head was getting more and more painful, but even so, he was still unwilling to let go. Voldemort tried to throw Harry off several times, but Harry held him tightly. Until he completely turned into gravel powder and dissipated, leaving only a ball of black mist rolling in place. The fire suddenly appeared, and the phoenix appeared in front of everyone with Dumbledore. Chapter 78. Tom. Dumbledore stared at the black mist in front of him after he appeared. This was his first official contact with Voldemort after his death. I will come back, I will come back. One day, whether it is you, Adrian or Potter, I will kill you all. The black mist hovered in the sky, and the scarlet eyes stared at the three people below. Ethan pointed at the black smoke that had begun to escape and asked Dumbledore. Headmaster, don't you stop it. Although Voldemort could not die because of the Horcrux, even the fiend fire that could burn the soul would not work on him, because he was protected by the dark magic of the Horcrux. The Horcrux was its soul fragment. The Horcrux was indestructible, and his incomplete soul was always protected. But being unable to kill did not mean that there were no other ways to deal with it, such as sealing. Imprisoning Voldemort in a small area and setting up multiple magics to prevent him from coming out, Ethan did not believe that Dumbledore would not do it. Do you think I can stop it? Dumbledore turned his head and looked at the little guy who accidentally joined the game. I think it's possible. You are the greatest wizard of this century. Ethan said with certainty. Ethan was very confused by Dumbledore's actions in the original book. He had calculated so much, but Voldemort was completely defeated. He could still manipulate Voldemort even after his death. However, Dumbledore was unwilling to abandon his bottom line and personally take the field. The Ministry of Magic was so afraid of Voldemort that they didn't even dare to tell anyone about his resurrection. However, they targeted Dumbledore who could suppress Voldemort. Think about it, Dumbledore directly defeated the Ministry of Magic and forcibly recruited him, used Harry as a Horcrux detector, killed the Death Eaters one by one, and uprooted the pure blood who joined the Death Eaters, and treated the British wizarding world with an attitude of breaking down and building up. In the 27th battle of the Ministry of Magic, Dumbledore, who was more than 100 years old, suppressed the peak Voldemort after his resurrection. In this case, there was no soil for Voldemort to survive. Either choose to die or escape. That's because you are still young. You will be better than me in the future. Even if I can be better than you, it will be the next century. Maybe you can grow faster. Principal, you think too highly of me. Listening to the conversation between the two, Harry raised his hand with difficulty, trying to attract the attention of the two. I am not dead yet, can I save him? There is no part of his body that doesn't hurt now, especially his head. When the fake Quirrell turned into ashes, he felt that it was about to split. Bang! Harry's arm, which he raised with great difficulty, fell to the ground, and the sound it made attracted the attention of the two. I will send Harry to the infirmary first. We will meet there later. Tell me about the situation inside. Dumbledore looked at Harry worriedly. He didn't notice it just now, but now he saw that this child was really miserable. Principal, this is the Philosopher's Stone. As he said, Ethan took it out of his trouser pocket. The achievement has been completed. Although Ethan wants to take the Philosopher's Stone for himself, he can't snatch it from Dumbledore's mouth now. The magic power in this Philosopher's Stone has been used up. It has lost its greatest function. I leave it to you. Dumbledore smiled, and then a flash of fire flashed and Harry disappeared in front of Ethan. The magic power has been used up? In other words, even if Voldemort took it away, it would be a waste. But for wizards who are good at alchemy, even if the magic power of the Philosopher's Stone is used up, it is still a rare treasure. Anyone who studies this highest masterpiece of alchemy is a treasure. I didn't expect Dumbledore to be so generous. After putting the Philosopher's Stone away, Ethan looked at the panel. He just completed an achievement. Dream of eternity, yearning for the miracle of turning stone into gold. Wealth is no longer a misty cloud. Dreams instantly become real and beautiful. The dream of immortality. Time is no longer a ruthless blade. Youth is eternal and never fades. Achievement goal. Get the Philosopher's Stone. 1/1. Achievement reward. Alchemy. Construct alchemy. A large amount of complicated information flowed into Ethan's mind. The construct is made of metal or wood, and alchemy is used to create a magic structure vein, and finally a construct that can obey orders is made. It can be combat type or home type, but it must have a core to make the construct move. The magic contained in this core and the material strength of the construct determine its final output efficiency. It is a very complex and precise thing. As for the strength, Ethan has not experimented yet and does not know. Overall, this reward is still very good. But when Ethan was about to leave, he was instantly unhappy. When Dumbledore left, he didn't know to take him with him. He and Harry could use the Phoenix apparition, but Ethan could only return to the original place. Ethan, who left the 4th floor, went to the auditorium first. If nothing unexpected happened, Cassandra was still waiting there. The Frey brothers who went to Harry to talk about Quirrell's various problems were borrowed by Ethan. Why are you alone? Where is Professor Lowe? Seeing that only Ethan returned, Cassandra had already guessed. The curse of the Defense Against the Dark Arts class was still in effect, and Professor Quirrell did not survive this year. Professor Quirrell is fine, but I don't know where he is. The one just now was a fake polyjuice potion. Quirrell must not be dead. The dead cannot make the polyjuice potion effective, and the fake Quirrell needs a lot of body tissue from Quirrell. After all, the polyjuice potion only lasts for an hour. As long as he is still in Hogwarts, he will drink polyjuice potion continuously. Generally, hair is added to polyjuice potion, but Quirrell has been bald for a long time, so what did he add to polyjuice potion? Then did you solve the fake Quirrell? No, it was Harry who solved it. I just provided some help. Ethan told the truth. He did die at Harry's hand. Seeing Cassandra's strong desire for knowledge, but not knowing how to start, Ethan simply said it directly. Forget it, I've made a deal with you. Voldemort is in Quirrell's body. He will be in the fake quirrell next semester. He is hidden on the 4th floor. In the end, Harry held Voldemort and burned him to ashes. It's useless to hide this thing. Pressure can urge her to improve her strength as soon as possible. Dumbledore actually let you participate in such a dangerous thing, and let Voldemort stay in Hogwarts for a year. No, I'm going to tell my father and ask him to find Dumbledore. He's gone too far. Cassandra ran to the owl house. She wanted to write a letter to her father. Not only should Dumbledore, the culprit who put all the teachers and students in danger, be sent to Azkaban, but he should also be punished to teach him a lesson. When Ethan asked her 2 followers to say these words to Harry, he told her that this was a deal with Dumbledore. Cassandra didn't take it seriously. A disabled professor, a waste Gryffindor, but she never expected that this was just an appearance, and there was a Voldemort hidden inside. Wait, I was taken there by that fake quirrell, and it has nothing to do with Dumbledore. Ethan grabbed Cassandra's hand and pulled her back. Not to mention that there was a useless Minister Fudge, the Ministry of Magic would never admit that Voldemort was back, and there was no benefit in making trouble with Dumbledore for no reason. And Dumbledore's reward was also sufficient. What guided Harry was the opportunity to study with Nicholas Flamel, and this Philosopher's Stone with exhausted magic power should be the reward for Ethan being involved. After comforting Cassandra for a while, Ethan went to the school hospital room. Harry was lying on the bed, still in a coma. And Dumbledore was being blamed by Mrs. Frey, but he still lowered his head and was scolded, not daring to refute. Harry's injury was unusual. Looking at the scary blue and purple skin and the head that looked a bit like a pig's head, this was just the most basic external injury, and he would be fine after drinking 2 bottles of magic potion. What really made him unconscious was the scar on his forehead, which had an impact on Harry's spirit. And Dumbledore wanted to confirm that Harry's scar and what kind of relationship did they have with Voldemort? She could only tell her the news that Voldemort appeared in Hogwarts and told her own guess. As a doctor, the last thing she wanted was for something dangerous to happen in the school, and Dumbledore, the old guy, actually dared to let Voldemort in. Don't say Dumbledore didn't know. The two had known each other for so long, but she didn't know about Dumbledore, the old cunning guy. Sorry, Poppy, Ethan and I have something to talk about. Harry will be left to you. Saying that, Dumbledore pulled Ethan out of the school infirmary without waiting for Madame Pomfrey's consent. Headmaster, are you using me as a shield? You can't say that. We do have something to say, don't we? Dumbledore was also a little embarrassed that he was discovered. As early as the moment Harry fainted, he knew that he would have to be scolded, so he specially asked Ethan to come to the school infirmary, otherwise he would have asked Ethan to go directly to the headmaster's office. In the headmaster's office, Ethan told him everything from the time Voldemort took him away to the time Dumbledore appeared. Dumbledore also listened quietly. The headmaster of Hogwarts has an unimaginable control over the school, because this school is alive. The moment Quirrell died just now, he knew that there was no wizard in the school. It can be said that as long as a murder occurred, he would know it in the first time. But who was killed, that's not known, so he rushed there with the phoenix in the first time, but he didn't know what happened inside. After all, ghosts, portraits, 723 armor, which can be used as cameras, can't be placed anywhere, and any one of them will attract Voldemort's attention. In addition to knowing how Harry got injured and how Ethan defeated Voldemort, there is another piece of news. Quirrell is still alive. Dumbledore fell into deep thought. If he is still alive, he doesn't know if he can be saved. He also doesn't know if this Quirrell is fake. Who made Quirrell mentally abnormal after being possessed by Voldemort? It is not impossible that his personality will change again after being injured. And where did Voldemort get so many big enemies to fool him? Taking a mouthful of polyjuice potion every hour also consumes a lot of money. What do you think of Tom just now? Dumbledore wanted to know how Ethan thought of Voldemort. After all, Voldemort has always wanted to win over Ethan, although he has not succeeded. He has power but no brains. He also knows that the Philosopher's Stone is a trap. You, the principal, have noticed him, but he still goes inside. He has been following your pace and has no ideas of his own. If he changes his mindset, since you let him into Hogwarts and made him a professor of defense against the dark arts, he could just create a magic trap and kidnap a grade of young wizards to force you to hand over the Philosopher's Stone. After getting the Philosopher's Stone, he can just leave with the key. You, the principal, can't do anything about it. Ethan directly expressed his thoughts. There are more than 70 wizards in a grade, including Harry. There are not many wizards who can do magic in the first few days of school. Using the defense against the dark arts practice as an excuse, he took people to the place he prepared in advance, trapped everyone, and put them in the fiend fire to threaten Dumbledore. If Dumbledore dares to make any small move, he will activate the fiend fire and blow up the building. The magic is ineffective against Harry, and will the stones falling from the building be effective? This is why it is too late to cast the final spell. The final spell needs magic to eliminate the magic, and it is not successful once it is thrown out. This process takes time, and it takes 1 or 2 seconds for the fiend fire to burn a small wizard to death. Dumbledore will definitely compromise. After listening to Ethan's words, Dumbledore's forehead was already sweating. Fortunately, Ethan did not get involved with Voldemort, and Voldemort was not very smart. Otherwise, once this plan was implemented, I really had no choice but to hand over this empty shell of the Philosopher's Stone to him. Chapter 79. After the exams, there is still 1 week before the summer vacation begins. There are no homework and no classes this week. It is for the students to say goodbye, especially for the 7th graders. It is not certain whether they will see each other again in the future. The Quidditch finals were also held this week, and Slytherin won in the end. The members of the Ravenclaw Quidditch team did not care about it. Anyway, they have not won the Quidditch championship for many years. Now it is just 1 more year. Who let Ravenclaw Academy have the least number of Quidditch fans? As a result, in order to gather the personnel, girls played for half of the day. You can't expect the girls of Ravenclaw to fight with the strong men from the other 3 academies for the ball. Soon, the day of announcing the results arrived, and most of the students of Hogwarts crowded at the front of the hall. There were 7 huge parchment notices, 1 for each grade, and all the students' results were recorded on them. The original book says that Hermione is the first in the first grade, so there must be a ranking list, otherwise I don't know how other students are ranked. At least Slytherin will never tell Gryffindor their grades. After the summer vacation begins, the school owl will send the grades to your home, which is what makes countless little profiteers really worried. Ethan took Cassandra and Hermione and didn't squeeze into the crowd. Anyway, there is plenty of time, and the grades will not change if they look at it early or late. I got AP in Transfiguration, which is terrible. Same, but my subject is potions. I have all of yours, not only Transfiguration potions also P. Several Hufflepuff badgers squeezed out of the crowd with hammerheads dejected. Why is this happening? Molly will kill me. It doesn't matter, I also failed some. A voice of grief came from the crowd. Ethan recognized it was Ronald. Only Harry could comfort him. This instantly attracted Ethan's attention. What Ronald had taken the exam, especially his charms score, Ethan was quite interested. At this moment, there were not many people, so Ethan walked over with his girlfriend. Ronald, potions, D herbalism, P charms, T transfiguration, A defense against the dark arts, A history of magic, A flying, A astronomy, P no wonder Ronald was like this. There were 8 courses in total, 4 failed, 4 barely passed, and charms was not the worst one, I monster. But who graded the defense against the dark arts? Fake Quirrell sent it in right after the exam, so the results were not released in time. Harry was much better than Ronald, and he was indeed a talented player. Potions, A herbalism, A charms, E transfiguration, A defense against the dark arts, E history of magic, A flying, astronomy, P Ronald and Harry was discharged from the hospital. Harry had nothing to say. He was in a coma for 3 days before he woke up. Ronald was not much better. He was found after lying in the wizard chess level for a day and a night. In the dark and damp underground space, Ronald, who broke his leg, cried out to the sky and the earth but got no response. Ethan could imagine his mental state at that time. Anyway, when he was carried out, he was already unconscious and almost died. The main reason was that Harry was in a coma. No one said where Ronald went, and no one cared about him. Dumbledore took Harry back to the infirmary and left the school after chatting with Ethan. After all, the letter from the Ministry of Magic that day was real. He just delayed and didn't go in time, giving Voldemort the illusion that he had left school and went to the Ministry of Magic. After dealing with Voldemort's affairs, he had to go to the Ministry of Magic again. No matter if there was anything, Ronald was forgotten. It was Neville who found that Ronald didn't come back all night, so he went to Professor McGonagall. It can be said that Neville saved Ronald's life. After seeing their grades, Ethan looked directly at the top of the list. He was so confident. As expected, Ethan's name was at the top, followed by Cassandra and Hermione. Except for Hermione, Ethan and Cassandra all got O in all subjects. There was a gap between level and level 0. Putting himself at the top meant that he was better in the professors' minds. But these professors probably didn't know that Ethan's astronomy answer was based on Cassandra's and Hermione's grades. Potions, O herbology, O charms, O transfiguration, 0 defense against the dark arts, E history of magic, 0 flying, A astronomy, 0 she just passed the flying class. She didn't have a good flying talent and didn't like Quidditch. Every flying class gave her a headache. The results of the defense against the dark arts class were unexpected, but Ethan didn't know the grading criteria. If he followed Quirrell's, all the practical exercises would be 0. Tisk. After reading the results, Cassandra gave Hermione a provocative look. She knew that Hermione had feelings for Ethan, which made Cassandra very unhappy, so she would target her from time to time. In addition, the two were in the same grade, which made Cassandra want to completely suppress Hermione. Hermione, who noticed Cassandra's eyes, instantly exploded. Cassandra, don't be complacent. There will be no flying class next year. I will catch up with defense against the dark arts. Really? Just like there is a gap between O and 0, Ethan and I have the same grades, but I am not as good as him. Even if you get it, you are still not as good as me. Hermione stamped her feet anxiously, pouting her mouth high. Only the truth hurts the most. Both of them got O in charms, but Cassandra beat her. She was right. Even if I also got all O, I would still be ranked behind her. In the evening, all the students of Hogwarts gathered here. Today is the day to announce the ownership of the House Cup. The hall was decorated with blue and bronze representing Ravenclaw. On the wall behind the guest of honor, there was a huge banner with a Ravenclaw eagle. At the long table belonging to Ravenclaw, all the people were very excited at the moment. Especially the 7th year graduates. Ethan saw several seniors hugging each other and crying. 7 years. Do you know how these 7 years have passed? Slytherin has won the House Cup for 6 consecutive years, while Ravenclaw's House Cup only exists in legends. Now, before graduation, they finally won it. In fact, the reason why Ravenclaw was able to win the House Cup this year was mainly because Ethan fought well, injuring the enemy 250 and himself 50. Although Snape deducted points crazily later, Ravenclaw was caught the least, so there was no reason to deduct points without letting you find excuses. In the original book, Slytherin was the first on the surface, and then Dumbledore gave Gryffindor a crazy amount of points, which led to the change of the House Cup. But now, unless Dumbledore loses his face and gives Harry and Ronald 150 points each, Gryffindor will not be able to win the championship. Chapter 80. The day after the carnival, Hogwarts ushered in the summer vacation. Today, the little wizards will go to the platform, take the Hogwarts Express back to King's Cross Station, and then return to their respective homes. At the same time, Ethan also completed 2 achievements yesterday. After winning the House Cup yesterday, he was dragged to party. After the banquet, he celebrated again in the Ravenclaw common room. In particular, the 7th year senior who was about to graduate directly put out the drink spot in Hogsmeade. Ethan couldn't refuse that enthusiastic look. If it weren't for the wrong occasion, it would probably happen that something good would be seen, so that there was no chance to take a closer look yesterday. Until now, I have the opportunity to check it out. This achievement is still a direction that Ethan has never thought of, but in this case, the House Cup must be fought for. Let's see if there is any way to win the House Cup next school year. Since Harry entered school, Dumbledore has been partial to him. And Snape is the same. When adding points, he is ruthless to his own house, and other houses are stingy. 2 mountains are blocking the way. Outstanding student. Hogwarts first year. Every question is an opportunity to challenge, and every answer is a display of wisdom. Every page of a book is a ladder for growth, and every line of text is a message of dreams. The glory of the future is waiting ahead, and a brilliant life is about to begin. Achievement goal, first in the grade. In the final summary, 1/1, achievement reward, Magic Power Improvement College Cup. Ravenclaw. 1991-1992 Glory, like a bright star, shines in the dark and illuminates the way forward. It is the crystallization of sweat and tears, and the testimony of struggle and persistence. Achievement goal, help the college win the College Cup, and personally get 50 points of the college score. 1/1, achievement reward, choose a magic. The former is simple 553 rough, and magic power is improved, which is always the best choice for wizards. The moment Ethan extracted the reward, it was like drinking a bottle of ice cola in the dog days of summer. A cool breeze rushed from the soles of his feet to his forehead. In one word, it was refreshing. More powerful magic can support you to release more powerful spells, even simple spells can exert stronger power. Why is the Obscurus so powerful? It has extremely strong destructive power without any magic, and is simply invincible in front of ordinary wizards. Isn't it because of its strong magic? And the Obscurus is no different from a child who has not grown up in front of Dumbledore and Grindelwald. It can be crushed to death at will. Isn't it because the magic power of the two is overwhelmingly stronger than the Obscurus? The second one, this must be chosen carefully. Ancient magic is not allowed, and potions and alchemy are also not allowed. But even so, there are still several spells that Ethan is interested in, but he still doesn't know it now. First of all, the God of Fire leads the way. The power is undoubtedly strong. The super strong burst directly kills all the corpses in the field, even those in the water. Cassandra was not found at home, Dumbledore knew it, but Ethan had no reason to ask him to teach him. Nocturne Alley did not have such high-end magic. Other pure-blood families might have it, but Ethan could not ask them one by one, and there was no way to obtain it in a short period of time. The Patroness Charm, this spell is not rare, it is in the Hogwarts library, but Ethan probably can't learn it. The talent requirement is secondary, the main thing is to have positive and happy memories. If Ethan has opened the Impart, he would be very happy, but now he hasn't opened it, so he can't be happy. Its function, in the original book, is only to deal with Dementors, and it cannot be used to record bats. Of course, Ethan does not need to deal with these two. First of all, animals are friendly. Even if they don't get close to him, they won't have any hostility. Secondly, the fiendish fire charm can burn them. But the advanced use of the Patroness Charm can transmit information and materialize the enemy, but the Patroness Charm itself is extremely difficult to learn, let alone reach a very high level. Animagus, this is a separate magic listed in Transfiguration. It has high requirements for transfiguration and a series of tedious steps. It is risky to learn. If Ethan learns this directly, he should not need other conditions to get it right in one step, and he will not avoid risks. Rain and fog are misty, Dumbledore's magic and fantastic beasts, which can cover the whole of London in fog, blocking others peeping and tracking, and can also form a three-dimensional landscape picture later. Maybe there are more uses, a multi-purpose spell. In Hogwarts, Ethan did not find any records of this magic. After thinking about it, Ethan still chose Vulcan opening the way, who made Ethan have a phobia of insufficient firepower. Vulcan opening the way is different from Fiery Flame and Fire Escape Bodyguard. It is about bursting. It uses magic power to completely burst the flame in an instant. There will not be a process of flame growing from small to large. The larger the magic power, the larger the flame. The latter two have high temperature and strong characteristics, but they will be slower when starting. If he could integrate the fire god's path into the fierce fire, as long as he had enough magic power, Ethan could turn the entire Hogwarts into a sea of a fire in a breath. After making a good choice, Ethan began to pack up. After having breakfast in the hall with his roommate, Ethan went directly to the Forbidden Forest. Yesterday, Hagrid sent an owl to ask him to visit him before leaving. Ethan, you're here. Hagrid stood in front of his cabin and greeted Ethan enthusiastically. He still lives in the Forbidden Forest most of the time, accompanying Norbert, and only comes here when there is something. Hagrid, what are you doing? Ethan noticed the package in Hagrid's hand. It looked quite small under his 3-meter-tall body, but compared to Ethan's 1.7-meter-tall height, it was almost as tall as a person. This is a gift for you. You can't come to the Forbidden Forest this holiday. I picked them up in the Forbidden Forest these past few months. They are not worth much. Hagrid handed the package to Ethan. CHCD, if Hagrid became friends with Harry because of his father and the title of Savior, Ethan became friends purely because of personal relationships. One brings only trouble to himself, and the other can have common topics and help himself. Let's not talk about the unreasonable animal affinity. It's good that during this period of time, Aragog has recovered a lot of conditions. Although his lifespan has not been extended, his eyes can see, which makes Hagrid very happy. In fact, Ethan mainly wants the venom of the Acromanthus, so he brings some energy cubes as gifts every week when he goes to the Forbidden Forest. In return, the Acromanthus will give Ethan several pints of venom every time. Aragog's lifespan has come to an end. Ethan took out the energy cube, which can't do anything, but it can make his mental and physical state better. And Norbert also, thanks to Ethan's help, there is no Ethan died a long time ago. Later, he gave Norbert a powdery thing called Fire Dragon Tonic, which he added to chicken blood brandy and fed to Norbert. After eating this, Norbert began to slowly become stronger. Needless to say, this is also a precious thing. Later, it solved the problem of Malfoy's betrayal and saved himself from Azkaban. It was because of gratitude that Hagrid gave these things. I will accept it. When Norbert finishes the tonic, write to me and I will send it to you. Ethan was not polite. He knew Hagrid's rich personality. If you refuse to accept it, he will be unhappy. Ethan gave him the Fire Dragon Energy Cube. At that time, he said it was the Fire Dragon Tonic, and he didn't mention the money. The main reason was that Hagrid was too generous, and he couldn't be stingy. A lot of unicorn hair was given directly for Christmas. After saving Norbert, he was given a unicorn horn directly. It was so big that it was rubbed into powder and sold for nearly 25,000 gold galleons. Okay, I got it. You go back first. The car will leave soon. Alas, I came here empty-handed. Now, I am going back with a big bag on my back. The main reason is that it is full of magical materials, and the types are too diverse. The shrinking spell is not very effective, so I can only carry it on my back. As for what is inside, it will not be too late to check it after returning. Anyway, it will not run away. The things Hagrid sold are not bad. Ethan, do you want to come to my house during the summer vacation? My house is very big. After putting the package into the box with the traceless expansion spell, Ethan met Fred, George, and Cedric at the gate of Hogwarts. I seem to have heard this somewhere. Right to contact during the summer vacation. I don't know if I have time. Dumbledore, this old BD, has not given me a definite message on when to go to see any Flamel even though it is vacation time. But he should not default on his debt. Then write to me when the time comes. To be honest, you should come to a wizard family to experience it. It will definitely surprise you. And Cedric's house is nearby. When you are tired, you can stay at whoever's house you want. Without a pretty senior sister, I don't want to stay at any of your houses. Ethan spread his hands and looked at the few people with disgust. My sister is cute, but she worships Harry very much. I guess she won't like you. George raised his eyebrows at Ethan. He thought his sister was definitely cuter than all the witches in Hogwarts. When I go back this summer, I must tell my sister to stay away from Ethan. He is not a good person. He likes to flirt with seniors and juniors, and he is not responsible. He doesn't want his little sister, who is loved by the whole family, to cry every time he goes home. That's really a pity. Ethan doesn't care. He looks like an old lady in the movie, but he is described as a beautiful woman in the book. But Ethan doesn't like girls, and Ginny worships Harry, and is quite obsessed with him. It's better not to touch other people's little fans. Cedric interrupted, you forgot, the girl from Lovegood's family is not bad, but her personality is a little weird. Fred glanced at Ethan, she's crazy, I'm afraid you can't control her. Is there anything I can't control? Ethan gave a few people a contemptuous look. Although the crazy girl Luna's personality is a little weird, Ethan still admires her. Chapter 81. When they arrived at the place where the Thestrals were to be ridden, Ethan separated from Fred and the others. Last time, since it was the first time for the first grade to ride in a Thestral carriage, they needed the guidance of the prefect, but now no one cared about that, and the Thestrals set off at the appointed time. Ethan found Cassandra's carriage directly, and told them to go to the carriage first yesterday, so as to avoid not being able to find a suitable empty carriage in the end. I have taken Onyxia in, and now I am giving it to you. Cassandra handed the suitcase in her hand to Ethan. Ethan went to the Forbidden Forest early in the morning, so Onyxia could only be given to them. Now that she is nearly 3 weeks old, her body length is already 1.5 meters, and her growth rate is quite fast. According to this situation, Onyxia will definitely exceed the average body length of the Hebrides Black Dragon by 30 feet. Ethan, what is your home phone number? Can I call you to play during the summer vacation? Both of them are from Muggle families, which gives Cassandra an advantage that they can contact more conveniently and quickly. Ethan immediately reported a series of numbers. I also wrote it down. Although my family is also a wizard family, we have Muggle items, and naturally we have a phone. If it weren't for the fact that Hogwarts cannot use electrical appliances, I would have bought a mobile phone. Chuzhong also took out a piece of parchment and wrote it down with a feather pen. According to her, in China, wizards are not called wizards, but Taoist priests, and they have quite a lot of contact with Muggles, and they know all the Muggle technology. Phone, what is this? Only Cassandra looked confused. In the end, Ethan and Chuzhong explained it to her, and told her that it might be a bit difficult to install a phone with his family's conditions. After all, this thing needs to be connected to a telephone line. It's impossible to connect a phone in Gang's manner. They directly suggested that she buy a mobile phone, which can be used in various cities and towns, but it needs to be charged. Cassandra frowned when she heard it, feeling that it was too troublesome and not as convenient as an owl. While they were chatting, the night Thestral carriage also arrived at the station, and Ethan took Cassandra and the other girls to find an empty carriage. Not long after the train started, Penelope, who had finished patrolling, came over and sat down between Mijong and Hermione. The sofa in this compartment is quite large, and it is completely no problem to sit 3 people in a row, but most of them are defaulted to 2 seats. You're not going to patrol and manage discipline. Ethan looked at Penelope with some surprise. She had been sitting in the prefect's box after patrolling the last few times. No, I've made an agreement with Doris Crest, the 6th year female prefect of Ravenclaw. She will be in the 7th year after school starts again. She has a very good relationship with Penelope. By the way, what were you talking about just now? Do you want your sister to take you out to play during the summer vacation? Penelope leaned on the sofa with one hand on a girl, and showed Ethan a provocative look. Hermione and the Chu family are both in London. They have agreed to go shopping during the summer vacation. Are you interested? Ethan glanced at Penelope and was unmoved. You just hugged her shoulders. What else can you do? I want to, too. But my family is in Plymouth, Devonshire. Every time I come to London, I have to take a train, and I have to come early for school. Penelope spread her hands and said helplessly. Every holiday and the start of school are troublesome. I have to rush to buy a train ticket after getting off the Hogwarts Express. I don't know if there is still a train to Plymouth today. This is the bad thing about the school. No matter where your home is, you will get off at King's Cross Station. Cassandra looked at Penelope with some surprise. She didn't expect that the two of them lived not far away. My home is also in Devon, but it's in Exeter. You can come to my house as a guest. Although Cassandra is arrogant, she is not stupid. She is a little unhappy with Penelope, the senior who also covets Ethan, but she needs teammates. It's only been a year, and look at how many girls Ethan has provoked. If things continue like this, what will happen to Hogwarts in 7 years? Let's not talk about the rest for now, let Penelope squeeze out her big front teeth. Haha, I'll go when I have time. Penelope laughed awkwardly twice. Going to the residence of a pureblood family would be a pain for herself, and she is a pureblood born in Slytherin. Even though Penelope was in Ravenclaw, she knew that Cassandra's family was quite powerful, and her father was a high-ranking official in the Ministry of Magic. In such a family, discrimination against half-bloods or muggles is quite common. Penelope, how are your O.W.L.S. exam results? Ethan also saw her embarrassment. Not everyone can face purebloods without pressure like him. I got 10 certificates, which is a pretty good result. This year, only Percy Weasley from Gryffindor was better than her, getting 12 certificates, and the rest were not as good as her. It's not that Penelope can't get it, but it's meaningless. There are 7 compulsory courses and 5 elective courses. Penelope gave up 2 electives, one is divination and the other is Muggle studies. Divination is useless even if you get a certificate, and this course is also quite easy to get, so it's not difficult to get a certificate. The Muggle studies certificate is only useful for interviewing for a Muggle liaison officer, and Penelope was born a Muggle, so she could pass the exam with just some study, but she didn't want to be a Muggle researcher. In fact, she had no idea whether she could get a job at the Ministry of Magic after getting 10 certificates. With this result, the whole Hogwarts may not produce one in a year. Don't worry, you will definitely get what you want. Ethan comforted. There are 10 certificates, and there are only 3 people who have obtained 2 certificates. Barty Crouch Jr., if he had no problem with his thinking, his father would be the Minister of Magic, and he would naturally have a bright future. It's a pity that he let his father down. Bill Weasley went to work at Gringotts after graduation, which is the only financial institution in the wizarding world. Percy Weasley also joined the Ministry of Magic right after graduation, and his position was also quite good. In the original book, even Hermione only took 10 exams, but only got 9 certificates. Defense against the dark arts is good. Ronald didn't get any, and Harry only got the defense against the dark arts class. It can be seen that the gold content of these O.W.L.S. exams is still there. I hope so. Don't worry, as you wish. Ethan is quite sure of this. Excellent students can earn rewards to become the Minister of Magic. There are definitely rewards to earn, and the grade can't be low. So, after seeing these 2 achievements this morning, Ethan also had the idea of a becoming a minister. In the original book, after Dumbledore and Voldemort died, there were only a few people in Britain, and who could stop him. Even if they didn't die, they could force their way to the top after a while. As the saying goes, the one with the strongest troops and horses is the king. No matter what Muggle, pure blood or half-blood, the one who can fight is the Minister of Magic. After getting the reward, Ethan didn't want to be the Minister of Magic. He could just give the position to Penelope. As for Hermione, although she became the Minister of Magic in the original book, she was actually not suitable for this position. It's not just about being smart. Dong. 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 Harry's voice rang out as the carriage door was knocked from the outside. Ethan, are you in there? After asking a few classmates, he found Ethan here. Well, just open the door. Harry pushed the door open, smiled shyly at the few people, and then said, Ethan, can you come out for a moment? I have something to tell you. In front of so many girls, he couldn't say this. 15. After that, Ethan left with Harry and came to an empty corridor. Harry took a deep breath and said to Ethan sincerely, I'm here to apologize. I misunderstood you last time. Sorry. After waking up in the school hospital, Harry and Dumbledore talked for a long time, including Ethan taking the Philosopher's Stone and mixing with Voldemort using himself to resist the curse. Dumbledore also gave an explanation and fooled Harry, and the result Harry got in the end was Ethan was arranged by Dumbledore to protect the Philosopher's Stone. The Philosopher's Stone has now been destroyed by Dumbledore. He is not afraid of Voldemort's magic because of his mother's protection. Ethan can defeat Voldemort with his help. So Ethan is on his side, and he is the best weapon to deal with Voldemort. Harry, who was fooled, felt regretful at the time. He shouldn't have said that about Ethan. Obviously Ethan prevented Voldemort from obtaining the Philosopher's Stone. Although he was a little painful in the process, the result was good. Good people should not be framed. It's not your fault. I shouldn't have used you to deal with the you-know-who, but there was no better way at the time. No, I don't mind you using me to attack Voldemort. He killed my parents. As long as I can destroy his conspiracy, I can do anything. When saying this, Harry's expression was quite serious. Knowing that Voldemort killed his parents, and that he had destroyed Voldemort's plot and turned his body into ashes, Harry was very grateful to Ethan. If it weren't for him, he wouldn't have been able to do this. As for the physical pain, compared to the hatred of killing his father and mother, what was it? Then Ethan and Harry chatted for a few words and waited until someone came over before they separated. Voldemort was the mysterious man in the mouths of the two. This matter could not be discussed publicly. Back in the carriage, Ethan continued to accompany the 4 girls, and Harry could only chat with his good friend Ronald. In the evening, the speed of the train slowed down until it stopped at platform 9 3/4. Like last time, Ethan, who had just got off the train, saw a large number of parents coming to pick up their children. Ethan saw Fred and George talking to a middle-aged fat witch, and then it was unknown whether Fred or George's ears were grabbed. Maybe Professor McGonagall sent the Weasleys a letter about the good deeds they did this semester. There was also a little girl with red hair, freckles and a round face next to them. If nothing unexpected happened, it would be their sister Ginny. Belinda Wally walked towards Ethan. Mr. Adrian, we meet again. When will you come to visit us this summer? Looking at the expression on Ethan's face, she added, we agreed last time. Did you say that? Ethan felt that this big Cassandra was a bit difficult to deal with. Next time, I will, didn't you say that? Mrs. Wally looked at Ethan with a smile on her face. After scanning the witches present, she gave Cassandra a look that said Mom will help you. One more. Yes. I will definitely do it next time. I will definitely do it this time. I will contact Cassandra. There is no other way. Playing with Lolita has its price. I must admit defeat now. I cannot offend my future mother-in-law. That's settled. Ethan was relieved when he saw Mrs. Waller leaving. It seems that he will have to take time to go there this summer. Next, Ethan faced Chu Zhang's father who was on guard against Ethan like a wolf, and the Granger couple who invited Ethan to visit their home. Penelope, where are your family? She was the only one left. I will buy a train ticket back to Plymouth later. I have been going home alone since the 3rd grade. Penelope's parents are ordinary workers. They have to ask for leave to pick her up. As a wizard, Pinlo, even if she is still a student, is not comparable to ordinary people. Therefore, there is no need to worry about Pinlo encountering any danger. She has been going back and forth alone since she was 14 years old. How about you go to my house and rest for a night? I'll book you a flight for tomorrow, what do you think? It was already past 6 in the summer evening. When Penelope queued up to buy a ticket, even if she bought it, the waiting time plus the ride time would make her arrive at Plymouth all the late Ming Dynasty Royal Hall. If she's unlucky, she'll have to spend the night at the train station tonight. I don't know how long she waited here during the last Christmas holiday. Okay. But I have to call home first so they don't worry. Chapter 82. Early morning. Ethan had just come down from the 2nd floor when he saw Penelope stretching in the courtyard. Her perfect body curves, facing the morning light, were beautiful and lovely to look at. Ethan couldn't help but take a few more glances. Ethan, you're up. Penelope turned around and greeted Ethan. When she came yesterday, she was a little worried about how to answer after seeing Ethan's parents. After all, she was 4 years older than Ethan, and she didn't know if they would mind. As a result, she didn't see Ethan's parents at all, and she was really worried for nothing. Well, good morning. Penelope looked pretty in muggle clothes. Her long brown hair fell straight to her waist, and her delicate face was beautiful in the morning light. Her white printed t-shirt was even more bulging, and she was wearing a pair of denim shorts underneath. Her 2 long legs were white and reflected in the morning light. This was the clothes she wore in the muggle world. She couldn't go home on the train later and still wear wizard robes. That would be too eye-catching. In the past, they changed in the carriage when they were about to get off the train. At that time, there were a few girlfriends there, so it was natural. But yesterday, she went to Ethan's carriage and could only come out in wizard robes. It was not until this morning that she changed back into muggle clothes. How about it, senior sister, this outfit looks good, right? Penelope glanced at Ethan's part, and then her face turned red. Very good, F023 with black stockings is even better. Ethan gave a thumbs up. As for Ethan himself, there is nothing to say. A 12-year-old boy is a little angry when he wakes up in the morning, what's wrong with that? Penelope rolled her eyes. Go to hell. I just gave some suggestions. Ethan spread his hands, looking quite innocent. I think it's your habit. Everyone in Hogwarts knows you now. Ethan entered Ravenclaw as a had embarrassment, and he targeted us seniors. Ethan immediately retorted, slander, absolutely slander. This can never be admitted. Who said it? Don't let yourself find it. Penelope rolled her eyes at Ethan, whether it is slander or not, you know it yourself. Just yesterday, a man took 4 girls to sit in a carriage. Do you see if there are other such Hogwarts Express? There are many men and women staying in the same carriage, but Ethan's is definitely unique. It's time for breakfast. Ethan turned and walked towards the dining table. This question cannot be discussed in detail. Haha. Penelope sneered and followed Ethan, but did not say anything. If Ethan was so devoted that he really had nothing to do. Besides being older than the other 3, Penelope really didn't know what advantages she had. The plane takes off at 2:30 p.m. Call home later. It will arrive at about 4 o'clock. It will be just in time for you to take a rest and then have dinner. After breakfast, Ethan also told them about booking the plane ticket. When we get to the airport, someone will deliver the prepared tickets. In 1953, the ID card was abolished. Now it is quite convenient to take trains and planes. Okay, but it's just past 8 o'clock now. How about we go out for a walk? Now that there are only Ethan and I, we must seize the opportunity. Where do you want to go? Ethan had a headache. Going shopping with girls is both expensive and tiring. But he doesn't seem to be short of money now. His physical fitness has been improved. He seems to be able to go shopping better than girls. Thinking of this, Ethan's headache was gone and he even made a condition. You have to wear black stockings. No problem, do you have it? Pinlo glanced at Ethan. Unless Ethan took it from his mother, Penelope really didn't believe that Ethan had it. Just go buy it, let's go. Ethan said as he pulled Penelope out the door. Although Penelope's outfit looked good, there was still a lot of room for improvement. 2 o'clock in the afternoon, in the airport parking lot. Thank you for today, I had a lot of fun. After saying that, Penelope kissed Ethan on the cheek and walked into the crowd with the ticket. Looking at Penelope, who was wearing a white chiffon shirt on her upper body, a black pleated skirt and black stockings, and a pair of black stiletto high heels on her feet, Ethan touched the place where he was kissed just now and sighed. I was so tired today. I can only say that I overestimated myself and underestimated women. After that, I only changed one kiss and posted it on the same day. It was okay for the first 1 or 2 hours, but I couldn't walk around anymore. But Penelope didn't know where she got such good energy. Oxford Street, the largest commercial street in London, was visited by her in a few hours. I felt that I was not so tired when I fought Voldemort outside Hogsmeade last time. I called the driver back home and lay on the sofa to watch TV for a while. It was evening. Ethan left home again. He had to get some money and go to Dennis to see how Nagini was. He hadn't seen this beautiful snake yet. Bruno's magic enhancement potion was also successfully made, but Ethan didn't have time to check it out. He could go and test the effect today. Passing through the backyard of the Leaky Cauldron, we came to Diagon Alley. Ethan had changed a lot at this moment. He was wearing a dark cape, a hood on his head, and his face was completely covered in black mist. This was the effect of the bat. After walking forward for about 100 meters, he turned another corner and entered the alley. The contrast is too great. The front is a strange-looking commercial street, but this is a dirty and messy slum. I don't know if Ethan and Nocturne Alley are in conflict. Every time I enter Nocturne Alley, someone will stare at me. Now I am dressed like a standard dark wizard, how can I be targeted? And the one who is targeting me is a hunchbacked old man with grey hair. Avada Kedavra. The cold voice without any emotion sounded in this dirty and barren alley, and the dark wizards around who were paying attention to all this couldn't help but shudder. Is this man a lunatic? Using the Kedavra curse openly? When everyone uses the unforgivable curse, don't they always use it in an empty alley or a remote place, fearing that they will be discovered? But this guy is so bold, who does he think he is, the Dark Lord? Under the dim green light, the hunchbacked old man with obvious malice towards Ethan fell silently. Soul out of the body. The bald man on the left froze the moment he pulled out his wand, and then suddenly inserted the wand in his hand into his throat. After pulling out and inserting it several times, the middle-aged man fell directly into a pool of blood, with a trace of happiness and yearning on his face. Now, the few people who were originally planning to make some small moves immediately wrapped their wizard robes. This man was not only a lunatic, but also a powerful lunatic. He immediately jumped into the dark alley. I thought a big fish with a hidden identity came, but it turned out to be a FG shark. Fortunately, I still wanted to wait and see. The surrounding shops were already cleaning up and closing, and the stall owners also began to pack their goods. Using the unforgivable curse is still fair and square. Even if this is Nocturne Alley, the Aurors will soon arrive. I don't know why I am so unlucky today. Such a lunatic came. Nocturne Alley will have a hard time in the future. Wait. Ethan stretched out his hand to stop the owner of Borgin & Burks from closing the shop. Welcome, my dear guest, what do you need to buy? Mr. Borgin hurriedly stopped closing the door and respectfully invited Ethan in. Ethan's action just now was definitely not something he could handle. He didn't want to be like the two people just now, so he could only go along with them. This was the experience he had learned from years of living in Nocturne Alley, and he should bow his head when he should. There is never a shortage of lunatics here, and lunatics won't reason with you. I have a batch of Acromanthus venom, do you want it? Acromanthus venom has a wide range of uses, it can be used in potions and alchemy, and it is quite rare, but Ethan has too much. Every week, if you go to the Forbidden Forest and give some energy cubes as gifts, you can receive 7 or 8 pints of Acromanthus venom. There are really too many Acromanthus venom there, especially Aragog, who doesn't need venom now, and he alone contributes a lot, resulting in the venom being inexhaustible. So far, Ethan has accumulated 127 pints, and this is when Ethan has used a lot. Yes, of course I will. How much do you have? Acromantula venom is a rare commodity, and how can I refuse it? Ethan directly put the bag of Acromantula venom on the counter. 1 bottle, 2 bottles, 3 bottles. Mr. Borgin was so annoyed that he couldn't put any more on the counter. How many Acromantulas did he kill? These things appear in groups, which is not easy to deal with. Moreover, if you want to extract the venom, you can't use fire magic. High temperature will destroy the properties of the venom and make it completely worthless. How did he get so much? And it was quite normal Acromantula venom. Even though he felt like a cat's claw was scratching in his heart, he really wanted to figure out what was going on, but he didn't dare to ask. Until the table was completely full, Mr. Borgin counted it and found that there were exactly 100 bottles, each of which was a standard pint. Have you finished counting? Ethan glanced at Mr. Borgin impatiently. It's finished counting. Mr. Borgin was startled and immediately took out a bulging bag from under the counter and put it on the counter. This is 15,000 gold galleons, you can count it. 15,000 gold galleons? Ethan was stunned for a moment, and then he recovered immediately. At first, Ethan thought that 5.4 was the highest price, which was about 7,000 to 8,000. After all, the market price of a pint is 100 gold galleons, and the purchase price must be lower. Merchants also need to make money. Your quality is good, I'll add another 5,000 gold galleons. Seeing that Ethan didn't take it, Mr. Borgin got anxious. He quickly took out another bag from under the counter, but this time it was smaller. He originally planned not to make money this time, and spend some gold galleons to buy life. After all, no one knew whether he would give him a big melon to eat and then buy it for free. But who knew that his appetite was so big? As a last resort, he could only take out the last bit of money in the store. Dear guest, this is all the money I have in my store. How about you take some back? I can't afford so much. Seeing that Ethan still didn't move, Mr. Borgin's forehead began to sweat. That's it. I believe Mr. Borgin is a smart man, so I won't count it. With that, Ethan took the 2 money bags filled with gold galleons and turned away. Since he couldn't squeeze out more gold galleons, forget it this time. I'll come to him again when I have a batch of Acromantula venom in the future. After all, the price Mr. Borgin offered was really high. Until Ethan left the door, Mr. Borgin closed the door cleanly. It was a bloody loss today. Even if he found a channel to sell it at a high price, he would at least lose 7,000 gold galleons. Chapter 83. Just as I walked down the stairs, 5 wizards with wands in hand suddenly rushed out from Diagon Alley. Aurors? They came fast. Expelliarmus. Expelliarmus. The 2 Aurors in the front suddenly turned against us, and the moment they turned around, they pointed their wands at their colleagues. Quickly imprison. The remaining one also reacted quickly, and immediately wanted to use the imprisonment spell to tie up the 2 teammates who turned against us. But how could this be successful when there was no intention to do so? The 2 who turned against us cooperated tacitly, one used the armor spell, and the other used the petrification spell, and they instantly completed the achievement of wiping out their teammates. Aurors, is this all you can do now? A cold voice sounded from under the hood covered by black mist. Then Ethan walked into the depths of Nocturne Alley. The 2 Aurors who turned against him were stunned in place, and the one who was knocked away by the disarming curse and fell to the ground with his hands on his chest after losing his wand did not dare to move. Since when did such a vicious person appear in Nocturne Alley? Facing such a guy, how to charge? If you charge, are you still yourself? Is your teammate a teammate? You can't even be sure of this, what the hell? I thought it was some fool who used the unforgivable curse openly, and I came here to pick up the performance, but I didn't expect almost sent away by this performance. The eyes of the dark wizards who were hiding in the dark and watching all this flashed. Auras are the elite among wizards. Each of them has at least 5 certificates of O, W, L, and S, and they are 5 compulsory courses. After passing the interview, they have to undergo 3 years of training. It can be said that all of them are very good at fighting. Any aura is a tough guy in Nocturne Alley. And this unknown dark wizard, 1 against 5, treated the auras as nothing, which is simply incredible. The last one who was so awesome was Voldemort, but unfortunately he was defeated by a baby 27. Now, can this unknown strong man lead us to hack the Ministry of Magic again? One by one, the dark wizards began to fantasize, expecting Ethan to play a leading role, just like Voldemort many years ago, when it was the most glorious moment for the dark wizards. Now hiding in the dim Nocturne Alley is like a rat in the gutter. This should not be our life. And Ethan didn't care about these things at all. He had already come to the base of Dennis and others. The reason why he didn't kill these 5 auras was because his shop was still in Nocturne Alley. It was just that someone used the unforgivable curse here and taught the auras a lesson. They would at most perfunctorily investigate and give an explanation to the public because of fear. If the 5 auras died here, the Ministry of Magic would not give up. No matter what the useless Minister Fudge thought, the other auras would not give up. At that time, the shops in Nocturne Alley would probably not be able to open for a long time. And that alchemy potion shop can bring in hundreds of gold galleons every month, otherwise it would not give him more than half of the money when selling Nagini. Although Dennis and others lowered the price, and the snake Nagini was indeed not easy to sell, it took a lot of time. After saying hello to Dennis, Ethan focused on the panel. Wealthy wealth rolls in like a tide, mountains of gold and silver are laid out, pearls and jades are all in the treasury achievement goal, 10,000 gold galleons, 1/1, achievement reward, a random spell on the list the villains lurking in the dark, with numerous crimes, notorious, deviating from justice, and falling into the wrong path, the hideous face on the wanted list is a cancer to social peace achievement goal, wanted, 1/1, achievement reward, a random black magic seeing the latter. Ethan was stunned. Ethan had been prepared for the achievement of getting 10,000 gold galleons, or this was Ethan's goal. If he wants to brush this gold galleon achievement later, he doesn't know whether it will take hundreds of thousands of gold galleons or millions of gold galleons. But being wanted can also be an achievement, Ethan did not expect, and it's wanted right now. I didn't show up, what can you tell from this black thing? There are not a few dark wizards dressed like me. 2 magics were quickly drawn. The spell drawn was apparition, which Ethan had wanted to learn a long time ago. It was very convenient for traveling or running away. But in Hogwarts, there were no books related to it, and the professors would not teach it. They were afraid that some little wizards would master the human body separation technique. There was only one way, that is, after you meet the requirements to learn it, go to the apparition class. Dennis and the other 3 idiots knew how to use it, but they were not proficient in it, and they could only use it when no one interfered. Before entering school, Ethan also considered letting the 3 of them teach him, but he gave up quickly. If the 3 idiots taught him wrong, it would be over. Ethan didn't want to have a missing piece of his body. Pop. Accompanied by a unique sound, Ethan appeared directly on the 2nd floor. It is indeed quite convenient, but it is still a bit uncomfortable, but it is much better than the first time when Professor McGonagall took me to use it. Maybe it is related to the improvement of physical fitness and magic power. After a few more times, after getting familiar with this feeling, there should be no more squeezing feeling. The black magic extracted is the crow storm. Ethan has a strong sense of copyright JAVU about this magic. It is similar to energy absorption. They are all skills in a certain game. It just seems to be a bit similar to the wolf pack. They all use magic to summon this kind of magical creature, but the crow storm does not need to be born from the shadow. It can be generated at a location around Ethan. It cannot have the effect of splitting like the wolf pack. When the crows are killed, they will turn into magic and dissipate, but there are so many of them. It cannot switch between reality and illusion, and can only maintain its physical form, but it is a flying unit. It can also resist the killing curse. Unlike wolves that attack purely with their claws and fangs, crows, in addition to their sharp beaks and claws, also have extremely strong curse effects. 2 more spells, and since Christmas, Ethan's training has been very effective. Many spells have been stacked to the maximum level, and there are even more that have been slightly improved. Name, Ethan Adrian age, 12 bloodline, wizard talents, super soul, strong body, heart of darkness, focus, animal affinity, fire affinity, snake mouth, lightning affinity spells, killing curse, 10, cruciatus curse, 10, imperious curse, 10, fiery flame curse, 10, Gulliver's fire, 10, fiery flame, 10, Vulcan clearance, 1, occlumency, 8, legilimency, 6, Mjolnir, 10, Gungnir, 10, armor, 8, traceless reach, 6, siphon energy, 8, shadow steel, 6, pack of wolves, 7. Crowstorm, 1, apparition, 1, transfiguration, 5, petrification, 4, disillusionment, 4, invasion, 4, potions, 4, alchemy, 4, possession, 1, fireguard, the new magic that appeared after the combined use of fireguard and fireguard was the white flame at the beginning. Dennis. Boss, I'm here. Dennis immediately stepped forward respectfully. Where is the snake? Take me to see it. Come with me. Soon Ethan followed Dennis and came to a huge iron cage, in which a 4-meter-long snake was coiled into a ball, with its head raised high and constantly spitting out its tongue. You go out first, and then ask Bruno to bring the magic potion. After observing Nagini for a while, Ethan turned his head and instructed Dennis. Yes. Your name? Ethan made a snake-like sound. The talent of the snake-mouthed man can also play a role at this moment, and he can talk to snakes. Hiss. Nagini's huge snake head stretched out in front of Ethan, and spit out the snake tongue quickly against the iron cage, and the snake tail behind it shook from time to time. It seems that even if it has become a snake, it still remembers its previous name. Hiss. Crescent, don't you remember this name? Hiss. I don't know. The huge snake head shook twice. Hiss. Do you remember the past? Hiss. I ate mice and birds in the forest, and met a strange snake. It seems that except for the name, she has no memory of being a human. The strange snake she met is probably the snake possessed by Voldemort. Hiss. I will let you out now, don't bite me. I have an affinity with animals and I have a snake-speaking man, so I am naturally not afraid of being bitten by her, but others are not like that. A bite can be quite fatal. Hiss. I will be good and not bite me. It's so small here and uncomfortable. Even if she is a snake, Ethan can see the excitement she felt after hearing that he was going to let her out. Moreover, her mental ability is still relatively high, which may be the result of the change from a human to a snake. With an unlocking spell, Ethan quickly let her out. After coming out, Nagini was quite excited and swam around in this space where the traceless expansion spell was cast. It was obvious that she was suffocating. Looking at Nagini who was having fun, Ethan had no idea how to start. The blood curse was a curse on the soul and maybe also on genes. After all, if you can turn into a snake without animagus, your genes are different from those of normal people. Boss. Bruno's voice sounded outside the door. Come in. Bruno pushed the door open and saw the poisonous snake tightly wrapped around Ethan, and the snake's tongue was right next to Ethan's cheek. At this distance, if you attack by surprise, no one can escape, and you will definitely die. He also studied Nagini's venom, which was extremely poisonous. A mortar rat would be dead in less than 10 seconds. This is the magic potion you want. Bruno reached into his pocket and took out a small bottle of azure liquid, which was crystal clear and did not contain any impurities. Legilimency was used silently, and Ethan was sure that there was no problem. It was never too careful when it came to your own safety. After drinking it in one gulp, the feeling of getting magic power increased was similar to the last time, and the whole process lasted about 10 minutes. It was slower than last time, which felt fast coming and going. The amount of increase was only about 1/3 of the last time. This is 4,000 gold galleons. Can you make 4 more bottles before Christmas? Ethan threw a bag in front of Bruno. The materials for one portion are about 1,200 gold galleons. Now the store can divert more than 1,000 gold galleons, so it is not a problem to add 800 gold galleons. Besides, this store was bought by Ethan, and some alchemical gadgets were put on sale, but Ethan did not collect the money. Bruno is just an employee, and Ethan is the boss. It is reasonable to use this money. No problem, it will be completed before Christmas. The magic potion needs 3 months, and you only need to watch it at the critical moment. You can leave during the rest of the time, so you can brew multiple portions of magic potion at the same time, just keep a good interval. Just like the polyjuice potion takes 21 days and the Felix decoction takes half a year, it is impossible for a person to watch the crucible all the time, otherwise who can persist? Chapter 84. July 1st. Ethan was sitting on the sofa, checking the time from time to time, and the servants in the house had all gone out. A week ago, Ethan received a letter from Dumbledore sent by Phoenix, which said that on July 1st, the original agreement would be fulfilled and Ethan would be introduced to Nicholas Flamel to study. So Ethan was waiting here at this moment, but it was already afternoon. Where was Dumbledore? Just when Ethan was about to scold Dumbledore, a flash of fire appeared, and the Phoenix appeared in front of Ethan out of thin air with Dumbledore. The words that were originally blurted out were swallowed immediately. Principal, good afternoon, how about having afternoon tea first? Ethan immediately asked Dumbledore to sit down, showing a very enthusiastic look. It's not shameful to bow your head when you need help from others. Then I won't be polite. Dumbledore smiled and sat in front of Ethan. He couldn't refuse the dessert on the coffee table in front of him. The sweet elements he consumed today were far from enough, so it was just right to replenish them. Ethan also poured sweetened black tea for Dumbledore. Needless to say, he likes sweet, and he is not afraid of diabetes anyway. So, Ethan prepared Napoleon pastry, macarons, cream puffs, fruit mousse, caramel pudding and so on today. All of them were super high sugar versions that Ethan ordered from the dessert shop yesterday, made and delivered today, and Ethan dared not touch them at all. Ethan, how was your summer vacation? Dumbledore wiped his mouth after eating almost 1/3 of it, and looked at Ethan with satisfaction. What a good boy. But he is still old after all. If he was 30 years younger, he could eat all of these. It's quite fulfilling, but it's not easy to practice magic. Ethan was telling the truth. Although he had acquired the ability to cast spells without being seen by others, he still had no suitable place to practice Vulcan opening. This magic makes too much noise, unless you find an uninhabited island, but apparition can only go to places Ethan has been to, and his current proficiency is not as high as Sohang, so he can't go too far. And the traceless expansion space is not enough to train the magic of the fire god's way. Whether it is the fierce fire or the fire escape body protection, Ethan has tried it a long time ago. The powerful magic burst can collapse the space inside. I really miss the 18th day of the Room of Requirement. Without the Room of Requirement, the improvement of strength is really slow. However, in this way, Ethan also has time to study the alchemical technology construct obtained after obtaining the Philosopher's Stone and practice it, and has a work. I can't do anything about this. Dumbledore thought Ethan was troubled by the inability to use magic because of the trace thread. But in the next few days, I think you don't have to worry about this. You can use magic at will with Nicholas Flamel. After all, how can you learn alchemy without magic? Many alchemy techniques require the assistance of magic. You can't wait any longer, hold my hand now, and don't let go a euro. Group Ethan nodded to show his understanding, and grabbed Dumbledore's hand. Fox also swooped down with flames all over his body, looking like a ball of fire. The moment he approached Dumbledore, he grabbed his shoulder. Then the flames spread to Dumbledore and Ethan. Ethan did not feel the burning of the flames, only a little warmth. After the flames completely covered the two of them, Ethan and Dumbledore disappeared directly on the spot. Only the empty villa was left, and there were unfinished desserts and half a pot of black tea. Onyxia, Ethan had handed it over to Dennis to take care of yesterday. They have been familiar with each other during this period of time. Although she occasionally loses her temper, she will not burn Dennis and others. Similarly, I called my parents and told them that I would be away from home for a while, and the servants would come back to pack up the things at home tomorrow. Hermione, Chujong, and Penelope all called. Cassandra sent a letter by Owl, expressing that she could not contact them during this period. It was more comfortable than apparition, which was Ethan's first feeling after getting off the car. If it weren't for the fact that there were too few phoenixes, and Ethan felt that he couldn't hook Fox, he would have to get one high or low. Observing the surrounding environment, lush forests, dense weeds, and mountains not far away, it should be in a valley. I just don't know if it is the Pyrenees or the Alps. There is a stone path under my feet, and the end is a small courtyard that looks ordinary. I have written to Nico, and he knows we will come today. After that, Dumbledore led the way in front, and Ethan followed behind him and didn't dare to move. It is quite dangerous if you are not familiar with this place. Only God knows what an alchemist who has lived for more than 600 years will make his home, especially when there are still many people coveting his Philosopher's Stone. If it is a simple wizard fight, Nicholas Flamel may not be strong, after all, his body is too fragile, and this is not his forte. But if he is given time to set up the venue and fight him in his place, few in this wizarding world are sure of winning. Walking all the way to the door of the courtyard, nothing happened, just like an ordinary family hidden in the mountains. It was not until Ethan and Dumbledore entered the house that they discovered its difference. The interior was cast with a traceless expansion spell, and the space was quite large. The main structure of the hall was white marble, the ceiling was nearly 10 meters high, and the columns were also carved with exquisite stone carvings. There are 5 scrolls on the wall on the side, showing 2 particularly old men, a man and a woman. In each painting, a blood-red gem was held, which was the Philosopher's Stone obtained by Ethan. In the painting, the 2 old men were thinner and thinner, and the last painting seemed to be blown away by a gust of wind. In addition, Ethan also saw some things that only muggles use, such as stereos, televisions, and refrigerators. Song, can the television here receive programs? You too, welcome. Just as Ethan was looking around, a voice sounded, and 2 old men came out from behind the curtain. Pale hair, loose robes, wrinkled faces, and extremely thin bodies gave people an extremely unhealthy grey-white color. The other lady was in a very similar state except for the different clothes. If he hadn't been prepared, Kong would have thought he had seen a ghost. It can only be said that the effect of the Philosopher's Stone is not as great as imagined. Although it can maintain human life, the body is becoming more and more fragile. Ethan has no doubt that if he falls down, it will not be as simple as a fracture. Nico, I have something else to do. I'll leave first. I'll leave the child to you. The 4 of them simply exchanged greeting spells, and Dumbledore left in a burst of fire. Ethan, I heard from Albus that you are a talented little wizard, and you are very interested in alchemy. Can you show me your work? How to understand the level of an alchemist? That is definitely to look at his work. As he got older, Nicholas Flamel also wanted to pass on his alchemy. Over the years, for the development of alchemy in Beau's batons, he donated money and books. But no one could stand up. Okay, Nico. Let the guests sit down first, how can you be so embarrassed? Pernell interrupted Nico's actions directly. No host would do things like this. Of course, she could understand Nicholas Flamel's feelings. It was not easy to get a talented little wizard who was interested in alchemy. Kinby Dumbledore praised the talent, which was not easy. The last one was Tom, and he is amazing now. Ah. Looking at the 2 people sitting on the sofa and still talking about alchemy, Pernell sighed. She didn't like alchemy very much, or she was past the age of liking alchemy, and she couldn't stand studying alchemy day after day for many years. She fell in love with vocal art by chance, and then when opera flourished in France, she became fascinated by opera again. These are not comparable to the boring alchemy. Here Nico was asking Ethan about the knowledge related to alchemy and ancient magic words. The 2 are closely related. To learn alchemy well, you must have a lot of knowledge accumulation, which is much more complicated than spells, and ancient magic words are extremely difficult to understand. Not to mention understanding, even memorizing them by rote requires hard work. If Ethan only had a half understanding of these, he would be very disappointed. A talented little wizard who is unwilling to work hard on alchemy will have extremely limited achievements in the end. Fortunately, Ethan has a good grasp of the basic and advanced knowledge of alchemy and ancient magic words. This is also thanks to the fact that he has enough buffs, a flexible mind, and a photographic memory, which allows him to learn so quickly. Otherwise, for a normal little wizard, at the end of the 1st grade, it would be extremely difficult for you to ask him to recite the characters, glyphs, words, and meanings of ancient magic words. Then, Nico asked several more in-depth questions. Ethan naturally spoke out everything he knew and talked about all the aspects he was involved in. Because Nico Flamel would correct some of his own problems in this process, Ethan would certainly not miss such an opportunity to verify his knowledge. And the more Nico Flamel was tested, the more frightened he was. Ethan's knowledge reserve was quite rich, and now many of his knowledge was acquired at 10 o'clock. At this moment, Nico finally realized that what Dumbledore sent to him was no longer a genius, but a demon. To go further on the path of alchemy, one needs the sharp imagination and creativity of a genius, as well as the meticulousness and rigor of a machine. It is rare to find someone who can possess one of these conditions, and he has only met one person who possesses both and is interested in alchemy, Ethan. Dumbledore also possesses these 2 conditions and is also interested in alchemy, which is one of the reasons why the 2 of them were able to make friends when Dumbledore was a student, but there are really not many who can quickly become friends with Dumbledore. Chapter 85. These are the 2 alchemical works I brought. One is a ruby a euro necklace with an armor spell attached, which has the same effect as the ring that Cassandra gave Ethan at Christmas. After inputting magic power, even wizards who don't know the armor spell can automatically generate an armor spell to protect themselves. It is very practical for wizards. After all, most adult wizards don't know how to use the armor spell, and their protection means are just simple dodge or counterattack. The other is a construct, which is 3 meters high and made of all metal. The lower body is a huge steel spider, and the 8 long legs are like 8 sharp spears flashing with a cold light. This design is because it can adapt to any environment to fight, except that it can't fly. Ethan tried to climb the building easily, but it caused some damage to the building he climbed. The upper body is a burly man with a total of 8 arms, each holding an extremely sharp sword. And the upper body can rotate 360 euro degrees, so it can face enemies from many directions. This big guy was just finished 2 days ago. The metal on the outside is titanium alloy, which has the characteristics of high strength, high corrosion resistance, high heat resistance, and good weight. It can be said to be a very excellent metal. The output of titanium alloy is relatively high now, but it is still difficult to get a large amount. Many of them are used in military industry, such as aircraft. Ethan also got it after asking his father and found that he actually had a lot of titanium alloy. It seems that he got it from the disintegrated Eastern European hegemony. This time he and a few friends got a lot of good things. But Ethan didn't ask for details. If there is any more, just let Dennis and the other 3 go to the Muggle world to get it. It is also very convenient to use the Imperious Curse and Compound 840 decoction. The inside of the titanium alloy uses fairy mithril to outline the operation veins. The core is made of bird snake eggshells selected from the gift given by Hagrid, combined with gold 10. The core must be made of magical materials to store magic. In this regard, bird snake eggshells were chosen. This thing has a great advantage in storing magic. Gold was chosen for conductivity, and goblin mithril is naturally the best, but goblin mithril is too expensive, even to outline the veins. It costs a lot. Ethan has not tried the specific combat power, but it has strong resistance to impact. It is much stronger than the statues and armor of Hogwarts in the original book. After all, when facing the army of Death Eaters, the giant swept through thousands of troops and was shattered by thousands. As for Ethan's construct, Dennis and others only left a little white mark when they hit it with a spell, and it can be repaired. Ethan also used magic to drop a half-ton steel piece from a height of 10 meters to test its physical resistance. The result was not bad. Although it was flattened and several legs were broken, it could still move. After it was connected and repaired, it looked like a new one. After all, this half-ton steel piece, at a height of 10 meters, has a terrifying impact force. Even a giant would smash you into a meat patty in one blow. The fire spell is useless to it. Ethan attached a waterproof and fireproof spell to it. Even the fierce fire can't burn it for a while. Ethan tried it with a finger of the construct. It resisted for a minute before it showed signs of melting. But the battery life is still a little short. If the core automatically absorbs the magic power in the air to recover, it can only work for 5 minutes after charging for a day. But the magic power cannot be fully charged in a day. According to the proportion, it takes 5 days to reach full state, CHDF, and can fight for 15 minutes. Overall, it is qualified to match the magical beasts of the XXXXX level. Nicole Flamel looked at the big guy that Ethan took out, and his eyes were almost shining. The genius's creative and excellent idea is definitely a killer for those wizards with short legs and slow running. His own magic puppet can completely beat this guy in terms of functionality, but it is his own magic puppet that is completely beaten in battle. Nicole Flamel still has this kind of vision. But let's take a look at Ethan's necklace first. Good food is not afraid of being late. There will be enough time to study it later. A standard alchemical item, the spell is solidified, the ancient magic runes are amplified and stabilized, and the magic power is also very good. It can be called a fine product. Although this necklace is very ordinary in Nicole Flamel's eyes, it is definitely a very popular item in the outside world, and there will not be too many of them. The one who can make it is definitely the kind of alchemy master who can be called by name when walking outside. Ethan, who just finished the first grade, can make this protective necklace with the armor spell, which shows that he is not just talking about it on paper. Even if that big guy is not here, just looking at this can prove that Ethan really knows the alchemical knowledge in the previous test. As for the construct, Nico and Ethan communicated together. Alchemy is not a closed-door process. Ethan expressed his own ideas and thoughts, and Nico proposed improvement plans and some of his conjectures. Among them is the ability to load magic on the construct, and Nico's magic puppet can release simple magic. There is also the addition of logical thinking, just like the sorting hat at Hogwarts. Nico showed Ethan that his TV, refrigerator, and stereo were all transformed into smart ones. It can communicate with Ethan without any obstacles, but the construct is not like that. Ethan can only control its actions with the mark in its core. As for the transformation of the core, Nico proposed to strengthen it with some steps in making the Philosopher's Stone. The two chatted around the construct until it was dark, and Pernell stopped them. Dinner was prepared by a house elf, a female house elf named Lena. The Nicole couple's dinner was quite light, with some vegetables and oatmeal porridge. Ethan understood this very well. His body was too fragile to digest many things, so he had to do this. But is such longevity really good? Ethan's diet was normal. In addition to vegetables, there was also beef stewed in red wine, lamb chops, sausages, and bread. After dinner, Nicole Flamel took Ethan to visit the mansion. The first floor was the living area, which was quite large. Because Nicole and his wife rarely went out, they had very high requirements in this regard. Nico's workshop and experimental site are in the basement, which is also surprisingly large. There are many magics attached to it to ensure that any experiment will not affect it. Of course, when experimenting with alchemical props, Nico always uses magic puppets. When he was young, he could still do it himself, but he couldn't do it since he was over 200 years old. The second floor is the living area. Nico pointed to a room on the right and introduced it to Ethan. This is my study. There are all kinds of books I collected, from spells to potions, alchemy, etc. In addition, there are my summary and experience of alchemy. I will take you to see it tomorrow, and you can freely choose what you are interested in the future. This is his hard work and pride. I dare say that in the entire wizarding world, no one will have more personal collections than him. This is the advantage of living a long life. Ethan's eyes flashed with excitement, and he nodded and thanked him immediately. Thank you, teacher. When he walked to the door of the innermost room. Ethan, you will live here for the time being. Although the room is not big, it is very tidy. The floor is covered with soft carpets. There is a small silver-white ball on the ceiling that emits light. There is also a desk near the window. After bringing Ethan to the room, Nico went back to his room. It was time to rest. Being able to live to the age of more than 600, in addition to the Philosopher's Stone, you also need to maintain a good mentality and living habits. Healthy diet and never staying up late are the rules that Nico and his wife set for themselves. The next day, after breakfast, it took Ethan to the study. Today, I will formally teach you alchemy. You have a good foundation and hands-on ability, so take a look at this first. Speaking of this, Nico handed a large roll of parchment to Ethan, which was what he sorted out over the years. It can be said that it includes all aspects of alchemy. After Ethan took it and looked at it, he thought it was some alchemy, but it turned out to be a catalogue of books. It is divided into 10 parts in total. Part 1, Introduction 1.1 The concept and background of alchemy 1.2 The importance of alchemy in the wizarding world 1.3 The purpose, organization, and research methods of alchemy Part 2, Alchemy manufacturing and theoretical basis 2.1 Magic structure and properties 2.2 Design of runes 2.3 Magic conversion and storage Part 3, Analysis of alchemy technology 3.1 Drawing and activation of runes 3.2 Imprinting and strengthening of runes 3.3, Injection and stabilization of magic Part 4, Materials and processes involved in alchemy 4.1 Types and characteristics of materials 4.2 Collection and processing of materials 4.3 Application of special processes and technologies Part 5, Classification of alchemical works 5.1 Overview of categories of alchemical works 5.2 Functions and designs of weapon alchemical items 5.3 Functions and designs of protective alchemical items 5.4 Functions and designs of auxiliary alchemical items A total of 10 parts, covering all aspects. Each section has 3 or 4 items, and each item is marked with a book title. There are 7 or 8 books at least, and as many as 20 or 30. You study first, and you can ask me anytime if you don't understand. What book do you need? Just say the name accurately to the summer vacation, and it will automatically come to you. Nico was very pleased with Ethan's surprised look. In a summer vacation, the knowledge that can be learned is limited by real hand-in-hand teaching. Let him study freely, and then he can answer the questions by himself. As long as Ethan's talent is high enough, the efficiency will naturally be higher. Got it, teacher. This summer vacation is going to be too busy. Chapter 86. It's August now. Ethan, get ready. I'll take you to a friend's house today. How about that? There's a saying in the ancient East, combine work and rest. Ethan spent this time either in the study or in the basement. According to the house elf's report, he spent no more than 5 hours a day in his room. If this continues, she's afraid that Ethan's mental state will be in trouble. She still has a good impression of Ethan, a diligent, studious, and handsome little wizard. Over the years, she and Nico haven't had a child, so she pays special attention to her promising back. In her early years, she went to Beauxbatons to teach, but she was too old to take care of it, so she had to quit her job. Miss Pernell, I've only read half of this book in my hand. Ethan doesn't really want to go out. Going out to play is not as interesting as these books. This summer vacation, Ethan is also planning to level up his alchemy. Moreover, most of the ancient magic texts and alchemy books here are not what Ethan can find in Hogwarts. This opportunity cannot be missed. Faced with Ethan's refusal, Pernell was not angry. Instead, she slightly raised her lips and said in a bewitching voice, "My friend's children are 2 half-blood Velas. The older one is 15 years old and looks very beautiful. The younger one is 7 years old and is also very cute. Are you sure you don't want to go? In this world, apart from those glass, few men can resist the temptation of Velas. This creature has such amazing beauty, and its skin is also as bright and soft as the moon. In addition, it exudes charm all the time. It is just that this thing will turn into a bird-like creature when it is angry. But the half-blood Vela, while inheriting the silver hair and beauty, has no disadvantage of turning into a bird. It can be said to be a very rare existence. As far as she knows, this little girl has quite a lot of suitors in Beauxbatons. Beauxbatons is not a girls' school, and the male song seems to have a low status. Dumbledore told her and Nico what kind of person Ethan is. He flirted with a senior in Ravenclaw in his first year, and hooked up with a little snake in Slytherin and a little lion in Gryffindor, and he didn't fail. A smart, hard-working, and extremely talented little wizard who likes to make friends and is willing to share, but is also promiscuous and cruel. After all, if they didn't know him, the Tonk couple would not have let Ethan in. There are really many people in the entire wizarding world who are paying attention to them. As for Ethan's shortcomings, it doesn't matter, no one is perfect. Dumbledore was ambitious at the time, and he became friends with Nico. I think it's better to accompany you, Madame Pernell. Going out is certainly not as interesting as these books, but the girl is different. She is much more interesting than the books. At most, I can stay up a little more late. I am still young and can bear it. If I don't fight now, when will I fight? And the half-Vela mentioned by Miss Pernell are Fleur Delacour and Gabrielle Delacour, who are 1/4 Vela. After all, there are only 3 half-Vela in the original book, and one is their mother. Apart from this family, Ethan can't think of anyone else. Fleur Delacour is portrayed as the most beautiful woman, and Gabrielle is a smaller Fleur. Beautiful sisters, and they look very similar. Who can refuse this? I just don't know if my animal affinity will work on mixed blood Velas. Pure bloods will definitely work. By the way, should I contact Dennis and ask him to bring some Velas back to raise? Ethan still remembered that during the Quidditch World Cup, the mascot of a country was a Vela and performed on stage. Okay, go get ready now, change your clothes, and don't be charmed by the Vela and become a fool. Pernell reminded with a smile, then returned to the room. She also wanted to change her clothes. Unlike Nicholas Flamel, an old otaku who was obsessed with alchemy and could stay at home for many years. Pernell would go out from time to time to attend small gatherings, or visit friends' homes, and discuss art with a few elderly witches. Of course, she would go to the homes of people with whom she had a good relationship and could be trusted. Ethan casually changed into summer casual clothes in the room. If he went to visit, wizard robes were not suitable, and formal dresses were too formal. Casual clothes were better. As for what Pernell said about being enchanted, Ethan thought it was impossible. He was not Ronald, that idiot. He had seen all kinds of girls. How could he be enchanted by a half-blood Vila? If his animal affinity could work, who knows who would enchant whom? The two met in the lobby on the first floor. Not bad, quite handsome. Pernell looked at Ethan with satisfaction, and brought a shot. Miss Pernell, you are dressed quite beautifully now. You are good at talking. Come, hold my hand. No matter how old she is, there is no queen who doesn't like others to praise her beauty. Ethan carefully grabbed Pernell's hand, and really didn't dare to use more strength. Her and Nico's bodies were too fragile. If he didn't know where the place was, Ethan would have wanted to apparate himself. A familiar feeling came over him, and Ethan was quite used to it at this moment. Recovering his vision, Ethan felt that he had come to the world of flowers, and the whole person was enveloped by the fragrance of flowers. Irises, roses, daisies, red camellias, lilacs, and tulips are all available, and they are all in full bloom, contrary to the natural growth rules. As expected of a pure-blood family, the garden alone is so high-end. Following the path through the garden, we came to an old castle. The walls were covered with ivy, and there were some traces of erosion, making it very old. Compared with the castle of Hogwarts, this one is small, but for a family, it is absolutely remarkable to own such a castle. Ethan didn't know when he could afford such a house. Some time ago, he was still complacent about getting 20,000 gold galleons, but now compared to it, it is really nothing. Before Ethan and Pernell walked to the gate of the castle, they saw the gate open automatically. An old lady who was nearly 70 years old but quite energetic came out from inside. Long time no see. Pernell. The two ladies hugged each other gently when they met, and it was obvious that the relationship between the two sides was quite good. After they separated, Pernell introduced Ethan and the old lady to each other. Then the two ladies walked hand in hand and took Ethan to the interior of the castle. The interior is decorated very delicately and artistically, as expected of the romantic French. Both sides are also hung with portraits of wizards in accordance with the tradition of the wizard family. At this time, footsteps were heard on the stairs on the left. Ethan looked in the direction of the sound and saw a witch with a delicate face, tall figure, and long silver hair that fell to her waist. She was also a big nipple. When the pair of eyebrows looked over, it was really quite tempting. Is this a half-blood Vila? Silver hair, blue eyes, irresistible. Ethan's mind unconsciously came up with Caoze's words, Madam, are you willing to share the same bed with me tonight? There was also a young girl and a little girl next to them, who looked like a smaller version of this silver-haired young woman. It really brought together a combination of wives, girls, and Lolita at once. No wonder Fleur was not liked by Molly and Ginny in the original book. Ginny even gave her the nickname Spito. With this appearance, how many girls would not be jealous when they saw it? The mother-daughter trio also felt a sense of intimacy the moment they saw Ethan. Apollon, Fleur, little Gabrielle, long time no see. Pernell greeted the girls on the stairs. Long time no see, Grandma Pernell. Fleur led Gabrielle down to greet them, and Apollon happily hugged Pernell. And Gabrielle would occasionally glance at Ethan, then quickly lower her head. Irina Delacour, who was watching all this quietly, smiled and said to the few people, this is Ethan Adrian, a guest from Great Britain. Fleur, take Ethan and Gabrielle out to play, don't disturb our party. She didn't mind Ethan's contact with her granddaughter. She could learn alchemy from Nicholas Flamel, and was sent there by Dumbledore himself. What kind of gold content is this? To put it bluntly, it's still that their Delacour family is marrying up. This is still my son's fault. If he hadn't married a half-blood Vila, the family wouldn't be in this situation. They are still the pure-blooded nobles at the top of France. Although I have accepted this daughter-in-law after all these years of getting along, and I like my two granddaughters very much, it is true that the family has a hard time. In the wizarding world, no matter which country, mixed bloods are discriminated against. This is not the kind of mixed blood between wizards and muggles. This kind of mixed blood is nothing. The mixed blood of magical animals and wizards is the real bottom of the contempt chain. Giants, trolls, mermaids, centaurs, and Vila, even if they have human forms and no reproductive isolation from humans, are also classified as magical animals. The word animal shows their status. Madame Maxime did not dare to reveal her identity as a giant half-blood, and she dared to say it only after she went to find the giant tribe with Hagrid. Anyway, my son lost his position in the Ministry of Magic, and some of the partners in the family's industries also cut off their relationship with the Delacour family. These are all obvious losses, and I don't know how they will be ridiculed in secret. Furong turned her head and looked at Ethan, her face flushed. Ethan, come with me. She wanted to talk to him and even get close to him. She had never felt this way about a boy before, and she didn't know what to do for a moment. Ethan followed Furong inside, animal-friendly and awesome. Brother, hold me. The little girl with long silver hair and delicate figure pulled Ethan's clothes around his waist and looked at him cutely. Ethan told himself more than once that the child was still young and that he liked a queen. But he couldn't control himself. Hee. Gabrielle, who was buried in Ethan's shoulder in Ethan's arms, smiled happily. Beiji. Gabrielle, what are you doing? Come down, you still need someone to hold you at the age of 7. Furong was almost furious when she saw this scene. How could her sister be so ignorant? Not only did she let someone hold her, but she also made such a frivolous move. No, I want my brother to hold me. Gabrielle hugged Ethan's neck and gave Fleur a provocative look. You. Fleur's chest swelled with anger, which made Ethan admire her. Children nowadays are only in their teens, and they have developed so well. Shall we go sit over there? Fleur ignored Gabrielle and turned to look at Ethan. She didn't care about the 7-year-old child, so she just went straight to the source. Okay. Soon, the three of them came to a stone pavilion in the garden. According to Fleur, this is where their family has afternoon tea. Ethan, can you tell me about Hogwarts? I haven't seen other magic schools. This is Fleur's strategy, to turn Ethan's attention to herself. Feed the tiger with your own body, let go of the child, and see what you can do. There are many interesting things in Hogwarts, such as the cursed defense against the dark arts class, the potions professor who seems to owe everyone money, the transfiguration professor who likes to turn into a cat, the divination professor who likes to drink and make jokes, the flying professor who is actually a Quidditch referee, Madame Hooch, the forbidden forest with a variety of magical animals of XXXXX levels, the room of requirement, etc. Fleur laughed from beginning to end when she heard these, and felt that Hogwarts was much more interesting than Beau's Batons, but the students there might have a hard time. How is your Beau's Batons? I've heard that Beau's Batons is the most beautiful magic school in Europe. Our Beau's Batons is really nice. It's a huge estate located in the Pyrenees, surrounded by vast grasslands and mountains outlined by magic. Madame Maxime raises many magic horses on the grasslands. They like to drink single malt whiskey. These horses run around Beau's Batons every morning. There is also a huge magic fountain in the school. It was Nicholas Flamel. Looking at Fleur and Ethan who were getting more and more excited as they talked, Gabrielle pouted. I was here first. How could my sister do this? Chapter 87. August 20th, only 11 days until the start of the Hogwarts school. Today is the day Ethan is supposed to leave. Nico told me about this more than a week ago. Ethan's study during this period has greatly improved his alchemy skills. If he makes constructs again, he will definitely make them more sophisticated. From level 4 to level 7 in alchemy, it seems that there are only 3 levels of improvement, but these are 2 different concepts. The rest still needs time to learn and understand. This kind of knowledge is too vast and cannot be easily mastered like spells. In the study, Kay is explaining something to Ethan. Ethan, your learning speed is far beyond my imagination. I originally thought that this knowledge would be enough for you to study for a long time. It seems that I should give you some of the best things now. Originally, Nico did not think that Ethan could learn all the knowledge. He was going to use the copy spell to copy some of the knowledge that Ethan had not learned yet and take it away when he left. But Ethan really learns too fast. He already knows a lot, but it's too messy. After his own explanation and integration, his speed is like flying in the sky, and he is very hardworking. So he has learned most of these things, and only needs to take a few books. Teacher's teaching is good. Without your teaching, I can't learn so fast. This is the truth. Nicole answers all the places he doesn't understand. Otherwise, those difficult places need to be thought for a long time. With Nicole's teaching, as long as Ethan has a strong understanding ability, he can digest and absorb this part of the knowledge. And Ethan happened to have so many buffs, so he has no lack of learning and thinking ability. Don't be modest. If someone else comes, even if I teach them, they won't be as good as you are now. I'll give you the Book of Abraham of the Jews and the Emerald Record. They have given me a lot of inspiration in my alchemy career. Nico pushed this strange book and a huge parchment scroll in front of Ethan. Looking at the Book of Abraham of the Jews, Nico's eyes were full of reluctance. It can be said that this book made him. At the beginning, he had just graduated from Beau's Batons. Although he had good alchemy talent and skills, he was just an ordinary member of the crowd. Until he found a job as a scribe and came into contact with the Book of Abraham of the Jews, his fate changed and he became the most famous alchemist at that time. But to this day, Nico has not fully understood this book. What exactly does the 7 pages represent and what does it mean? He still can't figure it out. I am already this age. Even if I can continue to live, my thinking is not as good as when I was young. In the past 200 years, I have not made any progress on the Book of Abraham of the Jews. Now I'm going to give it to Ethan. In the hands of Ethan, a very talented and young wizard, maybe one day he will be able to interpret all the contents of the Book of Abraham the Jews. Teacher, is this appropriate? Ethan felt a little hot, the gift was too expensive. Who doesn't know the names of the Book of Abraham of the Jews and the Emerald Record? The former made Nicholas Flamel the greatest alchemist of our time, and the latter was created by the god Hermes in Egyptian legend, condensing the knowledge of alchemy into 13 sentences and engraved on an emerald stone slab. This parchment scroll should be a rubbing of the Emerald Record. Do you think I still have the energy to study them now? He can't let go of alchemy now because of his hobbies and habits, and do some research and innovation, but this kind of thing that requires too much brain power, he has no brain power to burn. Seeing this, Ethan did not refuse, and accepted the Book of Abraham of the Jews and the Emerald Record. Then he couldn't wait to flip through it, wanting to see what was recorded in it. As soon as he got started, Ethan knew that the material of this book was neither animal skin nor paper, but something similar to tree bark, and the text and illustrations in it were branded by metal. The book is not thick, only 7 pages, a total of 21 pages. The most eye-catching are the 7 illustrations, and there are no written records of these illustrations. The first 7 pages show a staff with 2 snakes wrapped around it, one of which is devouring the other. The second 7 pages, which is page 14, show a cross, but it is not Jesus who is nailed to the cross, but a snake. The third 7 pages, which is page 21, show several clear springs emerging from a desert, and many snakes emerge from the springs. In addition, the 4th and 5th pages are each accompanied by 2 pictures. The first picture on the 4th page shows 2 people, a man with a hat, holding a double snake staff in his hand, and he is fighting against an old man with wings, who is flying in the air, with an hourglass on his head and a sickle in his hand, about to cut off his feet. The second picture on the 4th page is in color, with a beautiful flower growing on the top of a high mountain. The flower stem is blue, the flowers are white and red, and the leaves are golden. Below the picture is a griffin and a dragon building a nest on the hillside. The first picture on page 5 is a garden with a strange oak tree in the center. It is strange because it is hollow. A rose tree full of roses grows in the hollow part. There is also a fountain under the tree. The spring water is white liquid. The white spring water flows to the distance. A group of blind people squat on the ground and grope around, but they can't see or touch anything. The second picture on page 5 shows a king who is holding a big knife and ordering soldiers to kill many babies. The mothers of the babies kneel in front of them and beg for mercy. There are some containers similar to buckets and crucibles next to them. The blood of the babies is collected in them, and the sun and the moon bathe in the blood. In addition, there are some illustrations of flasks and crucibles similar to alchemical instruments in other parts, as well as a lot of text. Ethan was confused and didn't know what it was saying for a while. Nico was just watching from the side, not explaining anything. It was up to Ethan to figure it out. He taught Ethan to learn the Book of Abraham. The initial progress would be fast, but if he followed his own train of thought, Ethan would get stuck. Putting the Book of Abraham aside, Ethan opened the copy of the Emerald Record and found that it was full of ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics, which were mainly used in religion. He couldn't understand it at all and had to look up information. After having lunch with Nico and Pernell, Ethan reluctantly said goodbye to them. The two old men really regarded Ethan as their junior. Fortunately, according to Nico, although the Philosopher's Stone is difficult to make, they still have one in their hands. The news that the Philosopher's Stone was destroyed as bait to catch Voldemort was actually released by Dumbledore to prevent people from fighting Nico and his wife. What, you are leaving today? Fleur looked at Ethan in surprise, and the joy she had just felt because of Ethan's arrival suddenly disappeared. Well, Hogwarts will start school on September 1 st. After returning, I dare to rush to Cassandra's appointment. As for the Malfoy family, it depends on the situation. During this period, Ethan also came to Delacour Manor every few days. In Renard's words, combining work and rest, going out more often can improve efficiency. Beauxbatons is also on September 1st, but can't you stay at my house for 2 days? Yes, brother, there is still so much time, just stay with me at my house for 2 days, okay? Gabrielle hugged Ethan's thigh and refused to let go. Then leave tomorrow. It's been nearly 2 months since I came here, and there are still some things to deal with there. Ethan picked up Gabrielle, who was too soft-hearted. Give me your home address, and I'll send you a letter when the time comes. You must reply. Don't worry, I will definitely reply. Just send it to Hogwarts on school days. Can Song Owl send letters across the sea? Ethan was not sure. If there was a plane crash, the owl would be dead. Sure, my father also used an owl to send letters to Northern Europe, and Great Britain is closer than Northern Europe. It should be said that this owl is really awesome. Okay, as long as it's a letter from you, Fleur, I will definitely reply. Ethan also made a promise. And Gabrielle will also send a letter to her brother. Okay. Another smack. Fleur ignored it directly. Ethan came several times, and there was no time when he didn't see Gabrielle being honest. Now I'm used to it. I've prepared gifts for you. Ethan put the ruby a euro necklace and the brooch inlaid with sapphires on Dulu and Gabriel. The necklace is an alchemical item with armor engraved on it. You can use it by inputting magic power. You should have it at home, but I strengthened it with ancient magic words. It is also an application of eels, representing the horns of an elk, symbolizing the hand that offsets danger, and can greatly increase the performance of defense. Of course, it is still unable to resist the spell that can ignore the armor curse. This brooch has the word apparition engraved on it. If you encounter something that you can't solve, find a chance to leave. Fleur probably can't apparate now. You need to be 17 to learn it in Great Britain. The French Ministry of Magic should be similar. Both are defensive props. I like it very much. Delighted, Fleur imitated Gabrielle and tapped Ethan's cheek. We will be separated soon, and it will be difficult to see each other in a short time. Why do you still suppress yourself? Sister. Gabrielle was furious, staring at her sister with big eyes in disbelief. Next summer vacation, I will travel to your place. Ethan, you will receive me, right? Fleur didn't even look at her sister, her eyes were fixed on Yilin. Of course, no problem. In fact, I have learned how to make a door key. When it is made, I will send it to you. This is also what Ethan has gained from Nicole during this period. As for apparate, Ethan can't move from Paris to London. He still needs to take a plane to go home. Okay. We can meet each other during the holidays. Sister, take me with you when the time comes. Gabrielle, who was standing by, was anxious. She didn't even study, and couldn't use the necklace and brooch Ethan gave her. Even if the door key didn't have a threshold, he definitely wouldn't let her take it. Furong glanced at her. Why take her with you? Is it a joke? She was about to be in the 5th grade, and there were still 3 years to graduate. She would go directly to Great Britain to find Ethan. Gabrielle, you just wait in Beauxbatons. Chapter 88. August 21st, evening. Ethan, who had just arrived home, was faced with a pile of letters handed over by the servants. Ethan had told the servants at home when he went to Hogwarts to go to school that all the letters sent by owls should be kept. So, even if the servants were absolutely weird, they still carefully kept them. Ethan flipped through a few letters, including those from the twins Cedric, Harry, his roommate, Draco, and some other young assassins with whom he had a good relationship. The twins and Cedric invited Ethan to stay at their house for a while, and introduced their inventions this summer. The roommate complained about not being able to cast spells, and then introduced the interesting things this summer, and when he had time to make an appointment to play. Draco sent several letters, asking if Ethan was at home and when to visit him. Harry was thanking Ethan because Ethan helped him reconcile with his aunt's family and had a good summer, so he wanted to invite Ethan to visit the Dursleys. His uncle's family was also quite welcoming at this time. But Harry, why do you have to deliver mail even though it's so close? They are all in Surrey, and it only takes 10 minutes to ride a bike. The next step is to reply to letters. All those who sent letters to Ethan received a reply. The owls were busy these days, and then I called Hermione and the others to inform them that I had returned from France. For the next 3 days, Ethan was mainly at home with his parents. School was about to start again, and he wouldn't see them for several months. He took half a day off to go to London. I sat in a cafe outside with Hermione and Chujong for an afternoon, mainly talking about the time of this summer vacation. Of course, Ethan was the main person asked by the 2 girls. At the same time, I went to Nocturne Alley and picked up Onyxia. As soon as they met, Onyxia seemed particularly excited and spit on Ethan's face as an achievement. When he left, it was still a little guy with a body length of just over 2 meters. I didn't expect that in these 50 days, it would expand to 5 meters. According to the fact that it takes 2 years for a fire dragon to become an adult, it is still a baby of more than 3 months. In the future, it may have the opportunity to exceed 20 meters. Under normal circumstances, the body length of the Hebdi Island's black dragon is 30 feet, which is just a little short of 10 meters. As the largest fire dragon, Dolank Ironbelly is only 15 or 16 meters. And it can already fly stably. When Ethan left, Onyxia could only flap its wings and could not fly at all. Ethan tried riding on its back and flew well and stably, but it was a pity that he did not unlock the achievement of Dragon Rider. After saying hello to Dennis and others, Ethan put Onyxia and Nagini into the box together. When they parted, Ethan saw Dennis and the other two with tears of reluctance. It was not until he received the letter sent by Cassandra that Ethan prepared to go out. After all, he had promised it at the beginning. The Phantom team naturally could not go to a place that had never been there before. Either go to the black market to find a merchant who specializes in teleportation, or use the Muggle way of travel. In the end, Ethan chose the Muggle way of travel, taking a plane to Exeter in Devonshire, and then find a place to meet up there. It only takes an hour to get there by plane, which is quite convenient, and you can still know where you are. Fireplace plus flow powder. If you are not familiar with the local area, you don't even know where you are when you go out. There seem to be many famous wizards living in Devonshire. Nico said that he also has a residence here and lived here for a while, but eventually he went to France. After Newt Scamander retired, he also lived here with his wife and pets, but it is estimated that the British Ministry of Magic does not welcome him very much. By the way, whether I want to build a whole house here, a manor, a castle, etc., I can't afford it, but it should be okay for ordinary ones, but I spend most of my time in Hogwarts. There are no other wizards at home, which is a bit of a waste. Beside the X River, according to the location provided by Cassandra, Ethan successfully met her. Cassandra, you're beautiful again. Ethan gave her a hug when they met. She's still so flat. When will she grow up to your mother's size? But she's a little taller, and her long legs are great. Humph, you don't need me to tell you. Cassandra snorted arrogantly, but didn't push Ethan away. She missed Ethan very much after not seeing him for so long and not even contacting him. After a while, the two separated and walked hand in hand along the banks of the X River towards Cassandra's manor. Her manor is not far from here, but there is a Muggle repelling spell around it, so Muggles can't see it. I'm telling you, my mother is angry. She said she would come to my house as a guest, but she made her wait for so long, and the summer vacation is almost over. Also, my mother also knew that I took the fire escape bodyguard and the Gubular fairy fire at home last time, and she knew that you wanted them. Really? Of course, but she forgave you after my persuasion. This is all thanks to you. This is my gift to you. Fleur and Gabrielle had the same necklace and brooch. Of course, Hermione and Cho Chang also gave them to Ethan when they met. For Ethan, it was a wholesale product. As long as he had time, the success rate was 100%. Cassandra put it on with great excitement, and the smile on her face could not be concealed. Although it is a wholesale product, the effect is not bad, isn't it? It's just that Hogwarts has set up anti-apparition, so the effect of the brooch is greatly reduced. Next, Ethan introduced Cassandra's experience in France during this period, focusing on Nico's alchemy hut and his own studies, and other things were briefly mentioned. But Cassandra still grasped the key points. Halfway through, Cassandra's face, which was just smiling like a flower, suddenly became cold. So is Fleur Delacour, the half-blood Vila, very beautiful. As a pure blood, she naturally knew about Vilas. Some families even kept Vilas in captivity, and she had also seen them at pure blood banquets. It was displayed by the host family to show off. This creature is quite beautiful and has amazing charm. Even his father was attracted to it at the beginning, but was suppressed by his mother. As for the half-blood Vila, Cassandra didn't know. But she knew Ethan's aesthetics. He didn't like ugly girls at all. And it was too much that he could hook up with foreign girls just to learn alchemy. Very beautiful. Ethan nodded honestly. Like Hermione and the others, he was very good at grasping the key points. The first person he asked was not Nicholas Flamel and his alchemy hut, but Fleur. But I, Ethan, should be open and fearless in my life. There is no point in hiding. Sooner or later, you will meet the doctor. Humph. Cassandra snorted coldly, and the hand she had just held had reached Ethan's waist and turned 180 degrees. Now he is not satisfied with Hogwarts, and he has found those batons to find girls. He is really promising. If he doesn't restrain himself, will there be girls in Durmstrang and Ilvermorny in the future? Africa, Asia, all races gathered together, it's scary to think about it. It seems that I should have a good talk with them after school starts, and I can't let them go anymore. Arriving at the gate of the manor, Cassandra took Ethan's hand and walked into it again. She didn't need to hide anything at home, after all, her mother had clearly said that she would support her. As for her father, her mother suppressed him and said, there is nothing to leak. You are not lying. This manor is really big. Unlike the Delacour family's manor which is full of flowers and has various decorations, Cassandra's manor is simple and elegant, but it covers a large area. Of course I am not lying. I invited you to come, but you didn't come. Cassandra also remembered that she had invited Ethan during Christmas, but was rejected. It still took her mother's help. Isn't it here? Walking along the stone floor, she walked all the way to the front door, where Cassandra's parents, Amos and Belinda, were waiting. Cassandra's mother was particularly enthusiastic, and she didn't even care about her daughter, and pulled Ethan inside. She was very satisfied with everything about Ethan except that he liked to mess with girls. He was good enough to narrow the gap between pure blood and muggles, and maybe he would be the next Dumbledore or Voldemort. One reason was that Cassandra liked it. Once the child's character was confirmed, he would not listen to her at all, and she could not persuade him. For this reason, she could only choose to help Cassandra become the final winner. With Ethan's looks, talents, and future achievements, as long as Cassandra can secure her position as a wife, she can't control what happens next as long as Cassandra doesn't care. This kind of thing is not uncommon among purebloods, but her husband is so dominated by her that she doesn't have the courage. Anyway, she feels that her daughter has a great chance of winning. With this family and her looks, how can she lose? Not a perfect candidate for the first wife. Ethan gave Cassandra a look for help. He was too enthusiastic and couldn't bear it. Who knew that Cassandra turned a blind eye and seemed quite happy to follow her mother? Mr. Wally stood alone at the door in a petrified state. His daughter was taken away, and now even his wife ignored him. What a life. Amos, what are you doing? I'm coming. Hearing his wife's voice, the petrified Amos Wally shuddered instantly and hurried to the banquet hall. The family banquet of Cassandra's family was quite sumptuous. Except for Mr. Amos's silence, the laughter of Ethan, Cassandra, and Belinda lasted throughout the dinner. In the middle, there was a talk about Ethan's experience in France, things in the Muggle world, and some interesting things about Cassandra's childhood. Chapter 89. August 28th. There are still 3 days until the first day of school. Ethan and Cassandra stand at the gate of the manor together. Yesterday, Ethan and Cassandra went to Diagon Alley together to buy textbooks for the new school year, and then had ice cream at Floren's ice cream shop, sitting in the same place where they first met. In fact, Ethan had already bought them a long time ago, and he just bought them when he passed by Diagon Alley on his way to the alley. It was mainly Cassandra, who said she hadn't bought the textbooks yet, and she didn't say the specific reason. Ethan had no choice but to accompany her to Diagon Alley, and then stayed in her manor for another day. Originally, the two of them didn't need to buy extra textbooks. Before they entered school, they had almost bought all the textbooks for the required courses. But the textbooks for the Defense Against the Dark Arts course required this semester are different from the previous ones. They are novels written by Gilderoy Lockhart himself, which contain his experiences of fighting against dark wizards, magical creatures, etc. Although these are the experiences and adventures of others that he stole, the stories are true, and other people don't know that there is still some truth in them, otherwise it wouldn't be popular. It's just that the price is a bit expensive, costing more than 30 gold galleons in total. He has calculated the money of the little wizards from Muggle families, and it just happens that buying these this year can spend it all, right? A voice came from the sky. Ethan, this way. Ethan looked up, and a green car was flying in the sky. It didn't look very stable and there was a risk of falling at any time. George leaned out half of his body and shouted loudly at Ethan. On the day Ethan came back, when he wrote back to the Weasley twin brothers, he said that he was going to Cassandra's house. It wasn't long before school started, so he didn't have time to visit them. He would go next summer vacation. But he soon received a reply. The village of Ottery Catchpole where their family was located was also in Devonshire, dozens of miles away from the Weasley family's manor. After Ethan finished visiting Cassandra's house, they could come directly to pick Ethan up and take him to their house. As purebloods, they naturally knew the location of the Weasley manor. Even though they had not been invited to the Weasley family's banquet for many years, the location of the Weasley manor had not changed, and the Weasley family had also been glorious in the past. How about it, this is cool. If this car could not be driven out, they would have gone to Hogwarts to show off. This thing is much more exciting than a flying broom. Ethan gave a thumbs up below. He immediately had the idea of a euro getting a flying car. Even if it would not be used too often, it would be cool. Have fun, see you at Hogwarts. After Cassandra saw the car stop, she straightened Ethan's collar and turned to leave. What Ethan did not see was that her face turned red the moment she turned around. I don't know if what my mother taught me is useful. Cassandra muttered in her heart. After Ethan got in the car, the twin brothers sang in unison. Oh, are you meeting the parents? What about Penelope Clearwater? What about Chu Jong? And our Gryffindor Miss Know-It-All Hermione Granger? I just came here to stay for a day or two at the invitation of Mrs. Waller. Don't think too much. Really? The two brothers looked at Ethan as if you were taking us for idiots. Is the door of the Waller family so easy to enter? Is it really okay for you to turn your head and chat with passengers while driving? Well, there is nothing wrong with driving without looking at the road. There is no danger of a car accident when driving in the sky, it is just more bumpy. What's wrong with this car? Ethan didn't want to dwell on this topic and couldn't explain it to the two single dogs. My father remodeled it. He is very interested in everything about Muggles. He works in the misuse of Muggle artifacts department of the Ministry of Magic and is now the office director. So your father really abused his power. He was in charge of misusing Muggle artifacts, but he used it himself. Ethan looked at the twins with a teasing look on his face. It can only be said that pure-blood families have advantages. This department is actually most suitable for Muggle-born wizards, but it is still controlled by pure-bloods. In the original book, this flying car was discovered by Muggles and published in the newspaper, but their father was still fine. It can be seen that this ban is not aimed at pure-bloods. Muggles are still targeted. With a few exceptions, only Muggle-born wizards will use Muggle items and modify these items. The original book mainly prohibits the modification of Muggle items, George refuted on the spot. You can't say that. If you don't get caught, it doesn't count as a violation of the regulations, right? It's a good old tradition of Hogwarts. Arthur Weasley doesn't seem to be a quiet person. I remember that he was caught by the administrator before Filch and was severely punished. That's right, otherwise we will all be expelled. The three looked at each other and laughed. By the way, Ethan, what is Nicholas Flamel's home like? Do you know how to make the Philosopher's Stone? They admire Nicholas Flamel very much. If they have his skills, the quantity and quality of prank products will rise sharply. Especially the Philosopher's Stone, which can turn stone into gold. With it, there will be no shortage of longs in the future. After Ethan came back from France, he wrote to a few people and told them that he went to Nicholas Flamel to learn alchemy. Now there is no need to hide anything. Do you think I can do it? I really can. Nico taught me this. I just haven't experimented with it. The refining requirements of this thing are very high. There are two ways to make it. The first one is to use a large number of creatures with magic power to generate the Philosopher's Stone in the alchemy array. They must be alive, and the higher the magic power in their bodies, the better. It doesn't matter if they are wizards or magical animals. Nico had experimented with a large number of magical animals at the beginning, but found that the number was still not enough, and only semi-finished products could be produced. Later, he found a place with abundant magic power and used extremely rich magic power to refine the Philosopher's Stone, which was successful. However, such a place is not easy to find, and after using it once, it takes a lot of time to recover, which seriously limits the output of the Philosopher's Stone. Hogwarts should be a place with abundant magic power that the four founders found together at the beginning, which may be the reason why it has been able to operate for so many years. That's the Philosopher's Stone. How can you not do it? The twins' faces fell, as if they had lost something. Then Ethan introduced Nicholas Flamel's home to them. The brothers were very excited to hear it, and they all started to complain about Dumbledore. Why didn't they send their brothers to learn? As they chatted, the car flew over the village of Otterest Catchpole. The Weasley family lived on the outskirts of the village. The house was built with wizard characteristics. Like Diagon Alley, it was a crooked and weird building with several chimneys. There was a pigsty built with stones in front of the house, with several big white pigs in it, and a pond and a vegetable garden on the side. If the house was normal, Ethan would think it was a farmyard in the countryside of England. Which pure-blood wizard feeds pigs and grows vegetables by himself? It's too low class. The Weasley family members who heard the roar of the car ran out to greet Ethan. Mr. Weasley was not there because of work. Harry was also seen among them, which was not surprising to Ethan. In the letter he received, he said that he had visited Ronald's house. If Ethan replied, he would send it directly there. Kid, welcome to the burrow. Molly came forward and gave Ethan a hug. He had heard his twin son say Ethan's name many times. Harry was also quite familiar with him, but they had not met officially until today. Ethan, what does Nicholas Flamel look like? I heard he is 600 years old. After saying hello, Harry came over. He was quite curious about Nicholas Flamel. After all, because of his Philosopher's Stone, he had experienced an adventure that almost cost him his life. Very old, the elixir of life cannot prevent the aging of the body. Several people came to the burrow while chatting and laughing. Molly was in a hurry to prepare lunch while Ethan and others sat in the living room and chatted. There were fudge and juice prepared in advance on the table. Ethan threw one into his mouth. It tasted quite good, not so sweet, full of frankincense. It should be made by Molly herself. Look over there, this is the dwarf puff we bred, what do you think? Following Fred's finger, Ethan saw a furry ball on the windowsill. Is this Puff? Ethan really didn't notice it. There is a book about where the magical beasts are. It is a very common animal, distributed all over the world. A magical animal of level XX, that is, harmless, has a spherical body covered with soft fur, and a gentle personality. It will not get angry even if it is thrown around. It's just that this thing has a very long and thin tongue, which will stick into the wizard's nostrils to eat the wizard's boogers when the wizard is sleeping, which Ethan can't accept. If you can breed a large number of them, there should be a market for them in Hogwarts. Ethan couldn't accept it, but the kids in the wizarding world liked it. And the size of this, if it was an adult, was only 1/3 of the size of a normal puff, and it could be carried in a pocket. Those little witches probably couldn't refuse it. We thought so too, this will definitely make a lot of money. Ethan, are you interested in investing? Fred rubbed his hands and looked at Ethan with a mercenary look. No, don't you two have hundreds of gold galleons together? Ethan looked at the two brothers in disbelief. Just relying on his own BAFE brain-stimulating agent, the two of them earned more than 400 gold galleons in more than a month before the exam. Even if some of it was spent on experiments this summer, it's impossible to use it up. Their small props cost very little and didn't use any precious materials. It's all Gilderoy Lockhart's fault. If it weren't for him, we wouldn't be like this. Speaking of this, the two brothers wanted to cry but had no tears. They bought a lot of raw materials just after the holiday, and planned to do a big job this summer vacation. After all, they were not short of money. They also promised to buy a new set of textbooks, wizard robes, wands, etc. for their favorite sister Ginny, and they would cover the expenses. I thought it was only 70 gold galleons, which was nothing. They earned it in less than a week during the final period. But when they received the letter from Hogwarts at the end of July, they were stunned. The new professor of defense against the dark arts, Ma Zhao, Yuk designated textbooks, and a set cost more than 30 gold galleons, which was almost the price of all other subject textbooks added together. If it was just that, the two would not be like this. The key is that the Weasley family is poor, and they don't save money. They spend as much as they have. Going on a trip after winning the lottery shows that they are not used to saving money. In previous years, Bill and Charlie's old books could be used as textbooks, but this year, it's not possible. The Weasley family had a lot of expenses, as all 5 children needed it. The pressure now fell on the twins. If they had no money, the pressure would be on Arthur. In the end, the twins paid for the textbooks for 5 people, and Ginny alone spent nearly 100 gold galleons. The twins went bankrupt on the spot, and they were so angry that they almost scolded Gilderoy Lockhart in front of him. You came to Hogwarts to take classes just to boost sales for your own books, right? Bang. Okay, how many galleons do you need? Ethan couldn't help laughing after knowing the reason. 30 gold galleons will be enough. This is because the twins have been used to spending lavishly recently. In the past, they had to be cautious when asking for 10 gold galleons. The school has just started, and this Bayfi Brainwakener is not easy to sell. In addition, the breeding speed of this dwarf puff is not fast. If you want to form a scale of sales, you must start quickly. That's why I want Ethan to invest. Ethan directly took out 30 gold galleons and handed them to them, indicating that they could deduct the amount from their sales in the future. This touched the twins so much that they almost called for their father. At lunchtime, the Weasleys' dishes were not rich, but they were quite sufficient. Each person had 7 or 8 sausages, fried eggs, ham and potatoes, and they were quite full. Chapter 90. In the afternoon, the Weasley family's garden was a bit noisy. The twins and Ronald were sent by Molly to clean up the goblins, and Ethan and Harry followed. Harry introduced the goblins on the side. He had seen them when he first came, and was bitten. Look, this is a goblin. Fred, George, and Ronald dug out a goblin from the hole, and immediately each of them had a goblin in their hands. The little thing was still kicking their hands with its short legs. Let me go. Let me go. The small body, rough and tough skin, and bald big head looked like a potato. Wouldn't my animal affinity work on this thing? This thing looked even more disgusting than the mortar rat. Mom asked us to learn the methods in Gilderoy Lockhart's book to deal with them. To be honest, it's not as good as our own methods. Fred was unhappy with Gilderoy Lockhart now. I think he's a liar. Ronald hated him the first time he saw him. Of course he wouldn't admit that it was because he was jealous of Gilderoy Lockhart's popularity. Then the three people's movements were quite unified. They lifted the goblin's ankles and spun their hands like a pendulum. The last one was far away. You can't hurt it like this. Ethan was a little confused about their operation. The goblins were thick-skinned and could not be killed by this little force. It can't hurt them, but it can make them dizzy and unable to find the way back to the goblin cave. That means they will come back. Yes, but they will be quiet today. George nodded affirmatively. They have been treating goblins like this since they were young. It can be said that they have a clear understanding of the behavior patterns of these ugly little guys. This is a pest like the fox, and it will harm the garden. Why not just kill them? When dealing with pests, normal people's thinking should be to eradicate them. This behavior of catching and letting go is puzzling. Ethan also took out a goblin from the cave and looked at it in his hand. But after hearing what Ethan said, this guy shrank into a ball and trembled. This person wanted to get close to him. He seemed to be a good person, so he didn't struggle and let Ethan grab him. However, his words were so scary that the goblin was almost scared to death. And Ethan also noticed this. Is he so smart? Being able to speak and understand what humans say is already better than most magical animals, and he also has a certain amount of wisdom. A distant poor relative of the goblins? Not really, not really. Although they are quite noisy, they just steal some food or something. My dad likes them very much and thinks they are very interesting. Harry, how do we treat pests there? Interesting? This thing, no matter how you look at it, has nothing to do with interesting. Kill the pests with medicine, and there are special pest control companies. Ever since Harry was bitten by the goblins, he no longer felt sorry for them. George and the other two didn't know what to say. Maybe they were too tolerant of these goblins. Otherwise, the other wizard families in Ottery St. Catchpole village only had occasional flies, but their own home was almost a goblin base. Can you walk by yourself? Ethan threw the goblin to the ground. It was someone else's home, so it was not easy for Ellen to make decisions on his own. If this was his home, he would dig 3 feet deep to drive out these ugly things. Yet. The goblin that fell to the ground got up and nodded frantically. It could feel that Ethan really wanted to kill it. It immediately ran outside frantically, and soon disappeared without a trace after climbing over the fence. It decided that as long as this demon was still here, it would not come back. Let me try. Ronald stared at the scene with wide eyes. Just one sentence could make the goblin go away quickly. If he could do the same, he would be great. As expected, he was bitten and couldn't pull it off no matter how hard he tried. In the end, it was Harry who helped. The two of them pulled it down together. Ronald immediately ran back to the burrow with a dark face, embarrassed. The goblins are flying. Originally Ethan just wanted to try it, but he didn't expect it to work. A series of more than 10 goblins were pulled out from several caves, lined up in a long line and struggled in the air until they were thrown into the pond in the distance. Magical animals generally have quite good magic resistance, and wizards also have it, but not as high as magical animals. This goblin seems to have extremely low magic resistance among magical animals. Harry looked at this familiar scene, and the corners of his mouth kept twitching. Although he said that he could accept anything to deal with Voldemort, it was still painful to recall this scene. Ethan, sometimes I really wonder if you are the old wizard who drank the potion of rejuvenation. It was so depressing. I had just learned the flying spell and had already surpassed my peers by a large margin. This was not the magic I should learn at this age. And I was already a genius in my father's words, the best among my peers, but Ethan used the flying spell to pull out a bunch of goblins. If I read it correctly, he didn't even use a magic wand. Sometimes the gap between people is greater than that between people and trolls. Cedric, you are here too. Ethan stretched out his hand and said hello. My house is over there. I want to invite you to visit me tonight. Cedric pointed in a direction and said to Ethan. Cedric, are you here to rob someone? Yes, the Lovegood family is not far from my home. The girl is very cute and has very fair skin. Ethan, don't you want to meet her? Cedric raised his eyebrows at Ethan and showed a look that you know. I didn't expect that you, with thick eyebrows and big eyes, would be such a Cedric. Don't worry. I will definitely come. Of course, it must be a joke to say that I will go to find the girl. If I go to meet her, I am afraid that her father will treat her as a pervert and kick her out. Then write the names of several people in their magazine, and their reputation will be ruined. Even if this may spread Ethan's name and brush an achievement, Ethan doesn't want it. I don't know which college she will be assigned to. I don't think she will go to Gryffindor. Fred sighed. They still feel sorry for Luna, a little girl. She used to be quite normal. Since her mother died accidentally during an experiment 2 years ago, both Luna and her father have changed. Hufflepuff probably won't work either, she's too independent and eccentric, most likely Ravenclaw. Cedric also interrupted, Doc, Hufflepuff is very tolerant, but Luna is too weird and lonely, not quite in line with Hufflepuff's standards. Are you saying Ravenclaw is independent and eccentric, or is she as weird and crazy as that girl? It seems necessary to talk to a few seniors after returning to school. You don't have to think about finding a girlfriend during your Hogwarts life, even if you find one secretly, they can mess it up for you. Ethan looked at the few people with a smirk on his face. Not to mention that Ravenclaw occupies the highest quality group of girls in the school, they also have a lot of girlfriends. The most feared thing about dating is that the girlfriends mess it up. I was wrong. Cedric was the first to apologize. This holiday he thought about it, Ethan is already cultivating a girlfriend, from seniors to people of the same age, and the juniors will depend on the freshmen who enroll this year. If nothing goes wrong, his future wife will also graduate from Hogwarts. The British wizarding world has only this small population, and there is only this school. When the time comes, it will be either the same age or seniors or juniors. There is no other choice. If I don't act in advance now, everyone will be someone's ex-girlfriend in the future. Who knows how many times they have been together? Are you talking about me just now? The few people who were talking and laughing and about to enter the burrow were stunned in place, turning their heads stiffly. Dark golden brown hair, slightly protruding eyes, pale skin, very light eyebrows, a pair of carrot-shaped earrings, and a necklace made of butterbeer bottle corks. Dressed quite strangely. Ethan gave Cedric a look. Did you bring it? Cedric replied to Ethan, I'm not here. Even Fred and George were stunned, only Harry didn't care, because he didn't say anything and couldn't get a word in. Ginny invited me here. And there are disturbances in your ears, a lot. After saying that, he called Ginny's name, and then the two girls left together. I said it was crazy. Ethan, don't worry about it, the disturbance is just her imagination, it doesn't exist. Ethan didn't care about these, he was a natural legilimency, just like Newt's commander's sister-in-law. One look and you can tell what Ethan and others want to ask, and the so-called disturbance, if nothing unexpected happens, is a series of negative emotions such as confusion, distress, irritability, etc. in the minds of several people. Back at the burrow, George took out a piece of custard biscuits from somewhere, which looked good. Ethan, you should try them, they taste good. No, just eat it yourself. Ethan shook his head and refused. It is best not to put the things handed over by the twins into your mouth. I told you that Ethan would not be fooled. Then I will eat it myself. George said indifferently, and then chewed and swallowed it directly. Originally, this matter was asked to Ronald, but after the twin brothers went bankrupt, they could not pay the medicine man, so Ronald naturally refused to do it. Soon, George began to grow feathers and wings under Ethan's nose, until he completely turned into an oversized canary. How did he do this? In the human body deformation and transfiguration, Ethan can also turn other people into animals, but this is strictly prohibited. Does the potion have this effect? After about a minute, the feathers on George's body began to fall off until he completely turned back to human form. Ethan, this minute is too short. Do you know how to improve it? George and Fred knew that Ethan's level was above them in both potions and alchemy. 1 minute is really short. Ethan nodded affirmatively. Then the three began to discuss this thing. Ethan thinks this is still very promising, an animal version of polyjuice potion. After adding animal hair to polyjuice potion, it does not turn into an animal, but into a half-human, half-animal form. This is different, a pure animal, but the time is too short and the body is too large. If it can be improved, everyone can use the animagus form. It must be remembered in the history of potions. Until Arthur came back from get off work, Ethan was pulled out by the excited Arthur, and this was not discussed at all. Since Arthur learned from his two sons that Ethan, who was going to visit, had studied with Nicholas Flamel, he was more excited than the twins. The twins like to make prank products, while Arthur likes to transform muggle items. Nicholas Flamel happened to be the most skilled among them. Chapter 91. September 1st. In front of King's Cross Station, Ethan took Penelope out of the car, still holding a suitcase in his hand. Ethan came back from Ottery Catchpole Village yesterday, and this time he used apparition to go directly to Nocturne Alley. These 2 days, I talked a lot with the twins' father about car modification. He has taken a big step in this regard, and the results are quite good. This car doesn't look good, but it is actually intelligent, can move by itself, has its own ideas, does not need to burn oil, has a stealth mode to prevent being discovered, etc. Ethan has so much communication, naturally he also has ideas. For this reason, Ethan directly drove his father's beloved car McLaren F1 in the garage into the box of the Traceless expansion spell, and transformed it after going to Hogwarts. This is the McLaren F1 he just bought this year, and it is also the latest model of this year. The model is quite handsome and is a well-deserved top sports car of this era. It also took a lot of effort to buy it. Normally, Ethan was treated like a treasure by his father. Naturally, he didn't tell him that he wanted this car. He just acted first and asked for permission later. Only this type of car is worth modifying. If you just get a sedan or off-road, wouldn't it be a waste of materials? If you want to modify it well, it not only takes time, but also consumes a lot of materials. Penelope also came from Plymouth by train yesterday. She used to arrive a day earlier, but she always stayed in a hotel. Now, of course, she lives directly at Ethan's house. I feel like I lost this summer vacation. What's wrong? Penelope, who was wearing a plaid shirt, jeans and marten boots, turned her head and looked at Ethan in confusion. She was going to school, so she naturally couldn't wear black silk high-heeled short skirts. Besides, it was a bit cold in London in September. You promised to be my maid in the summer vacation, so I taught you a lot. You're not at home this summer vacation, where can I be a maid? Penelope rolled her eyes. Can I blame her? Continue next year. Ethan looked at Penelope expectantly, still looking forward to her maid outfit. When Penelope agreed to him, Dumbledore hadn't talked to him yet, so he could only say that plans can't keep up with changes. The real time for the summer vacation is only the first half of the month, and he can't let her not go home and be a maid in his house first. Think about it, and talk about it next year. What are you still thinking about? Just take it over next year. Haha. She was also quite bored at home this summer vacation, so she might as well be a maid at Ethan's house, provided that Ethan is at home. She can't practice magic at home, and she hasn't been in touch with the Muggle world for several years. She has no common topics at all, and she can't even find someone to go shopping with. Song and Glay reads books at home. Soon the two of them came to the stone pillar on platform 9 3/4, surrounded by many young wizards looking around. The 2 workers I saw last year are still here. Unknowingly, a year has passed. After passing through the stone pillar, Ethan said goodbye to Penelope. As a class leader, she was very busy at this time. At the end of the year, even first-year wizards have experienced the Hogwarts Express at least once, but freshmen at the beginning of the school year have no such experience. After getting on the train, Ethan began to look for a seat, and soon found Cassandra. She was still the only one in her compartment. Opening the compartment door, Ethan walked in and sat next to her. Cassandra, take out your summer homework and let me learn from it. As he said that, Ethan also moved, and 4 parchments and 4 quills were placed on the table one by one. There are 8 courses this year, and there is no homework for flying class because it is not in the 2nd grade. There was no homework in the defense against the dark arts class, because the professor failed before the homework was assigned. It was the fake Quirrell, and Ethan didn't know what was going on with the real Quirrell. He didn't ask Dumbledore, and didn't care about it. Ethan was too good at charms and transfiguration, so there was no need to waste time on these 2 subjects. Professor Flitwick and Professor McGonagall exempted Ethan from these 2 homeworks. So now there are only 4 subjects left, namely potions, astronomy, history of magic, and herbology. And this quill was also specially made, based on the transformation of the shorthand quill and the automatic quill. The shorthand quill is a strange thing that can make simple sentences become fancy. The automatic quill is the kind that is banned in exams and can automatically answer questions. And Ethan's quill has a similar function, not to become fancy, nor to automatically answer questions, but to rewrite and expand based on the original materials. As long as he has it, when someone does homework in the future, Ethan doesn't need to write it himself. How convenient. Ethan had the idea to invent this at Nico's place, and spent some time to make it. As far as the young wizards at Hogwarts are concerned, the whole school together is not enough to beat Ethan, and he still needs to do homework at this level. Ethan, you don't do homework again. As soon as Hermione entered the carriage, she saw Ethan fiddling with a quill and Cassandra's homework, and immediately knew what was going on. Last time in the cafe, she asked him if he had finished his homework, and he said he had done it. So he had done it. I originally said that I wanted to help him with his homework. Keep your voice down, do you want to attract everyone here? Go and see how many people are doing homework at this time, and most of them are from your Gryffindor. Although there are many people who make up homework, Ethan still has to be a little older. It's not good to say that a genius from Ravenclaw copied homework. But you are Ravenclaw. Hermione was indignant. She had no way to deal with the learning atmosphere in Gryffindor, and she couldn't control it. It was already rotten, and it was the same from the 1st grade to the 7th grade. However, he didn't want to see Ethan fall like this. Do you think these assignments are of any use to Ethan? Cassandra glanced at Hermione, then turned her head and glared at Ethan fiercely, and turned her head after a long time. She just wanted to find fault with Hermione. Now she was very unhappy and wanted to vent her anger. I thought that only I had this gift, but I didn't expect Hermione also had it. Since Hermione had it, then Chujong and Penelope must have it too, maybe all the half-blood villas in France have it. The thing that made me happy for so long turned out to be a mass-produced product. This is assigned by the professors to verify our learning and expand our knowledge. Hermione frowned and looked at Cassandra. What is the ultimate purpose of the homework? It is to improve the strength and knowledge reserve of wizards, but these first-year contents are of no help to Ethan. You let him do his homework by himself, which is just a waste of his time. Or have you followed all the rules and regulations of Hogwarts? Miss Gryffindor, the know-it-all. At this moment, Cassandra was very blunt and Hermione was speechless. Same **X repulsion, especially when they are the same age and in opposing colleges, which makes them even more unhappy with each other. In addition, Cassandra is still angry at the moment, so she will be even less polite. What's going on? Chujong looked at this strange atmosphere, put away the salute, and asked Ethan. Ethan did not speak, but just gave her a look. Chujong nodded immediately. Ethan naturally knew the reason why Cassandra said that, and he understood it the moment she turned her head and glared at him. Cassandra's possessiveness is quite strong. If Ethan hadn't been able to suppress her, would he have had a harem? I'm afraid her legs would have to be broken, and she would have to live in a wheelchair in the future. But now that Chujong is mediating, the atmosphere is not so stiff. She is the kind of person who doesn't fight or compete, and has a good emotional intelligence. With her in the middle, Hermione and Cassandra can't quarrel. In the future, we should do more to improve our physical fitness. Not only should we suppress them in strength, but we should also win in bed, and it must be an overwhelming victory. Otherwise, this situation will probably not be rare in the future. I envy the brothers who have harmonious harems. Bang. 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 A rapid knocking sound sounded. Is it on fire or something? Why are you panicking? Ethan waved his hand, and the door of the carriage was directly opened. Ethan, what is this? George forgot what he was going to say when he entered the door, and looked at the feather pen on the table with surprise. Automatic quill pen can automatically answer questions, but it can't write papers, and the answers of the quill pen are the same, not a single word will be changed. Except for Professor Spence, other professors can see it at a glance, and it is not easy to use for homework. Ethan's quill pen is obviously not an automatic quill pen. Is there a new model? How come I don't know? As a member of Gryffindor, like most people, he doesn't want to do homework and urgently needs a new quill pen to help him. I'm researching a little gadget. What's wrong with you? Get out of the way. Pulling George away, Ginny walked in anxiously. It's Harry and Ronald. We searched the entire train and found no trace of them. Did you see them? She was worried about Harry, of course. As for Ronald, this could only be incidental. Didn't you come together? Ethan remembered that Harry said that he would go to Hogwarts with several teachers from the Weasley family on the 1st of the month. Before entering the pillar, we were together, and we haven't seen them since then. Ginny's face was a little depressed. She should have been more careful, but they had already experienced it once last year, so how could they get lost again? I think you should look over there. Chujong pointed out the car window and said to the few people. Ginny and George and Fred behind her were stunned when they heard the words, looking out the car window. What does this mean? But they still looked in the direction of Chujang's finger. Ethan, Hermione, and Cassandra were also attracted. The endless wilderness and the mountains that rise and fall one after another, this is nothing. Suddenly, a green thing jumped into the sky. A closer look showed that it was a car. The driver was a red-haired child. In addition, there was another unlucky guy hanging on the car door and was about to fall off. Fortunately, the boy had amazing arm strength, and with the help of the driver, he was pulled up safely. But you two, where is your magic? Really use the magic wand as a fire stick? Originally, Ethan remembered that there was a Voldemort's Horcrux notebook. Now I remembered, there is also a house elf pit. Harry's face is bloody. Today's 4th update, it can be considered an extra update. Beg. Chapter 92. Harry and Ronald, and a car flying in the sky. Hermione rubbed her eyes and confirmed again, only then she realized that she was not dazzled, there was really a car flying. Ronald, he actually drove out the car. Fred was a little unbelievable, something was going to happen. Whether they went to pick up Harry and Ethan or circled over the village of Otterest Catchpole, they all turned on the invisible mode, and only appeared when they picked up people. Ronald drove out in a swagger. Isn't this causing trouble for the family? And take Harry with you. Ginny's face was also extremely ugly. Especially when Harry was hanging on the car door just now, he wanted to hammer Ronald to death. What is Ronald thinking? George was full of doubts, he knew Ronald wanted to be in the limelight and wanted to attract attention. But this is not the way. If he implicated his father, he might even be expelled, and Harry was there. Listening to the words of these 3 people, they probably sentenced Ronald to death in their hearts. And there is such speculation, Dad was expelled from the Ministry of Magic, Harry and Ronald were expelled. This is definitely a result like the collapse of the sky. But the premise of all this is that the Weasley family is not pure blood, and Dumbledore will not interfere. Ronald is the son of his loyal younger brother, and Harry is the savior he trained. Dumbledore will definitely make a big deal out of a small matter, and it will only be a matter of deducting points. Gryffindor is not 100 and will deduct points before the start of school. Hermione's focus is a little different. She still attaches great importance to honor. Last year, because of Snape plus Gryffindor itself has many stubborn people dragging their feet. This school year is still ready to work hard, but before the start of school, this year's college cup is over. Don't worry, it will definitely be deducted. Do you think Professor Snape will let go of this opportunity? Ethan hit mercilessly. At this time, Ronald and Harry outside also noticed the situation in this carriage and slowly approached. Ethan, Ginny. Harry waved frantically in this direction, but his hand froze after noticing the expressions of the people inside. These people were looking at him with pity. Why? Harry didn't quite understand, but Ronald knew, and immediately sped up and rushed to the school, wanting to enter Hogwarts in advance, and then hide the car, which might be concealed. But just now, when they approached, everyone in the Hogwarts Express discovered them. Let's go find Percy and ask him to inform Professor McGonagall about the quill pen. We'll come back to you when we get to Hogwarts. Fred said as he pulled Ginny away quickly. This matter could not be concealed. He was not as optimistic as Ronald. The car was not invisible. It might be exposed to the eyes of Muggles. Even if the Muggles did not see it, it would be a big problem if so many young wizards saw it. I wonder if Professor McGonagall can save it. There is naturally a way to contact Hogwarts on the train, but it can only be used by the prefects. They will not be expelled. To be honest, Hermione really had this idea. Although it was a bit inappropriate, they knew each other after all. But they were too troublesome. Last year, they were the main force of Gryffindor's deduction of points. Although they were inexplicably added 50 points, it was not enough to offset their deduction. Without them, there is no hope this year. Maybe they can compete for the ownership of the College Cup next year. No, he is the savior. We were all expelled, and he will not be expelled. Ethan said affirmatively. Hermione frowned, not knowing what she was thinking. Chujong and Cassandra nodded thoughtfully, obviously agreeing with Ethan's opinion. Cassandra knew that Voldemort was back and was still entangled with Harry. What did Chujong think of? Soon, the matter of Harry and Ronald was forgotten by everyone. Under Chujang's leadership, Cassandra and Hermione also began to talk about their interesting stories this summer vacation. As the sky darkened, the speed of the Hogwarts Express gradually slowed down. Ethan and others also changed into wizard robes. At the moment the train stopped, they followed the flow of people to the center of the platform. This year's freshman guide was still Hagrid, who was waiting by the side with a lamp and waiting for everyone to get off the train. But this had nothing to do with Ethan, who was already in the second year. After saying hello to Hagrid, he went to the location of the Thestral carriage. They arrived at the Hogwarts Quidditch venue smoothly along the way. After Ethan and the others got off the bus here, they separated and headed for their respective college teams. In front of them, there was an old man with many alchemical limbs who was collecting the Thestrals. He was the one who did this every year. Before the young wizards got on the bus, he put the reins on the Thestrals, and after the young wizards got off the bus, he had to untie the reins. I heard that this is Professor Kettleburn's last year. Chujong took the care of magical creatures class, but at that time a senior student told her that Professor Kettleburn had decided to retire, and the senior student was quite excited. The reason was also explained later. Professor Kettleburn liked to use dangerous magical animals in class, and accidents happened from time to time, so that they had to be nervous every time they had the care of magical creatures class. Well, Professor Kettleburn is probably 100 years old, and it's time for him to retire. Ethan also remembered that Hagrid was the professor of care of magical creatures when Harry was in the third year. When he patrolled with Hagrid before, he heard Hagrid say that the two had a good relationship, and Kettleburn also helped him a lot. Ethan felt that the reason why the two could get along well was because they both liked extremely dangerous magical animals, but because Hagrid was a half-giant, he had good physical fitness and nothing happened, while Kettleburn only had one hand and half a leg left. So old. Chujong was a little surprised. When the previous headmaster Armando Dippet was in office, Professor Kettle Potter had already taught at Hogwarts. But Ethan didn't say that this professor had caused a lot of trouble and had a very stiff relationship with the then headmaster Armando Dippet. Senior Sister Ivana said that the magical creature protection class. The two of them chatted all the way to the auditorium, but this year's auditorium was a little strange. There was no problem with the scene arrangement, but Professor McGonagall, who was responsible for the reception of freshmen and presided over the sorting ceremony in previous years, was nowhere to be seen. Snape, the big bat on the teacher's seat, was not there, and Dumbledore, who was in the center position, did not come either. Not long after, Professor Sprout stood up and walked out of the auditorium. In other words, this year's reception was Professor Sprout. Because of Harry and Ronald's matter, this year's opening dinner omitted quite a few steps. Professor Sprout brought the freshmen directly over without letting them wait. Ethan saw Luna standing out from the crowd at a glance. She was still wearing carrot-shaped earrings and a necklace made of butterbeer bottle corks. She really attracted attention wherever she went. Next to her was Ginny, but she looked quite depressed. After the new wizard stood up, the Sorting Hat began to sing once a year. This was a song that had been thought of for a year. Even if Dumbledore was not there, he had to sing it. As the song that had been thought of for a year but was still lousy ended, the sorting ceremony began. As Professor Sprout read out the names, the wizards came forward and led their houses for sorting. Just like when Ethan and others were sorted in the first year, every time a wizard put on the hat, the house that was sorted by the Sorting Hat would applaud and cheer for him. Luna Lovegood. Soon it was Luna's turn. She jumped forward, and with carrot-shaped earrings and a necklace made of butterbeer bottle corks, she really looked like a crazy girl. However, after Luna picked up the sorting hat, she did not sit on the stool and put on the hat immediately, but kept flipping through it in her hand. It seemed that she had other ideas. Suddenly, the Sorting Hat cried out in a panic. This was the first time many people heard the Sorting Hat say anything other than singing in the names of the 4 major colleges. Pomona, stop her quickly, she wants to clean me and then. I'm not shabby or dirty at all. This is a symbol of honor. Every year, many little wizards have such ideas. They dislike their own dirtiness and want to mend and clean themselves, but they just think about it in their minds and will not put it into action. Only this little witch is really brave. It can sense that if no one stops it, it will definitely be cleaned and mended. As a hat with 1,000 years of history, and also the hat of Gryffindor, the founder of Hogwarts, it is also blessed with the ideas of the 4 founders, and it also has its own persistence and pride. The dirt and traces on it are all symbols of honor, representing that it has accompanied the Hogwarts Kyunku. Miss Lovegood. Professor Sprout had to come forward, and there could be no accidents in the sorting ceremony. If the Sorting Hat was annoyed, it would go on strike, which would be a mess. Retracting her gaze with regret, Luna sat on the stool helplessly and put the hat on. Ravenclaw. Although Luna's dress and behavior were a bit weird, Ravenclaw still gave her fierce applause. Ginny Weasley. When Ginny came on stage, there were not many freshmen. But before the sorting began, Gryffindor burst into amazing cheers, especially Fred and George had stood up. They had already determined that Weasley belonged to Gryffindor. But after Ginny put on the hat, there was still no result for 3 full minutes. Gryffindor. Ethan was relieved to see Ginny, and it was obvious that she was also discussing with the Sorting Hat and insisted on going to Grantham. If it weren't for her family and Harry, it might not be Gryffindor. Just like Percy, he was ambitious, excellent, and pure blood, so Slytherin was his home. He chose Gryffindor just because the Weasleys were all Gryffindors. The people in the Weasley family are actually quite excellent and absolutely worthy of the name of pure bloods. 5.7 Dad Arthur, he is quite strong and good at alchemy. Mom Molly, killed Bellatrix alone. Bill, with 12 certificates, went to work at Gringotts. Charlie went to the Dragon Sanctuary. If he didn't have enough strength, he would be looking for death. Percy, he had 12 certificates last school year and had a bright future. Twins, not fond of studying, but talented in spells, alchemy, and potions, the best among their peers. Ginny, like her mother, is good at playing the game of Shattered Bones, and later she was invited to join the Slug Club, which proved her potential. Harry, Hermione, and Ginny were all invited. Guess who was left out? Ginny got the desired result, and her expression was also a little excited, and she ran to the Gryffindor table. Until the end of the sorting ceremony, Dumbledore led Professor Snape and Professor McGonagall back, and Harry and Thorn followed behind. Snape's face was dark, probably because his goal was not achieved again. Harry was definitely the first one who could make a headmaster and 2 professors miss the opening dinner by himself. After Dumbledore spoke a few words, he asked the prefect to lead everyone back to the common room. Apparently, he was not in the mood to talk nonsense like he did last year. The matter of Harry and Ronald was enough to give him a headache. Chapter 93. The dinner ended. The heads of all levels led the students of the academy to the common room, but most of them were freshmen or people who wanted to watch the fun. As for the rest of the class, it can only be said that this restless grade of youth is not so quiet. There are Slytherin, Hufflepuff, Gryffindor, the 3 outer houses, and Ravenclaw's own students. Ethan saw more than one boy coming to find the seniors of Ravenclaw. Basically all of them were above the 3rd year. Of course, not all of them succeeded, and many failed. Ethan also left at this moment. But he did not go to the room of requirement, but went to the lawn outside Hogwarts. The target was the Whomping Willow. The Whomping Willow is a very precious plant. There is no such thing in the Forbidden Forest. In addition to the one in Hogwarts, no one knows where else there is in the British wizarding world. This was specially obtained by Dumbledore for Lupin. It was not easy to start before. This thing is more precious, and it is also very aggressive. It is easy to be discovered if it is missing branches or stems. But today, Ronald and Harry hit it with their car, and a lot of branches fell off. I went to pick up some unwanted garbage. Isn't that too much? The Whomping Willow is also a willow. If it is a willow, it should be able to be planted by cutting branches. Planting it in a space like the room of requirement that can meet any requirements, the survival rate is quite high. There will be no shortage of this kind of material in the future. Before getting close, Ethan saw the abnormally manic Whomping Willow, with countless branches waving in the air, making bursts of air-breaking sounds. Relax. A series of flames hit the trunk of the Whomping Willow directly. Under the effect of magic, the Whomping Willow withered at a speed visible to the naked eye, and the branches drooped and could not be lifted. The magic of relax is useful for any creature, and can make it weak and powerless. Using a wand is also to exert greater power. What if such a big tree cannot be controlled by a wandless spell? Without the interference of the whomping willow, Ethan directly picked up all the broken branches around, leaving no leaves behind. It must be said that the car crashed hard enough that he picked up a lot of branches as thick as a bowl. Not only the fallen ones, but also those broken ones with a little bark hanging on them. Ethan did not let go of them. He swung the magic sword and cut them off and took them away. After finishing, he ran directly to the room of requirement. I asked for a room suitable for cuttings and planting as soon as possible. The space that appeared had 5 acres of fertile land in a warm winter. Follow the steps in the book. Finally, apply dragon manure fertilizer. There is no shortage of this stuff with fire dragons. The best fertilizer in the wizarding world is the feces of a month-long crazy beast and the feces of a fire dragon. Both are the styles that Professor Sprout likes to use. Field work in spring, sow seeds of hope; in summer, remove lush weeds; in autumn, welcome the golden wheat waves; and in winter, store the joy of harvest. Achievement goal: have your own land again, cultivate the garden with your own hands. 1/1. Achievement reward: immediate magic potion and unexpected surprise. The result of the lottery was also very good, a potion that was not available on the market at all. Purification potion, cleans the soul, purifies the body, and removes filth. This is the effect, almost like contact with negative status. It should be effective for Nagini's curse. It's just that the brewing time is too long. It takes a full half year, the same level as the Felicity potion, and the materials required are even more precious, all of which have the effect of removing curses and healing. Unicorn tears and unicorn horn powder. This is easy for Ethan to get. The powder is available, and the tears can be obtained by going to the Forbidden Forest. Phoenix tail feathers. This Ethan also has. It was a Christmas gift from Dumbledore last Christmas, but Phoenix tears, this is difficult. I will find another opportunity later to see if I can get a little more from old Dumbledore. Then I asked for a space suitable for the dragon to live. Now Onyxia is only more than 5 meters. If no one takes care of her, it is still not very suitable for the Forbidden Forest. There are tribes of centaurs, werewolves, giant spiders, chimeras, poisonous leopards, winged demons, and 5-legged monsters, all of which can pose a threat to Onyxia. The werewolves in the Forbidden Forest are wolf cubs formed after mating with werewolves, not in human form. Not to mention that after being exposed, it is easy to attract the attention of poachers. So, it can only be released when it grows to 10 meters. At that time, it will be the size of an adult Hebridean black dragon. Under normal circumstances, there is no way to deal with it without more than a dozen wizards working together, let alone Ethan's gene mutation. And I don't know what happened. The flames spewed by Onyxia are not the normal orange now, but black. This is also what Ethan discovered after returning from Nico. Maybe the fire-breathing organ is gradually developing, which reveals its specialness. It takes 6 months for a dragon cub to breathe fire. Before that, it can only breathe out sparks. It takes 1 year to fly. Ethan is growing fast and is already the size of a normal adult Welsh green dragon. After calming Onyxia down, Ethan opened the magic training room for the first time in a long time. He hadn't practiced the fire god's way. As for Nagini, as long as the space is not too small like an iron cage and can satisfy her wandering around, she will continue to live in the box with the traceless stretching spell. On the first day of school, the class schedule has been sent. Except that the flying class was cancelled, the rest is no different from the first grade, that is, the time of the course is changed. Sure enough, this Madam Hooch is just a referee of the Quidditch game. She only teaches 1 grade and 1 class a week. There is no one who has an easier job than her. She is just a salary slacker. I came to the hall with my roommate and met Harry and Ronald, who also came from the direction of the Gryffindor common room. What happened to you yesterday? Mainly concerned that Gryffindor didn't lose points. Such a big thing happened. Muggles saw the flying car, and the matter was reported to the Ministry of Magic. It is definitely not something that can be solved within Hogwarts. In the end, only Turtledove can take action. But today, the hourglass representing the score of Gryffindor's house did not decrease. Snape actually did not seize the opportunity and deducted 1 or 200 points. Can you believe it? According to Dumbledore's partiality to Harry, if he did not bleed Gryffindor's house points, he would definitely be a bigger competitor than Sterling in Ravenclaw's process of winning the House Cup. I don't know what happened yesterday. We couldn't get into the platform 9 3/4. In order to avoid being late, Ronald drove out of the family car, but he didn't expect to crash the Whomping Willow. Harry sighed here. It was just a matter of sending a letter to the school, but now it has become so big. Didn't Snape make things difficult for you? He didn't even attend the opening dinner yesterday. Actually, this matter has nothing to do with Snape. Professor McGonagall is the headmaster of Gryffindor. The little wizard in her school is in trouble. If she doesn't go, who will? And Dumbledore is the headmaster. If this matter becomes a big deal, he will have to communicate with the Ministry of Magic. Snape, who has nothing to do with him, ran away faster than Seong. He said he wanted to expel us, but fortunately Dumbledore and Professor McGonagall stopped him. Moreover, Professor McGonagall said that the school hadn't started yet yesterday, so the school points would not be deducted. We just need to do detention. Speaking of this, Harry was quite happy. His headmaster finally showed his strength. In the past, he would watch Snape scold him and Ronald, and he would not say a word for him when points were deducted, and he would even take the initiative to deduct points. Now, things have finally changed. Is that so? By the way, you can't enter platform 9 3/4, it must be that the pillars are enchanted. Think about it, who doesn't want you to come to Hogwarts? Be prepared, since you are here he will definitely not give up. After saying that, Ethan fulfilled the long-cherished wish of Ragnarok. It seems that Professor McGonagall was scared by the college points last school year, so he is now saving a hand, otherwise he would have deducted 100 or 200 points now. You are no longer the fair and just cat professor. Ronald, remember the house elf I mentioned when I went to your house just now? Well, you said he made your birthday terrible. He said there was a big conspiracy in Hogwarts this year, and something terrible happened, so I shouldn't go to Hogwarts. I suspect it was him. After Ethan's reminder, Harry quickly found the target. But the house elf, this. The owls are coming. Ethan, who was eating breakfast, was gently pushed by Terry. Turning around, at least hundreds of owls rushed in at the moment the windows of the auditorium opened, and feathers rained down wherever they passed. Ethan casually cast a defensive magic to cover the surrounding area to avoid being contaminated by feathers and owl feces. Ethan knew that birds don't have bladders and short rectums, so it's normal to poop while flying. 2 owls flew to Ethan's side and dropped 2 packages. Ethan tore it open directly, and there were magazines inside. Today's Transfiguration, this is recommended by Professor McGonagall. Ethan has subscribed for a long time and has not missed any issue. Singing a different tune, this is what Ethan subscribed to with an owl when he met Luna, wanting to see how big his father's imagination is. I didn't expect this issue to come so quickly. Just as Ethan was about to flip through it, a scream came from the Gryffindor long table. Oh, no. This scream attracted a lot of attention. Ronald was holding a wet owl, and a wet red envelope was in its mouth. You'd better open it, hey. Neville whispered to the side. He had experience in this matter. It's worse if you don't open it. My grandma sent it to me once, and I ignored it. The result was terrible. 6:20. At this point Neville was a little scared. Harry looked at all this with some horror, and his feet were quietly moving away from here. Yesterday, Professor McGonagall said that he would give himself and Ronald sent a letter home, and now it's obvious who the letter is from. Open it quickly. Neville urged hurriedly, it's too late. Ronald stretched out his shaking hand, but a lot of white smoke was coming out of the envelope at this moment. Bang. The huge noise filled the entire hall, and the dust on the ceiling fell down. If they fire you for stealing the car, I won't be surprised at all. Just wait and see how I deal with you. You probably never thought about how your father and I felt when we found out that the car was gone. Mrs. Weasley's voice was much louder than usual. She definitely used an enhanced version of the loud spell, and it was echoed by the surrounding stone walls. Ronald and his group, who had already attracted a lot of attention, became the focus at this moment, and even the professors were looking at this place. It can be said that Ronald has already died socially at this moment, and of course he should be used to it. Until the roar ended, the whole letter turned into ashes, but Ronald and Harry were still stunned in the same place, as if they had not come back to their senses. The twin brothers and Percy, Ethan had seen their backs sneaking out of the hall, probably because they thought it was too embarrassing. Howler letters, this thing may not come once a year. Ronald, why did the Weasley family produce such a jerk like you? After breakfast, Ethan and others prepared to go to class. The first class today was herbology. The herbology class was in the greenhouse outside Hogwarts. In the past, Professor Sprout always came early, and he would tell the little wizards which greenhouse to go to for class. But today, Professor Sprout was not seen. When the class was about to start, Ethan saw Professor Sprout walking on the lawn, with a very ugly face. There were still many bandages on his arms, and the new defense against the dark arts Professor Lockhart followed behind him. Ethan didn't know whether Professor Sprout was annoyed by Lockhart or because he found that the fallen branches of the Whomping Willow were missing. Look, the bandage on Sprout's arm showed that he was trying to connect Psyche to it. But all these preparations were useless at this moment. Chapter 94. This morning, there were 2 full classes. After Professor Sprout sent Harold away, he took the little wizards to the 3rd greenhouse and collected the homework immediately before starting the class. There were not many homework assignments for herbalism, and the content was all in the textbook, which was considered very simple. Today's class content was to introduce mandrakes and repot them. The mandrakes that needed to be repotted today were not yet mature. When mature, mandrakes can kill people with sound and look like extremely ugly babies. According to Professor Sprout's explanation, this was not difficult. It was just that this thing didn't want to be pulled out of the soil, nor did it want to go back, and it was not very quiet throughout the whole process. This made it a little difficult to operate. Helplessly, Ethan could only throw a silent and wandless force release to make it quiet. There is no doubt that Ethan's 4-person team was the first group to complete the repotting, so they added a discharge for Ravenclaw. The second class was Transfiguration. The homework was collected first, but the Transfiguration homework was a thesis, which was more difficult than the potions homework. This led to many students with obvious worries on their faces. Some students wrote randomly, borrowed from classmates, and borrowed from other Transfiguration books. After collecting the homework, Professor McGonagall entered the topic of today. Beetles into buttons. After Professor McGonagall demonstrated it, he displayed the principle on the blackboard. Then everyone was given a beetle, which was today's prop. Ethan really didn't know how to complain about the education level of Hogwarts. Textbooks and other things also need to be reviewed. Hogwarts can't teach them as they give them. They don't know how to proceed step by step. Most of these students can't even perfectly transform dead things now, just like the final exam of the previous school year, there were very few who could get an O, and they couldn't even walk steadily, but they wanted to run away. Now when a living thing is transformed, it must be guaranteed that after the transformation is removed, the thing is still alive. But isn't this embarrassing? Michael, Ethan's desk mate, looked at the exquisite golden button that Ethan was tossing up and down, his eyes full of envy. Ethan, how do you do this? The talent gap is really too big. I have no idea at all, but Ethan can do it with just a flick of the wand. It still transformed into a golden button, which was full of fine lines and looked quite high-end. I just took the wand and prepared to transform according to what Professor McGonagall said, but found that I couldn't construct the details of the beetle in my mind and turn it into a button. I first learned how to transform a button into a beetle. If the beetle is not required to track the beetle or it is still alive, it is also relatively simple to transform the beetle into a button. First analyze the body structure of the beetle and observe it carefully. Outline the transformation between the two in your mind. Magic is idealistic, and there is no specific formula for you to apply, so Ethan can only explain it this way. Last year, Ethan's transformation was completed with the help of Professor McGonagall. Ethan turned his head to look at other tables and found that the situation was basically the same as Michael's. Everyone was holding a wand and muttering something to the beetle. Some directly killed the beetle, and some even exploded it. From time to time, someone went to Professor McGonagall to apply for a new beetle. Mr. Adrian, you are the first to complete the transfiguration, and you get 10 extra points for Ravenclaw. Professor McGonagall also noticed Ethan. She didn't even come to see him, and announced the result directly. Ethan had been to her office several times in the last school year, so how could she not know what level of transfiguration he was at? Hermione on the Gryffindor side looked up at Ethan, and then went to compete with the beetle again. Yesterday, Harry and Ronald didn't get deducted points, which encouraged her to work hard. It's not impossible this year. In the last class, she raised her hand to answer the Mandrake question asked by Professor Sprout, and got 10 extra points for Gryffindor. As for the other students, this was no surprise. In the Transfiguration and Charms class, Ethan didn't give them any extra points, which made them feel something was wrong. It wasn't until the bell rang that many young wizards breathed a sigh of relief. They had been busy fighting with beetles for the whole class and had made no progress. It was even worse than the matchstick needle in the first Transfiguration class. Only a few made some progress. Transfiguration classroom, on the way to the auditorium. Ethan, lend me your quill. George and Fred were waiting here for Ethan. They were originally going to find Ethan this morning, but because of the Howler letter, they had to flee the scene. Although Ronald was the most socially dead, followed by Ginny, because she was also mentioned at the end. But as members of the Weasley family, they were not much better. The matter of borrowing the quill could only be postponed. In the dormitory, I'll get it for you after dinner. Ethan would not refuse, for others it would be a harm to them, but the twins are different. They don't have any other big pursuits and ambitions, just being normal is fine. Anyway, as long as you don't violate any rules and get expelled from Hogwarts, you can graduate with poor grades, not to mention that the twins' grades are not bad, especially in some subjects. Their goal is to open a prank merchandise store, and they work hard for it, involving spells, potions, alchemy, ancient magic words, etc., which are better than ordinary good students. Become a boss after graduation, no need to take any certificates, just be a superior person. The twins' QW. Is got 3 OS in the exam. Ethan, we can help you sell this, it will definitely be more popular than the BAFE Brain Refresher. They are crazy about poverty, and now they still owe Ethan gold galleons. Not many people buy the BAFE Brain Refresher at the beginning of the school year. They are in urgent need of new sources of income. The dwarf puffs have just given birth to 2 litters, and they can't buy them before they grow up. Other prank products don't sell well, so they don't dare to charge too high a price, otherwise they won't make much money. Now they are just doing it for love. Take the quill pen for example. They also invented one that looks exactly like an ordinary quill pen, but it will spray ink all over your face when you use it. This is only bought when you want to play a prank, and it has no other use, so the sales are destined not to be too high. Ethan's quill pen is different. Any little wizard who doesn't want to do homework needs it. Gryffindor alone occupies at least 7 floors, Slytherin and Hufflepuff are estimated to be no less than 3 floors, Ravenclaw definitely has 1, but they probably can't bring themselves to buy it. Ethan is an exception. And the quill pen has a lifespan. Depending on the intensity of writing, 2 to 3 quills need to be replaced in a month. The professors at Hogwarts will not allow this kind of thing to appear. It's equivalent to cheating, and it doesn't improve ourselves at all. We can just use it ourselves. Ethan naturally thought about this, but quickly rejected it. Some money can be earned, some can't, especially Ethan is not in Hogwarts. If he graduated, he could earn this money if he was a bit more ruthless. But Ethan is still in school, a student. You dare to disrupt the order openly, and bring a large number of students with you. Let's see if Dumbledore and the professor will cause trouble for you. Don't think that many things can be hidden from them, they just don't want to care. Okay, let us use it later, there are still a few homeworks to do. Seeing Ethan say this, Fred didn't insist. Anyway, his brain can't compare with Ethan, just listen to him, can he still make money without making money? They originally planned to make up for today's homework in the car yesterday. It's enough to make up a little bit every day. They have been familiar with this process for a few years. Unfortunately, Ronald directly broke their plan. After what happened yesterday, he didn't have the heart to ride in the car at all. How is Mr. Weasley? He yelled in the letter this morning that he was detained by the Ministry of Magic for investigation. Ethan saw that the two were in good spirits. Was the problem solved? It's all right now. Dumbledore went to the Ministry of Magic last night. He was the one who intervened. My father was released this morning and fined 3 months' salary. Percy's owl just brought the news back. 3 months' salary and a damaged car. Mr. Weasley must be heartbroken. Ethan knew how much Arthur treasured this car. In order to modify it, he spent a lot of time on it every day after get off work. Who said it wasn't? My mother almost came to school. George shuddered when he said this. By the way, this year's defense against the dark arts professor is Gilderoy Lockhart. He is also a bad teacher. He only brags about his experience and introduces his books, but he is popular with the girls. He was also embarrassed by Lee in class. He said that he was a fake like Quirrell last year. Their first class this year is defense against the dark arts. After taking his class, I became more and more convinced that Gilderoy Lockhart came to Hogwarts just to sell books, and he was actually not qualified at all. We also have defense against the dark arts class in the afternoon, we will know then. Ethan didn't care about it, anyway, he didn't expect the school's defense against the dark arts professor to teach anything. Arriving at the Ravenclaw table, Ethan sat directly between Chujong and Penelope, they had already reserved seats. Chu, what's wrong with you? Looking at Chujong who was worried, Ethan asked curiously. Malfoy, he donated 7 Nimbus 2001s to the Slytherin Quidditch team today. Ethan, do you want to join the Quidditch team? Originally, Ravenclaw was at the bottom of the 4 houses, and now that Slytherin has updated its equipment, the gap is even bigger. If Ethan could be brought over, perhaps the results would be better. He was the best in the first year flying class, and Cassandra was about the same as Harry, whose flying class performance improved dramatically later, and Malfoy was behind. As a member of the Quidditch team, they were all very concerned about the first-year students' flying class performance. Every year, the 7th-year students graduate and quit the Quidditch team, and the talented second-year students make up for it. This is an old tradition. I can't do it. I don't have time. Maybe Jean will join. Ethan refused without hesitation. This Malfoy is such a fool, he has money but no place to spend it. Registration will start next week, and he will run normally. Cassandra will not compete with him, so it is really unnecessary. Even if he wants to compete, Malfoy may not be richer than Cassandra in terms of spending money. That's right. Chu-Jong was just talking, she also guessed that Ethan would most likely refuse. Chapter 95. In the afternoon, there was only one defense against the dark arts class. The young wizards were quite looking forward to this class, especially the young witches, who gathered in groups of 2 or 3 to discuss the new Professor Gilderoy Lockhart. From appearance to clothing and works, these were the topics they discussed. Ethan walked to Cassandra. Why don't you go and talk to them? She was the only one who seemed out of tune with these girls, even Hermione would talk to her roommate from time to time. Hermione didn't worship Lockhart like in the original book, but she just thought that his book was well written and interesting. What's there to talk about? He's just a show-off. Cassandra said disdainfully. This sentence caused several little witches in front to turn their heads to see who was talking nonsense. As a result, they found that it was Cassandra, and they turned their heads away at a faster speed. This one can't be offended. Why do you say that? Could it be that Cassandra knows something inside? Ethan also knew that he was not good from the movie. Just reading his book, this legendary experience is very bluffing. Who would dress up like a clown to attract the attention of others if he is a real strong man? If it is true as he said in his book, Lockhart is already a guest of honor in all major pureblood families. Does he need to write books and dress up fancy to attract those middle-aged and elderly women? In fact, my father never mentioned Lockhart's name, and he has no status and honor among purebloods, except for the so-called main-level Merlin 10th Regiment badge. Well, this is very Cassandra. The once venomous and arrogant Cassandra is back. Very insightful, in fact, Fred told me that if you have taken his class, you will know that he is an embroidered pillow. After Ethan finished speaking, he returned to his seat. As for the little wizards around who heard Ethan's words, who dared to jump out and refute? As the bell rang, Lockhart and Harry walked into the classroom together, holding a cage covered with velvet in his hand. At this moment, he was saying something to Harry, but Harry seemed a little impatient. He was ridiculed by the 4th-year Nigo in the first class. This Lockhart could endure it, so he immediately prepared this thing to prove himself. The strength is not strong, the number is large, and the appearance is scary. It is just right to be his target. G.D. Lockhart. As he said this, Lockhart took the book Walking with Trolls on Neville's desk in the front row. On the cover was a photo of him blinking. Winner of the 3rd class medal of the Order of Merlin, honorary member of the Dark Arts Defense League, and 5-time winner of the Wizard Weekly Most Charming Smile Award, but I don't keep that in mind. I didn't drive away the female ghost of Wanloon with a smile. Ethan turned his head and saw Cassandra winking at him. Ethan understood, I'm right. Showing off like a clown to attract attention. After the next operation, Ethan knew why Fred's roommate Lee Jordan wanted to argue with him. Outrageous. In the first class, everyone was given a test paper to do, and it had nothing to do with defense against the dark arts. It was all Lockhart's personal questions. For example 1. What is Gilderoy Lockhart's favorite color? 2. What is Gilderoy Lockhart's secret ambition? 3. What do you think is Gilderoy Lockhart's greatest achievement so far? 4. When is Gilderoy Lockhart's birthday? What is his ideal birthday gift? There were 3 pages of questions like this. Ethan had read his book, which was indeed well written. Because of his excellent memory, he also remembered these questions. The book more or less involved some of them, but Ethan didn't want to answer such questions. Dumbledore should really be pulled over to do this test. Half an hour later, Lockhart collected the test papers, and Ethan handed in a blank paper as a matter of course. And Hermione got full marks and received a reward of 10 Gryffindor house points. Well, let's get back to the topic. Lockhart rushed to the podium, picked up the cage he had just brought over, and placed it on the table. Now be careful. My job is to teach you how to defend yourself against the most evil things known to the wizarding world. You will face the most horrible things in this classroom, but remember, as long as I am here, you will not be harmed. I ask you to remain calm. His words aroused everyone's curiosity, a long-lost practical class. Since the end of the few weeks when Snape was teaching, there has been no opportunity for practice in the defense against the dark arts class. Lockhart was very satisfied with the look of the little wizards below. It seems that he really made the right decision to use his meal time to go to Hogsmeade to buy these things. Let's see who will say that he is just a show-off like that Nico, just like last year's dead-end Quirrell. Speaking of Quirrell, although the two are not in the same class, they have been classmates for several years and are both Ravenclaws. I remember that his level is not bad. Seeing that the atmosphere is almost right, he started the next step. I must ask you not to scream. Lockhart lowered his voice and said to the little wizards in front of him, that will anger them. Ethan was speechless. A Cornish elf was praised so much. If I borrowed a vomitory from you, you would be very lucky. But most of the young wizards were moved by Lockhart's words. They held their breath and looked at the flannel in Lockhart's hand nervously. Lockhart lifted the cover. Good. He showed an exaggerated expression, just caught the Cornish elf. The classroom fell silent for a moment, until Seamus, who was sitting in the front row, couldn't help but sneer. This thing can be called the most dangerous and the most evil? Indeed, it is a little more dangerous than the puffy, at least it can fly. At his grandfather's house, there are so many of these things, and they are useless except for pranks. It is the same level as the vixen that Professor Snape took out at the beginning, but Professor Snape didn't say it was dangerous. It just used the vixen as a target for practicing magic. Lockhart's forehead was throbbing with veins. He naturally heard the meaning of the laughter, and immediately smiled and asked, "What's wrong? They are not very dangerous, right?" Seamus laughed so hard that he was almost out of breath. "Don't be so sure. Lockhart's defense has been broken, they may also be cunning little destroyers like the devil. Here comes another troublemaker, and he's from Gryffindor. Could he be in the same group as that Nigo in the morning? The more he thought about it, the angrier Lockhart became. Looking at the serious suspicion, contempt, and ridicule of the young wizards below, his rationality was broken. Okay. Lockhart said loudly, see how you deal with them. Then he ripped open the cage door. Originally, these Cornish elves were jumping up and down in the cage, trying to get out. Now that the cage door was opened and the restraints were released, the classroom was in chaos in an instant. Ink was splashed everywhere, books and parchment were torn to pieces, and the paintings on the wall were torn into a ball. The unlucky Neville was caught and hung on the chandelier. The young wizards hid under the table one by one, and no one wanted to be the next Neville. At this time, Lockhart also regretted it. This had become a teaching accident. Just when he was about to clean up the mess and recite a string of highly confusing spells, the wand was snatched away by the flying Cornish elf. It also brought down the dinosaur bones hanging from the ceiling, and almost hit Lockhart himself. Ethan, on the other hand, was still sitting steadily in the same place, but there were a few more small things on the ground around him whose lives and deaths were unknown. Whenever a Cornish elf flew over, Ethan tapped the table with his fingers, and the Cornish elf fell down. A very simple coma spell. Ethan didn't care whether these Cornish elves came to play pranks or stick around, he didn't like them anyway. At this time, the bell rang for the end of get out of class, and the little wizards rushed out one after another. I assign you to catch these Cornish elves in the cage. Harold, who had already escaped to the stairs and was about to escape to another exit, noticed the situation on Ethan's side and immediately gave Ethan an order. Ethan waved his hand, and the door behind Harold was closed. Let's go. Ethan took Cassandra and Hermione out of the classroom, one by one, and gave Harry and Ronald a look, and took Neville away. There were only a few people in the classroom at the moment, and the others ran away like being chased by dogs when the bell rang. After Ethan left, the door closed instantly, and then the Cornish elves who were stunned by Ethan's coma spell woke up instantly, and rushed towards Lockhart with red eyes. You said you wanted to add points, didn't I help you deal with it? This won't cost you a piece of meat or move your mouth. The requirements are not high, a Cornish elf is enough for 10 points, but Lockhart not only didn't add points, but also assigned it as a matter of course. Who the hell spoils you? Nothing will happen. Hermione was a little worried, she also saw that Professor Lockhart was a fake. Even his wand was taken away, how could he pretend? This is the second life of a wizard. What can happen? It's just a few pieces of meat. Ethan didn't want to pay attention to these, and immediately prepared to leave with a few people. He is a professor. This is the teaching prop he prepared. If there is any problem, it is his own fault. Cassandra didn't care about it. Everything that happened just now confirmed her thoughts. Ronald and Harry on the side didn't like him either. They walked faster than Ethan. Neville also jogged all the way. He was really scared to death just now. Finally, I don't know who notified Professor McGonagall. When she came, Lockhart's clothes had been torn into strips, and there was not much good meat on his body. Now Lockhart is famous. It has created the history of Hogwarts. On the first day of class, the professor was injured by his own teaching props and was sent to the school infirmary. Many students think that Lockhart is even worse than Quirrell. He is definitely the worst defense against the dark arts professor in history. But some of Lockhart's fans do not agree with this statement. They still think that Lockhart did it on purpose to give the little wizards more opportunities to practice. And put out Lockhart's books such as Traveling with Trolls, Traveling with Vampires, Wandering with Werewolves to prove Lockhart has such strong strength and rich experience. How could he not be able to deal with the Cornish elves? The two sides even started a debate. Chapter 96. At night, on the stairs of Hogwarts. Chujong and Penelope were on their way to the room of requirement, discussing what happened with Lockhart this afternoon. This is the hottest topic in Hogwarts right now. Many young wizards who hate Lockhart are arguing with Lockhart's fans, and there are also many such cases in Ravenclaw. Even if they didn't experience it themselves, they knew a lot about it from other people. During dinner, there was news that Lockhart had taken a week off due to illness. This also made the arguing more intense, and the sound of arguments could really be heard everywhere. Senior, why is this happening to an outstanding graduate of Ravenclaw? Chujong felt a little unbelievable. When she learned that Lockhart was going to come to Hogwarts to teach defense against the dark arts, she still had a little expectation. Lockhart was once a member of the Ravenclaw Quidditch team. There is also a photo of him in the group photo of past players. The comments of the Ravenclaw students of that year were also quite good. He was an excellent wizard no matter how you looked at him. Combined with the books he published, his achievements were quite remarkable. As a result, it was exposed on the first day. Who knows what he went through after graduation? His novels might be plagiarized. After this incident, Penelope had a deeper understanding of the wizarding world. An excellent graduate could degenerate into this state in just 10 years. It is conceivable that he had been beaten by society and had to choose the path of fraud in the end. Moreover, he has degenerated into this state, and even the Cornish elves can't solve it. Penelope dared to be sure that if a young wizard who had passed the O.W.L.S. exams was replaced, no matter what the results were, he would not be treated like that by the Cornish elves. There are many spells to deal with them. Even if he was born of mixed blood, he had fallen to this state. If he was born of Muggle, he would probably have no way to survive in this world. Fortunately, I met Ethan, otherwise I would not have ended up well. But if he doesn't have real skills, why would he dare to come to Hogwarts to teach defense against the dark arts? Chu Zhangju couldn't understand this. Lockhart is also a Hogwarts graduate. He has experienced 7 defense against the dark arts professors in Hogwarts for 7 years. If he knows the curse clearly, it would be fine if he is confident. But he doesn't have this ability, so is he rushing to die? Who gave him the confidence? Maybe he brought himself into the world of the book and thought he had the power like the book, maybe. Penelope shrugged and said casually that it was just a guess. But she was right. Those who have attended classes at Hogwarts for a few weeks, no matter how poor their qualifications are, have learned more magic than Lockhart, and he was once an excellent graduate. To fall to this point is to lose the recognition of oneself, whether it is the appearance or the inner image, a number. Magic is idealistic, it is the power of the mind. Emotions, cognition, and thinking can all affect the success or failure of the release of a spell, as well as the power of the spell. He stole too many things from others, but they were not his own. In order to fully express them, he could only bring himself into it, and slowly lost himself. He had no cognition of himself, and his memory and thinking were all led astray. How could he release magic? He needed to rely on the spell of oblivion to make a living, and he also knew that he had to use this magic on others, so that it would not be lost. Ethan, what are you doing? After Penelope and Chujong entered the room of requirement, they looked at Ethan's operation and didn't understand it. He didn't study alchemy, read books, or practice magic. Instead, he was playing with a handful of fluid powder, and there were live maps and some parchments on the garden. Cassandra and Hermione were talking to him. No one studied hard today. Prepare to make a communication tool for the wizarding world. Ethan turned his head and explained. The communication tool of the wizarding world. Isn't it just an owl? You want to prepare for biological alchemy? Chujong looked at Ethan in surprise. Is it so much progress after studying with Nicholas Flamel for a summer? Biological alchemy, this is quite advanced knowledge. Among the magical animals, there are those born in nature, and some hybrids are artificially intervened, such as Hagrid. Some are the products of the failed transformation of Animagus, such as the XXXXX level 5-legged monster. Alchemy has also made a lot of contributions to the diversification of magical animals. The most typical ones are the basilisk and the sphinx. The former was made by the despicable Herpo using rooster eggs and special techniques, and the latter was made by ancient Egypt using alchemy to transform human bodies and animals to protect treasures. It's not biological alchemy, it's a communication device. It's similar to the fax and email in Muggle families. SMS has not come out yet, at least Ethan's mobile phone does not have this function. Can alchemy do it? Penelope was a little confused. She had used fax and email before, but they were pure technological means and had nothing to do with magic. She didn't understand the principle, after all, her education level was only elementary school, but it was definitely quite complicated, and it also needed electricity as energy. It depends on how you understand it. Just like this Marauder's map, before you saw it, you didn't believe that there was such a thing. In fact, it uses marking magic, dynamic development, trace revelation, true form revelation, concealment spell, and elimination spell, so he can mark the traces of everyone on the grounds of Hogwarts. As for the Marauder's map, how could Ethan not study it after getting it for so long? The principle has long been understood. The four plunderers were indeed geniuses. It is not easy to perfectly fuse these spells together. Now Ethan can already reproduce it. There is also the use of fluid powder and fireplace transmission. I don't know if you have experienced it. You only need to say the name to reach the exact location. This is because there is a magic network between the fireplaces, linking these special fireplaces together. When you go to a Muggle family, it's useless to throw fluid powder. It is precisely because of the magic network that accurate transmission can be performed when using fluid powder. Each name is a code, just like the current mobile phone number. If there is a slight mistake, it will go to another place. Of course, this network is different from the Muggle world. It is just a connection between fireplaces because of magic. As early as the second semester of the first grade, Ethan actually had this idea, wanting to make a wizard version of the mobile phone to bring some Muggle shock to the wizards. But the alchemy technology was not up to standard, and there was no clue, so it was thrown behind. The reason why I want to try it today is also because of Voldemort's notebook. Voldemort's residual soul has its own wisdom and can communicate with the person holding the notebook through writing. Written communication is much simpler than voice. Alchemy mobile phones are not easy to make, but two notebooks that can connect to each other for real-time communication should still be possible. As for Voldemort's Horcrux notebook, Ethan was going to find a way to steal it at first, but he came back too late from Nico, and the thing was already in Ginny's place. If it was in the hands of the twins, Ethan would have taken it directly. But Ethan couldn't go through a little girl's room, let alone directly point out that there was a problem with the notebook and said, I can help you deal with it, 00 as for the situation later, we'll see. The fireplace transmission is indeed the same as Ethan said. If you succeed, it will be much more convenient to contact in the future, but the owl will be out of work. Cassandra heard Hermione and the others talk about mobile phones and telephones last time, and she was also interested in them, but they were too complicated, so she had no choice but to give up. If Ethan really made it, even if she didn't use Muggle things, she wouldn't fall behind them. That won't happen. They can still be couriers, and only some of them will be unemployed. Who made them unable to keep up with the times? The owls in the wizarding world are really awesome. They can cross the sea, and their flying speed and endurance are both unique, but they are still not as good as instant messaging. However, since they don't want to be paid and only eat nuts, no one can beat them when delivering express mail. I'll make a simple version first, you guys try it. Ethan started to act, first using mercury to solidify the parchment, and engraved ancient magic words to improve its stability. This step is necessary, otherwise the parchment can't carry so much magic. Of course, if other magical animal materials are used, this step may be omitted, but parchment is the cheapest. Unlike the industrial parchment in the Muggle world, the parchment of wizards is a thin sheet of material called sheepskin, goatskin, or calfskin and then cut into small pieces for sale. After this step is done, it is necessary to engrave the magic circuit, and the association spell is necessary. Without the association spell, it cannot be connected. Elimination spell, after use, all information is deleted, just like the Marauder's map. Marking spell, transformation spell, revealing spell. Is it successful? Hermione looked at Ethan's stopped action and asked curiously. Although she had read several books on alchemy, she did not understand it and it was too complicated, so she gave up. We'll know when we get back to the dormitory. Ethan made 4 more pieces in the same way. And let these 4 pieces of parchment establish a connection with each other through the association spell. Ethan has not figured out how to connect with other parchments by searching for names or codes. Chapter 97. Nicholas Flamel, it's a very good idea, more universal than the two-way mirror, and it integrates alchemy into life. Great job, Ethan. Adrian, I just borrowed the Muggle communication method and changed it to the wizard's method. This is also thanks to your summer teaching, otherwise I don't have this technology. Nicholas Flamel, I also know that Muggles have this technology. In fact, I have a mobile phone, but I have never thought about it. Knowing and having ideas and putting them into practice are two different things. Nicholas Flamel, I told you about imagination and creation at the beginning. This is an important part of the development of alchemy. I hope you can keep it up. Adrian, I understand, teacher. Nicholas Flamel, go to Dumbledore. He can apply for a patent for you. My current identity is not suitable for me to come forward. I will communicate with him about this. Fleur Delacour, school has started. Brenda is still so annoying. I miss you. Adrian, I miss you too. Fleur Delacour, I will spend this summer at your house. I have already talked to my parents. Adrian, welcome, but my house is in the Muggle world. Do you prohibit spellcasting outside of school in Beaux Batons? 430 Gabrielle Delacour, my sister has gone to school. There are only my mother, grandmother, and I at home. I am so bored. I want to go and play with my brother. Adrian, be good, your sister said she will come to my house during the summer vacation, then we will meet. Gabrielle Delacour, that's after Christmas, there is still a long time, and my sister didn't agree to take me. Adrian, I will prepare a Christmas gift for Gabrielle, and I will help you talk to her later. How can I not take the lovely Gabrielle? Gabrielle Delacour, yes, yes. I don't want to go to Beaux Batons to study, I want to go to Hogwarts. Philemon Adrian, where's my car? Return it soon. Adrian, hello, I can't reply to your message now, please leave a message if you have anything, and I will reply later, thank you. Philemon Adrian, car, my car, return it soon. Nisha Adrian, how are you doing at school? Adrian, everything is going well. Nydia Adrian, that's good. What do you want that car for? When your father learned from the servants that one car was missing, he almost flew back home overnight. Adrian, I'm going to transform it into a car that wizards can use. The flying broom is not easy to use. Nydia Adrian, that broom is really not good. It's not safe. What if it falls? We should take a few more. If we fail, we can continue. I'll make the decision on this matter. Adrian, got it. I'll empty the garage when I go home for Christmas. Adrian, add another bottle of magic potion. Can it be completed before Christmas? Bruno Langman, sure, in time. Adrian, then buy the materials and start as soon as possible. Bruno Langman, got it. After replying to the message, Ethan put away the address book in his hand. He could chat in real time with almost no gaps in the field. It was already a fairly mature version. It would be even better if he could record images and communicate them in the future. This point needs to be studied after getting a two-way mirror. This was invented by the wizard family in Italy and registered a patent. Although Nico had studied it, he did not teach Ethan about it. Due to the weakening of the family, the technology was getting worse and worse, resulting in too little production, but they just held on to this patent tightly, resulting in almost no production in recent years. Now those on the market are decades old. Ethan also decided on the name of the address book, which is called Wizard Mailbox, which translates to Wizard Mailbox. Ethan spent more than a week adding search spells and several other small spells to it, and finally perfected it. The name written on the cover is a code name, which cannot be changed once it is confirmed. To search for other people through the cover, you need to enter the name, that is, the code name, so that you can establish a connection with them. If you want to communicate, you need the parchment inside. The code name of the other party must be written on the parchment of both parties, so that the communication can be successful. You can add the number of parchments by yourself. Ethan has more than 10 pieces here, and each one is marked with the name of the person being communicated. After completion, Ethan and Cassandra tested it in school and the effect was good. Then Ethan sent a few copies to Nico and his wife, Fleur, and others who were far away in France. Parents, Bruno and Dennis in Nocturne Alley also received it. But, do you need to register a patent? Ethan has never registered a patent for the Bafe Brain Refresher. This thing is not complicated. It is easy to find a potion master to reverse the use of those raw materials. After repeated experiments, perhaps the precise formula can be obtained. Let's not talk about the outside. Snape must have studied it thoroughly, but for a potion master, it is not worth it to sacrifice his reputation for 10 potions. They already have their own potions that they have researched or improved, so having one more or one less potion under their name won't make much difference. As for money, there is no shortage of it. No potion master lacks money. For example, the selling price of Felix Felicis is at least 10 times the cost of materials. It is those poor families with no ability and the pure bloods who are too greedy who want it, but they don't have the technology to analyze it. So now there is no Bafe Brain Refresher on the market, and only Ethan and a few people in Hogwarts are making it. Of course, there is another important reason. Bafe Brain Refresher has not been spread. When you go abroad, especially to a small country, if they know that you have not applied for a patent, they will definitely apply for it faster than a dog throwing shit. As for reputation, they don't want a reputation. After thinking this through, Ethan decided to apply for the patent and apply for Bafe Brain Refresher. With Dumbledore's presence, Ethan is not afraid of someone coming out to pick peaches. Ethan can't ask Dumbledore for help directly, but with Nico's involvement, there will be no problem. Dumbledore owes Nico a lot of favors. Not to mention the matter of fishing for Voldemort with the Philosopher's Stone, Dumbledore asked Nico a lot of questions when he was in school, and later when he was dealing with Grindelwald, he also got Nico's help. As for the favor owed to Nico, it doesn't matter. Ethan will naturally help Nico if he needs it. Ethan, who was walking towards the principal's office, suddenly heard a shout from behind him and turned his head in confusion. He immediately saw Ronald holding a wooden barrel. He was not in a good condition now. His face was pale and his body was weak. He needed Harry's support to stand firmly. What happened to Ronald? What happened? Ronald was hit by his own spell. Look at him now. Ethan looked in the direction Harry pointed. Ugh! Ronald lowered his head and opened his mouth very wide. A fat and sticky slug was spit out of Ronald's mouth. And there was already half a barrel of slugs in this wooden barrel at this moment, which gave people goosebumps. Ethan couldn't help but take a step back. To be honest, this thing is much scarier than Lockhart's Cornish elf. Ronald failed when he used the spell, and the magic wand bounced it back. We went Hagrid, but he had no way, saying that he needed someone to remove the spell, so we returned to the castle to see who could help. Seeing Ethan retreating in disgust, Harry could only repeat it again. He was his good friend, so he could only bear it. At first, Harry wanted to find the twins or Percy. They were seniors and might have a way. Now that he had met Ethan, he would naturally not go far away. In terms of strength alone, Harry thought that Ethan might be stronger than Percy, the class leader. This person could use himself as a weapon and shield to fight Voldemort. Would he dare? Stop the curse. A red light hit Ronald. After more than 10 seconds, Ronald vomited another fat slug. Failed. Harry frowned. Ethan couldn't be solved either. Was he going to find the professor? No, it succeeded. The spell was lifted, but the slug that had already grown in his stomach was still there. Ethan could feel that his spell was effective. Even without a wand, it was easy to remove Ronald's magic. Thank you. Harry breathed a sigh of relief, helped Ronald to sit on the ground and hold the wooden bucket to vomit. Who did you have a conflict with again? You actually used this magic. To be honest, if anyone used this magic on me, outside of Hogwarts, he would be 2.0 ashes scattered. Even if it was inside Hogwarts, Ethan had to use the curse-type black magic germination spell he had drawn before, and give him a few shots. Even if the professor could remove it, I can't stop the curse, and see if you can die. Anyway, just do it secretly, I have the ability not to be discovered unless I see it with my own eyes. It was Malfoy. Just now when we were fighting with Slytherin for the Quidditch field, Ronald and Malfoy had a conflict. He said that he wanted his father to go to the Ministry of Magic with other pureblood families, and he must expel Mr. Weasley and drive Ronald and me out of Hogwarts, so Ronald took action. Although he was delayed by Ethan for a year, Harry still successfully joined the Gryffindor Quidditch team. And didn't Ronald get a new wand? How come there is still a problem? Last year, he made a little money using Peter Pettigrew at Ethan's place, and made a little more money working as a potion man at the twins' place, so Ronald used a new wand at the beginning of this semester, so there should be no problem of the wand breaking and backfiring. Now there is still a problem, it can only be said that this is his fate. The problem has been solved, I'll leave first, I have something else to do. Ethan said hello and left, not interested in watching Ronald spitting snot here. Chapter 98. Cream Muffins. The stone sculpture had no reaction. Lemon sherbet. Is it really okay to change passwords so frequently? Honey fizz candy. Licorice wand. Milk fudge. Pear hard candy. Caramel pudding. Chocolate frog cockroach pile. As soon as the words fell, the stone statue in front of him immediately split into two halves, revealing a spiral staircase. I really guessed it right, who let Dumbledore have this hobby, the worst thing is to report desserts. Knocked on the door, no response. Ethan didn't want to wait any longer, so he simply opened the door of the principal's office, and sure enough, Dumbledore was not inside. Can I take this opportunity to copy some books and take them away? This is half a wall of books, and they are all books that Dumbledore selected from the restricted area and thought were not suitable for young wizards to study. Only these books are the real treasures of the Hogwarts library. However, feeling the gaze lingering on him, he gave up the idea. Is that a Pensieve on the table? Nico doesn't have it, I want it. It would be great if I could pack up the principal's office and take it away. Boy, who told you to break into the principal's office without permission? A sharp voice came from the wall covered with portraits. Ethan turned his head, and the portrait of the old man in a silver-green robe and a goatee suddenly came alive and came out of the painting into the real world. When Ethan came here before, these paintings were motionless. Why are they not pretending today? Principal Black, I remember that Hogwarts doesn't have a rule that students are not allowed to come to the principal's office, right? His name is on the portrait, Phineas Nigelus Black, who is recorded in a section of Hogwarts school history as the most unpopular principal in history. You came to the principal's office without permission, without the principal's notice. If I were in office, you would have been expelled. Phineas shook his head, looking very disappointed with the young people nowadays. You expel students according to your own rules and preferences, so you are the most unpopular headmaster in history, aren't you? That's right, little wizard of Ravenclaw. That's right, you still talk so much even after you die, no wonder you are not liked. The headmaster portraits that were motionless just now came to life and laughed at the somewhat exasperated Phineas. It seems that this headmaster Black is also not popular among these portraits. This time Phineas couldn't stand it anymore, and turned and rushed into the portrait, and then disappeared, leaving only a blank chess piece. Autistically ran to the old house of Black. An old witch with long silver curly hair floated down from the picture frame. Little guy, you came to the headmaster's office, what do you want to see? Bulletin SI. Delis de Winter, also a part of Hogwarts school history, is also recorded, but it is two extremes from Phineas just now. Principal Delis de Winter is quite popular and has a high reputation. Before becoming the principal, she was a healer at St. Mungo's and graduated from Ravenclaw. I'm here to ask Principal Dumbledore to help me apply for a patent. Ethan had nothing to hide about this. Nothing could be hidden from them in this principal's office. If I remember correctly, you are only in the second year, right? Principal de Winter was stunned and looked at Ellen in disbelief. Ethan is also a regular customer of the principal's office. He has come twice a year. Other young wizards don't have this treatment. And both times he came were not ordinary. Although Dumbledore didn't introduce them, he was able to beat 5 fourth-year students in the first year, won the fight and went to the principal's office. The second time, he made a deal with Dumbledore as a student, which all showed his excellence. But being good enough is one thing, and inventing and creating items that are enough to apply for patents is another. Without sufficient knowledge accumulation, strong enough practical skills, and constant trial and error, it is impossible to achieve this step. Yes, sophomore this year. I hope you can sit in this office one day and work together. Principal of Hogwarts? I'm interested too. I don't know if becoming the principal of Hogwarts can earn you achievements, but it is probably possible. It's just that the position of principal of Hogwarts is more difficult than that of Minister of Law. You can't become a principal by force. Umbridge, the pink toad, has been a principal, but Hogwarts Castle doesn't recognize her, and she can't even enter the principal's office. I don't know whether this recognition requires the consent of the previous principal, or is based on the will of teachers and students, or the vote of the board of directors. Just when Ethan wanted to talk more about Hogwarts with Principal De Winter, the door of the principal's office was pushed open. Dumbledore looked at Ethan, who appeared in the office, and didn't feel the slightest bit of surprise. And these portraits returned to their own frames and continued to play dead. Sit down and eat something first. Dumbledore poured Ethan a cup of black tea very skillfully and took out a plate from the drawer. The plate was full of moving cockroaches, densely packed. Headmaster, black tea is enough for me. Ethan didn't even eat chocolate frogs, so how could he eat this thing? It tastes quite good, why don't you try it? Dumbledore pinched one and put it in his mouth to chew. Ethan even saw 2 cockroaches moving outside Dumbledore's mouth. Fortunately, these were not cockroaches from the south, otherwise if they could fly, Dumbledore would have to use magic to catch them. Maybe it's not that there are no flying cockroaches, but they have been eliminated. A flying cockroach pile is flying everywhere in the room. If the wizard casts a flying spell and there are a few real cockroaches in the corner of the room, imagine what the consequences will be. Thinking of this, Ethan immediately asked, Principal, if someone plays a prank and mixes a few real cockroaches into the cockroach pile you bought, what will you do? Dumbledore stopped chewing. Dumbledore put down the pile of cockroaches in his hand. These desserts were bought outside. If you are willing, it may not be impossible to succeed. Think about those Gryffindor children, they may not be without the courage. You've already told me your purpose. Dumbledore put down the dessert and went straight to the point. So, is that okay? Ethan placed 5 sets of wizard mailboxes and the Buffy brain refresher on Dumbledore's desk. This set includes a cover and 10 sheets of parchment. To apply for a patent, it must be tested and qualified. Leave it to me. Dumbledore smiled and nodded in agreement. The appearance of this thing has 2 sides. It speeds up the communication between wizards. Even if a family is separated from each other, they can communicate and greet each other at all times and feel the warmth of family affection at all times. It can also provide convenience at work, especially for those engaged in dangerous work. Intelligence is always the most important. Similarly, this may make dark wizards more difficult to deal with. But compared to the latter, Dumbledore is more interested in the former. As for the Buffy brain refresher, there is nothing much to say about it. It is a kind of potion that assists learning. He can let Ethan and others sell it in Hogwarts, which represents his attitude. Sorry to bother the principal. Whether as the headmaster of Hogwarts or Nico's friend, I have no reason to refuse, right? Dumbledore smiled and looked at Ethan. Okay. Now Ethan knew that Dumbledore had already figured out why he didn't give him the formula of the Buffy brain refresher to apply for a patent last year. In the final analysis, this was still because he didn't trust Dumbledore to help him. Then headmaster, can you give me some phoenix tears? Ethan was like this, as the headmaster, he should help the students. The purification potion is likely to cure Nagini's blood curse. As long as he gets the phoenix tears, Ethan can start preparing other materials. According to the effect, the curse is also a negative state, and Dumbledore should also be effective because of the curse in the resurrection stone. Dumbledore didn't say anything, but directly opened the drawer and took out a small glass bottle with a little transparent liquid in it. Thank you, headmaster. Ethan took it happily. Then he walked out of the principal's office with a bag of cockroaches, which Dumbledore stuffed in before he left. I don't know if he was influenced by those words. But he was really just talking nonsense. He took out a cockroach pile from the bag, and it was still moving in his hand. Thinking about Dumbledore's love for it, it tasted really good. It's not impossible to try it. Put it in your mouth and chew it. It's quite silky and rich. The bitterness of cocoa beans and milk and honey are combined quite well. If it were a different look, Ethan really wouldn't recommend eating it, but it was made into this ghost look. After putting the cockroach pile away, Ethan planned to use transfiguration to change their appearance after returning, so that there would be no psychological pressure to eat them at that time. Using the wizard mailbox, Ethan successfully asked Cassandra out of the common room. Does your family have a factory? There are also companies and factories in the wizarding world, and the number is not small. But most of them are small workshops, because wizards' productivity is much better than muggles, and the wizarding world is not populated, so they don't need much production capacity. Yes, what's the matter? My family has a dragon farm, and a corresponding processing plant, which produces potions and tents. When asked about this suddenly, Cassandra was a little confused, but she answered Ethan's questions honestly. So, I just applied for a patent with Dumbledore, and I applied for the wizard mailbox and the Buffy brain stimulating agent. Isn't this looking for someone to cooperate with? Her family also has a dragon farm, no wonder she dared to say that she could give Ethan opened a certificate for raising a dragon. Although Bruno did not have a wanted order, he would definitely be recognized by the wizards in his hometown if he showed up in public, and he would not be able to take charge of the overall situation at all. Not to mention Dennis and the other two, they could only hide in Nocturne Alley and could not even sit at the table. To be able to produce products and sell them to various countries, you must have strong capabilities and the power behind you must not be small. Now the only one who can meet the requirements is Cassandra's family. You want to cooperate with my family? That's no problem. Cassandra agreed without thinking. Well, then I'll leave it to you to talk to your father about this matter, how about it? It's much better for a little girl to talk to her father than for Ethan to get involved. Ethan believes that Cassandra, this little girl, will never let him down. Ethan doesn't know whether opening a factory can get achievements, but enough gold galleons can definitely get it. The Potter family made a fortune from shampoo, and Ethan's is not bad, 2 flagship products. Just leave it to me, I will definitely satisfy you. Chapter 99. The next morning, before the sun rose, Ethan went to the Forbidden Forest alone. Holding a beaker in his hand, he was collecting dew bit by bit in the grass. This is also one of the materials needed to purify the potion. It is not precious but troublesome to collect. It must be collected freshly, not overnight, and cannot be exposed to sunlight, so you can only do it yourself. In the process of collecting, magic cannot be used. After all, it is difficult to use magic to collect only the dew on the leaves of the grass. If a little water droplet on the ground is mixed in, the whole bottle will be ruined. The remaining oozing grass, white fresh, moonstone, and sunlight orchid root are all very common potion materials. Ethan had sent an owl to Bruce's pet shop in Hogsmeade Village yesterday, asking the owner to help buy these materials, and flew back on the same day. A vague and ethereal voice sounded behind Ethan. Are you looking for the scimitar Snorlax? No, I'm collecting water. Ethan knew who was coming without looking back. Do you need my help? Can I? Ethan straightened up and turned his head. Luna was still dressed the same way, with carrot-shaped earrings and a necklace made of butterbeer bottle corks, but now she had to add a wand to her ear. Of course. Luna stretched out a hand to Ethan. After handing an empty beaker to Luna, Luna quickly took action. To be honest, Ethan should have pulled up the 3 suns in the dormitory to collect dew. It was too slow for one person, and it would be too late when the sun rose. Do you know the scimitar horn snorkeler? Except for his father, everyone thought that the scimitar horn snorkeler did not exist, and Ethan was not surprised by this just now. I have seen its introduction in the Quibbler magazine. They are shy and friendly creatures that hate light and heat and like cold and humid places. To be honest, the Quibbler is well written. Of course, this can only be read as an interesting story. The whole book has no authenticity. My father thinks they may be in Sweden, and there may be some in the Forbidden Forest. It is just as cold and humid here. Luna still said in that ethereal voice. I didn't see any harassers around you this time, not even one. Isn't that a good thing? Ethan knew that harassers didn't exist, but represented a series of negative emotions such as troubles and irritability. Only Luna, an unborn psychic, could sense them. The last time they met, Ethan arrived at the Weasleys' house. At that time, he was still thinking about how to get Voldemort's Horcrux notebook. The best solution was the Imperious Curse plus the Oblivion Curse, but Ethan gave up this idea. Anyway, Ethan just wanted to try to destroy the Horcrux to get the achievement reward. Now it doesn't matter. Just wait for an opportunity to do it. What's the hurry? Although Ethan has the crown of Ravenclaw in his hand, which is also a Horcrux, and a fierce fire can burn it, but the crown is also broken. If nothing unexpected happens, getting the crown of Ravenclaw that is not contaminated by Horcruxes will be an achievement. This is the symbol of Ravenclaw, but now it has been Voldemort had contaminated it, and the effect of the Horcrux had overridden the effect of the crown itself. It's a good thing. Luna nodded affirmatively. She hated harassment, it always messed up her mind. Luna, what are you doing in the Forbidden Forest? Another little wizard who didn't follow the rules came to Hogwarts, and ran to the Forbidden Forest in his first year. As for Ethan, Hagrid didn't care about Ethan entering the Forbidden Forest now, and would go up to say hello. The main reason was that Ethan was safer in the Forbidden Forest than Hagrid, just like returning home. As the overlord of the Acromanthus, Hagrid only had a good relationship with Aragog, and Ethan could command the entire Acromanthus tribe at any time. Other magical animals also had a good relationship with Ethan, even the centaurs with strange tempers, Ethan could say hello to them. I'm here to find the scimitar Snorlax and then visit the Thestrals. Ethan turned his head and glanced at her. Thestrals are not good-tempered guys. Although they are domesticated by Hogwarts and will not harm young wizards, not everyone can get in touch with them. Ethan has seen Thestrals hunting in the Forbidden Forest more than once, and the process is quite brutal and bloody. Aren't you curious? On the day of enrollment, Luna saw Thestrals, but when it was mentioned, everyone was curious why they could see it. Everyone has their own secrets, don't they? Ethan naturally knew the reason. Luna's mother died because of a magic experiment, and she witnessed the process. This is not a good memory, and she will never really want to talk about it. Bang! A blue-green figure quickly passed by Ethan, dropping a huge dark brown object and hitting Ethan's feet. Senior, hurry up, this is a harpy eagle. Noticing this movement, Luna quickly put away the beaker and ran away, and did not forget to remind Ethan. Due to the influence of her father, while believing in all kinds of strange and magical animals, Luna also has a deep understanding of other well-known magical animals. The winged demon is an extremely dangerous and evil magical animal. It is very fast and likes to eat brains. It is difficult for wizards who are targeted by it to escape. I raised this, no need to run. Ethan comforted, and then collected the corpse of the European red deer on the ground. During the summer vacation at home, Ethan bought a lot of deer at the farm, froze them and gave them to Dennis and others to feed Onyxia. I also brought a lot of frozen food to Hogwarts. However, with the Forbidden Forest as a natural hunting ground, Ethan naturally gave Onyxia something fresh from time to time, and every time he came, he would let the winged demon go hunting. Anyway, the winged demon only eats brains, and it is not interested in the rest. Under Ethan's order, just bring back the corpses after the brains are eaten. There are indeed many European red deer in the Forbidden Forest, otherwise it can't afford to raise so many magical animals. As for the Voldemort, it was still eating the corpse of the mortar rat. It was not picky and would eat anything it could. Even if it was a corpse of a wizard, it would still eat it happily. Luna stopped and watched Ethan put away the corpse of the European red deer and the figure of the winged demon that quickly went away. She took a deep breath and continued to collect dew. She really didn't know what to say. It's very cruel to raise a winged demon in Hogwarts. As the sun began to rise, Ethan also put away the beaker. With Luna's, it must be enough. Senior, I'll take you to see the unicorns. Do you want to go? Ethan certainly couldn't just kick him away after using him. For the little witch, no one would dislike unicorns, even Luna. Go, Senior, you know unicorns. Luna stood up and handed the beaker to Ethan, looking at him strangely. She remembered that the book said that unicorns only like pure women and are not very friendly to men. There is a tribe of unicorns in the Forbidden Forest. I can take you to see it. Now all we need is the tears of unicorns, and all the materials for the purification potion will be complete. Swish. Swish. Ethan bent his middle and index fingers and put them to his mouth, blowing hard. Soon, a rustling sound came from the woods not far away, and many arrogant black figures with 8 long legs came to Ethan. Luna has already recognized what this black, furry spider with a pair of huge claws is. It is another dangerous magical animal of the XXXXX level, the Acromantula. The king could not help but lean towards Ethan. Although he knew that this might be the spider that Ethan had just called with the whistle, he knew that facing this spider that was as small as a calf, no master could face it calmly. Is this Forbidden Forest so dangerous? This is my friend I met in the Forbidden Forest. Don't be afraid. Sit on them and they will take me there later. Ethan helped Luna get on an 8-eyed giant spider the size of a small car, and then he got on one of them. Sitting on the spider's back, Ethan commanded the 8-eyed giant spider to move forward. Ethan learned this ability not long after he came to the Forbidden Forest and met the 8-eyed giant spider. Hagrid was quite envious, but unfortunately his large-bodied 8-eyed giant spider could not carry it. Aragog might be able to, but it was too old. He wanted a mount, but he had to wait until Norbert grew up. The 8-eyed giant spider stopped when it came to a place a little distance away from a lake deep in the Forbidden Forest. After Ethan turned over, he helped Luna down. This is the territory of unicorns, and they won't get close like the giant spiders. With Luna, the two soon arrived at the lake. The clear lake water reflected the lush forest. 20 or 30 silver-white Pegasus were scattered around. They had spiral horns on their foreheads, and their bodies were emitting silver-white light, giving people a sense of sacredness. Laya, I'm here to see you. Ethan waved his arms and greeted an exceptionally beautiful unicorn. It was the leader of this tribe, and it was a female. Unicorns are a matriarchal society. Laya ran over happily, zhao hao zhao, lowered her head and rubbed her side face against Ethan's chest several times before raising her head. Ethan skillfully took out the energy cube and put it in his palm, while the other hand was stroking Laya's subjects. After Laya finished eating the energy cube, Ethan also withdrew his hand. Now Leah doesn't shed hair anymore, and there are only a few of them. Unicorn tail hair and mane hair are both good materials for alchemy, but tail hair is more suitable for making wand beds. The unicorn tribe, which has not experienced Voldemort's hunting, is still so peaceful and harmonious at this moment. At this time, 2 little guys with golden fur all over their bodies ran over and jumped at Ethan's feet. They had only a small bump on their foreheads before they grew up. These were 2 little lives added to the unicorn tribe during the summer vacation. After Ethan came here twice this semester, he got familiar with them. Bending down, he took out the energy cube, crushed it and handed it to Luna, motioning her to feed them. Ethan could see that Luna was seriously envious, but if there was no opportunity, she would never get close to the unicorn in her life. And young unicorns are the least wary. After playing with the 2 unicorn cubs for a while, Ethan started to do his business, using energy cubes to remove unicorn hair and collecting some tears by the way. Their fur is more valuable than energy cubes. Chapter 100. In the defense against the dark arts class. Ethan ran directly to the Slytherin side and sat in the corner of the back row with Cassandra, reading his palm, playing with her golden hair, and bragging to kill time. In the front was a stage play performed by several young wizards. Lockhart was explaining it and correcting some problems from time to time. He seemed very excited. This was what he was good at. He also gave extra points to fans who performed well from time to time. Since Lockhart came back from leave, the class has been like this. From grade 1 to grade 7, all students were treated equally. They were asked to perform stage plays, and the script was a passage from his book. Some of the young wizards below were quite interested and participated in it with great enthusiasm, and were proud to be on the stage. But more of them were like Ethan and Cassandra, who started the show and did not regard it as a class at all, doing their own things to kill time. Over at Gryffindor next door, several groups were already playing wizard chess, so they didn't bring poker cards, otherwise it would be even more lively. Hagrid is the dragon who won the card game, and wizards also play cards. Now this is not a defense against the dark arts class, but more like a fan meeting for Gilderoy Lockhart. Lockhart didn't want to care about it. Anyway, the students are in the classroom. I am the defense against the dark arts professor. I can teach whatever I want. If it doesn't work, you can change the defense against the dark arts professor. Besides, who said it's useless? Wouldn't it also allow the participating wizards to learn some experience in fighting against evil? Even if Dumbledore came, he could still go over. As the bell rang, Ethan and others quickly stood up and prepared to leave the classroom, while the wizards on the stage were still a little reluctant to leave. It can only be said that fans are a very scary group. Adrian, stay for a while, the teacher has something to talk to you about. Lockhart always paid attention to the situation below, and stopped Ethan when he was about to leave. He thought about this for a long time, and finally made up his mind. Ethan turned his head and looked at Lockhart in confusion. He changed the professor of the defense against the dark arts class, but he still liked to call him at the end of the class. You go out first, I have something else to talk to Adrian. Seeing Ethan stopped, Lockhart also dismissed the students who were not on the stage. Adrian, this is not a place to talk, follow me. After everyone left, Lockhart took Ethan to the defense against the dark arts classroom. Professor, what do you want? Ethan frowned and looked at Lockhart, who was silent and didn't know what he was thinking. He called him here, but didn't say anything. What the hell was he trying to do? Where do you have it? It's the alchemy that can improve your strength. After Lockhart finished speaking, he finally breathed a sigh of relief. He really didn't know how to say this sentence just now, he should have some shame. Hart had a bad impression of Ethan. He had the ability to deal with the Cornish elves that day, but he ended up getting himself into the school infirmary. He was definitely careful. But he couldn't do anything about him. Although he was unhappy with him, he had to bow to reality. Yes, I can make alchemical items with armor or offensive properties. The fact that Ethan had good alchemy skills was almost known in the wizarding world, and there was no need to deny it. It had been 2 weeks since Dumbledore helped Ethan apply for a patent, and the news had spread throughout the wizarding world. It was also revealed that Ethan had studied alchemy at Nicholas Flamel and that his alchemy skills were extremely strong. This was also a repetition of the book. In addition, Cassandra was on the line with her own father, and Cassandra won. The original net profit was 2:8, with Ethan on the 2nd floor and the Volley family on the 8th floor. Cassandra negotiated a 6:4 ratio, with Ethan at 6 and the Wally family at 4. The Wally family lost a lot of money. After deducting all the labor and costs, they didn't make much money at all. It also took a lot of effort. Not only that, the Wally family also promoted it, appearing in the Daily Prophet twice and other magazines to promote the Buffy Brain Refresher and Wizard Mailbox. They even found the Ministry of Magic and applied for a 2nd level badge of the Order of Merlin for Ethan on the grounds that Ethan changed the way of communication in the wizarding world and made outstanding contributions to the development of the wizarding world. It's just that it hasn't been awarded yet. It can be said that during this period, the name Ethan was absolutely known in the wizarding world. Everyone knew that Ethan Adrian was a little wizard born in Muggle, but with extraordinary talent. He was spotted by Dumbledore and learned alchemy from Nicholas Flamel. His future achievements were limitless. He also completed an achievement at that time. The light of the world in the center of the noisy world stage, the flame of glory is burning, the name is floating in the wind, and the story is sung by the people. Achievement goal, the deeds are widely spread in the wizarding world, 1/1, achievement reward, spell, ultimate flash. Use magic power to condense into a beam of light with high temperature and penetrating properties to attack. The speed is quite fast and the power is not bad, but it cannot turn. It is a very familiar skill. I am more interested in alchemy recently, and I want to customize a few props from you for research. It is impossible to directly say that your strength is not enough and want to take alchemy props to enhance your strength. You can only find this lame interface. Anyway, it is good to convince those fans. In the past, after finding that many of his spells could not be used, Lockhart went to see a special doctor, and the result was that he had forgotten how to cast spells because he had not practiced for too long. Lockhart did not care about this. It was not until the last teaching accident that he could not even deal with a group of Cornish elves that he realized the seriousness of the matter. It seems that he can't do anything except the forgetfulness spell. Even if he goes to learn, he can't learn it. His level is not as good as the little wizards randomly pulled out of Hogwarts. Lockhart was also panicked about this. Not to mention whether he would be exposed as a fake, but with such weak strength, it was uncertain whether he could survive this year. He went to the school clinic on the first day of class. What should he do next? So during this period, Lockhart was thinking of ways while teaching badly, until he learned from the report that Ethan had a superb level of alchemy, and then he found a way. If you don't have enough strength, you can make up for it with equipment. Over the years, although you have lost your strength, you have gained gold, money. Now that money has been exchanged for strength, although you are a little reluctant, there is nothing you can do. If a person is gone, no matter how much money you have, it will be useless. Of course it's no problem. I don't know how much you need, Professor, and what type you need. I definitely need armor and a few powerful spells. Lockhart said his requirements without hesitation. One is to protect yourself, which is a must, and the rest is to improve your strength. No problem. Armor protection items are 2,000 galleons each. This is the market price, and it is not easy to buy. You know this. The rest are priced differently according to different spells. This is not a blind offer from Ethan. There are not many people who are good at alchemy. If you want to study alchemy in Hogwarts, forget it. You start learning the basics in the 6th grade and graduate in the 7th grade. In the 7th grade, you have to prepare for the advanced wizard exam. How much time do you have to study, especially since the threshold of alchemy is the highest? Real alchemy is inherited in the wizard's family. There are not many people who can be called alchemy masters now. This also led to the increasing scarcity of alchemical tools in this era, and most of them were in the hands of pure-blood wizard families. The protective Dao Kang was the most expensive among them. Can you show me the alchemical tools you have made now? 2,000 gold galleons is indeed the market price, but it is still too expensive. Although it was boasted so much outside, Harold was still a little unsure of Ethan's level. The alchemy of a young wizard of this age is so poor he wouldn't even dare to write it like this in his novel. This is a necklace that stores armor protection. No spell is needed. It can be used after being activated with magic power. Ethan threw a ruby-studded necklace over. Expelliarmus. The moment Lockhart took the necklace, a red light was thrown out from the tip of Ethan's wand. Lockhart's pupils shrank in fear, and he quickly raised the necklace in his hand. The next moment, a blue barrier appeared in front of him, successfully blocking the red light. How is it? The effect is good. Not bad. Just follow this alchemical prop. No problem. This is Ethan's work before he went to Nicholas Flamel. Its protection is not as good as the one with multiple ancient magic runes added later. Alchemical tools are convenient, but they also have a disadvantage. The power is limited. The power of magic is related to emotions and other factors. Alchemical tools can only be enhanced by magic power, and there is an upper limit, so it needs to be strengthened by ancient magic runes. Ethan naturally cannot strengthen Lockhart. What is the strongest alchemical tool you have made now? Regular magic spells are fine. I have all the ones you want, such as the fire god to open the way, the fire escape to protect yourself, and the explosion spell. Ethan picked a few powerful spells to talk about. The unforgivable curse would definitely not work. As for the fiendish fire, it couldn't be controlled by the ring. If something happened in Hogwarts, it would be difficult to deal with it. I want all 3 of them, plus the 7 spells of levitation, flying, petrification, binding, disarming, instant curse, and crushing, a total of 10 alchemical props, made into the shape of rings for me. The request is really not low, 10 rings, you are asking for the sky. 30,000 gold galleons. 30,000. Lockhart looked at Ethan in disbelief. I came to Hogwarts and risked my life, but I only earned a little over 10,000 gold galleons. You made 30,000 in one go, Just rob it. Vulcan clearance and fire escape protection, 10,000 each, explosion spell, 3,000, and the rest is 7,000 for you. If you think it's too expensive, you can remove a few yourself, and this is just gold galleons. For the rest of the year, you have to give me extra points in every class. Now Lockhart was in a dilemma. Fire God opening the way and fire escape protection were only magic that Lockhart had heard of. They were extremely difficult to learn and powerful, and most people had no chance to learn them. Now that he could use alchemical tools of this level, Lockhart naturally didn't want to refuse, but the price was too expensive. The remaining price was still within the acceptable range, and as for the extra points, it was even less of a problem. 30,000, which was already most of his savings. After a lot of arguing, Lockhart finally agreed and promised to deliver Ethan 12,000 gold galleons within 3 days, which was the deposit and the price of the armor necklace just now. The condition of extra points was directly agreed. The remaining 20,000 gold galleons will be traded after all the products are completed. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you are notified of future uploads. You can find the next parts in the playlist visible on the screen or on my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.